This is a story about unparalleled intellect, a boy who found his perfect world and about the absolute control he will gain over it. In a room cluttered with mysterious scrolls and strange clay figurines, a young boy with hair like cast silver works intently, not averting his eyes. In his eyes smolders a spark of deep understanding. For him, this world is a place of magic, free from the mundane distractions of televisions and smartphones, a true paradise of boundless possibilities. This, as he himself says, is his perfect world. But this was not his first death. His story began in a completely different world when he faced the cold, sober reality. He was a schoolboy and his father once told him he comes from a long line of magicians. Although it was only a story, the boy clung to it. He devoted his youth to studying magic and occultism, a pursuit that distanced him from his peers. While others chased fleeting social connections, he strove to unravel the hidden truths of the universe, filling his room with books on black magic and ancient legends. On a mental level, he knew magic did not exist, but somewhere deep inside he was overwhelmed by a desperate desire for it to be untrue. His only obsessive focus on this esoteric knowledge made him an outcast. Classmates perceived him as a strange, anxious presence. Social interactions are a code that he was absolutely not interested in deciphering. One afternoon, a girl he barely knew walks away from him. His tension embarrassed her. While he watches her leave, a sudden surge of movement envelops him, and everything in his field of vision shifts. The truck is rushing at an unreal speed straight at him. There is no time to react, not even a second to comprehend what is happening, only a blinding flash of impact. Darkness, his consciousness drowns and avoids, piecing together lost moments in fragments. He is dizzy. Is this a hospital, or did he somehow manage to be saved? But the surroundings are strange, as if from another world, and this makes him uneasy. When sensations slowly return, he feels stuck, unable to move. Where is he? A tiny and clumsy hand comes into his field of vision. Then the world rushes forward. He is a baby, just born in the arms of a man and a woman who look down at him with love. He has been reborn. 2 years have passed now. He is a toddler named Abel, living in a small village belonging to the Marin clan. From this new perspective, he analyzes everything. His parents notice his cleverness and remark on how quickly he learned to feed himself. But inside the head of this 2-year-old child unfolds a much more complex analysis. He remembers his former name, a relic of a life that no longer exists, while observing his new family. They have distinctive features: red eyes and white hair, a sign of the Marin clan. He carefully and analytically surveys the space around. No electrical appliances, and the map shows a continent he has not yet seen. The conclusion is inevitable: this is not his previous world. At 4 years old, his new life truly began. He spends time carving totems, strange wooden dolls that seem sacred to his clan. One day his mother, while cooking, cut her finger, just a small wound, and his father rushes to her. He places a ring on the wound and utters a single impossible word: heal, and a soft light flashes. The cut disappears without a trace. Abel fixed his gaze, thoughts swirling, and the healing magic really works. He begins to see it everywhere. Parents use simple spells for daily tasks, animating dolls, drawing water from the well, and lighting fires. Magic here is not a myth, it is a fundamental part of life. At that moment, his lonely obsession with his past life was confirmed. All these years of study were not in vain. He was reborn in a world where he can finally use magic, and he is overwhelmed by a deep, poignant feeling of joy. Younger sister Gizel tries to get his attention, but Abel is completely absorbed in his work carving another totem. His father, a man of simple strength, advises him to play outside, unable to understand why his son stubbornly immerses himself in what he does. And to Abel's analytical mind, his father is a musclehead. He has great talent but lacks the brain to truly understand it. Observing and reading carefully, Abel begins to break the system into parts. Magic in this world is not some abstraction. It is a science. It is the art of giving spirits that live in everything, commands and spells. To do this, one must draw magical circles and sketch characters in the air with a magical line, focusing on the spirits so that the spell becomes reality. Creating totems is the perfect training because it requires a colossal sense of space and complete concentration. Even the tools he uses are filled with power. The wood for the totems is taken from magical trees, and the clan's knives carve everything effortlessly. He learns that the Marin clan was once feared as a secret weapon of war, and their children had exceptional knowledge of magic. But that was long ago. Now his father interrupts the training, pressing him, pushing him toward a more traditional path. After the war that quieted for a century, the deep practice of magic faded away. His father hands him a bow and says, "Hunting is the way of a true man from the Marin clan." Abel looks disdainfully at the crudely made weapon, giving him such in a world where he can transform reality with the power of will, is an insult to his intellect. By the age of 7, the village landscape had already changed. Abel's relentless pursuit of magic brought him the fame of being obsessed with talismans. His father is in despair. The carved dolls accumulate more and more, piling up in heaps right outside their house. But Abel no longer reduces to simple carving. He stands in the field, concentrates, and utters words as if they were signs. In the air above him, a complex magical circle flares up and begins to glow. His sister Gizel, now 5 years old, is frozen and watching in awe. They trained secretly, and now both can perform this basic magic. Abel swears her to silence, knowing that revealing their true potential now would be a strategic mistake. He has already far surpassed everything his parents could teach him. To go further, he needs a true master. His logic points to only one candidate: the village elder. If any mage from the Great War is still alive, it is him. The leader is a majestic figure, a man who claims to be 50 years old and maintains a youthful appearance through magic. Abel buzzes and with his fingertip approaches the elder and asks to become his apprentice. The chief stares wide-eyed at the boy and warns that his teaching is strict. Abel's determination does not waver. The leader sends him away, ordering him to come tomorrow when he is ready, a simple test of his seriousness. When they leave, they are met by the chief's granddaughter Firo. She says that her grandfather liked Abel's determination and thanks him for giving the old man a new purpose. She tries to cover her gratitude with a condescending tone, but Abel is not fooled. He clinically analyzes her behavior, recognizing in her a common character type, and so his official training begins. Under the leader's guidance, Abel's abilities grow exponentially. Finally, he masters the true structured art of magical circles, and his mind, created precisely for such complex systems, blossoms. He devotes every waking minute to training, so that when he goes to sleep, he can conduct tests and verify theories, as well as master new spells. For him, this is not work, it is the highest intellectual challenge. In his room, everything whirls into a storm of research and feverish creations. His devoted sister brings him food. Her quiet support is a constant, unchanging presence. The floor and walls become covered with diagrams and magical formulas as he writes and writes tirelessly, relentlessly pushing the boundaries of his knowledge. Half a year later, the chief calls for a showy demonstration. Abel stands before him, radiating a calm confidence that does not match his age. He begins to hum bright mantras. Not one too complex magical circles flare around, hovering on both sides of him as he prepares to animate 2 totems at once. The chief is impressed. Keeping everything under control simultaneously is a remarkable trick. Abel places magical circles on the totems, a necessary step for manipulation. Doll dance, he commands the 2 totems to rise into the air and spin gracefully. The chief nods approvingly. The boy's control is impressive, but Abel is just beginning. I haven't even really started yet, Grandpa. A barely noticeable smile plays on his lips. The air begins to whirl, merging into a blood-red ball of sharply rotating wind, sharp as a blade. He compresses it, gathering energy into a dense explosive sphere. The tension rises to a critical limit. Then he does a thing that completely shatters the chief's notion of magic. The destruction bullet flees in. 2 totems suddenly rush headlong. Abel embedded in them a secondary command that cancels everything. These are not his puppets, they are autonomous agents. They snatch the wind bullet, and in the blinding flash of the attack, the totems are wiped off the face of the earth by a controlled explosion that flawlessly covers the target. Able to translate the glance on the face, a slight apology. Sorry, it seems I spoiled the power adjustment. The chief is silent. It was not a mistake. It was such a level of weaving spells that he had never seen before. Where did you get this from? He demands. Abel explains, he just experimented until it worked. The leader realized, the boy on his own without hints, disassembled and reassembled inside out the self-correcting magic circle. Pure, unmixed genius. The old man clutches his chest and chokes with shock. I have nothing more to teach you, he declares. You are the first in all history to complete my training, now I can die peacefully. Abel and his sister celebrate his success. He mastered not only the basics at 7 years old, he had already created high magic. But for a mind like Abel's, mastery is only the beginning. He tells the chief that he wants to learn much more refined magic from the books in his library. And he will still need some totems of the chief. In an instant, the old man freezes in disbelief. His enchanted totems emerge from the house, each dragging behind it a huge stack of priceless magical tomes. How much are you borrowing from yourself? He shudders and gasps in astonishment. Perhaps I will have to make about 3 trips for all this, Abel replies indifferently, and his hands are already full. Next to his sister and behind him his new magical servants, Abel steps away from his stunned master. A broad, triumphant smile spreads across his face. From all sides he is enveloped by a mountain of ancient knowledge and ahead limitless possibilities. He knows for sure this world is his and it must be conquered. In the depths of his study, among towering stacks of arcane tomes, Abel raised a simple wooden wand, a magical tool he perfected to shorten the time of spellcasting. With a triumphant jerk, he dashed out of the room, holding a strange metal device above his head. Giselle, it's ready. The eyes of Abel's younger sister flashed with excitement. Abel himself, already 13, announced their next step with coldly calming authority, like an experienced researcher. Let's gather data right now. Hiding behind a hedge, they watched a local farmer tending his crops. Abel aimed the device, concentration flashed in his eyes, and whispered the activation word. Appear. A semi-transparent panel screen instantly appeared above the man. Lines of symbols flickered on it: hands, magic, 21, strength, 34. The device worked success, a perfect tool to measure the hidden powers of this world. In the shadow of a large tree, Abel checked the initial readings on the enlarged projected display. The average magical power for an adult man is about 20. Gizel, peering into the complex interface, asked, "Brother, what kind of magic is this?" Abel allowed himself a barely noticeable satisfied smile. He was introducing them to a concept from his old world, a system of logic and measurement that would allow him to rule here. I always wanted to have an RPG element. He remembered everything down to the smallest details. The sudden end of one life and the shocking rebirth into a world ruled by magic. It was the highest achievement of imagination, the grandest of scenes. He was filled with awe as the Grandmaster laid out the board for a game understood only by him. It was the feeling of the main character, not someone else's pre-written story, but a future he would forge himself. The voice of Gizel tore him from his thoughts. Your magical power is higher than that of ordinary adults. If you start training now, your future will be very promising. Yet Abel's mind was occupied with another problem. His father began using magical circles only at the age of 20. The entire Marin clan had a low level of awareness about magic. Collective weakness he saw in this, both deep disappointment and at the same time a chance that had matured. Even the power of the village leader paled next to his might. But Abel remained composed. Small victories did not impress him. As soon as Gizel stopped to admire a flower, he was overwhelmed by sudden anxiety. He glanced and immediately understood. Her strength stat was 4 times higher than his. He watched as she approached, not him, but a small demonic creature hiding behind a tree. As soon as the creature appeared, Abel's tactical thinking took over. Run away, he ordered, and pulling the confused Giz out of danger saved him. Before moving on, he briefly looked back at his former life. Even though he was passionately fascinated by magic and inventions, he had few friends, and he believed that in this new world it would be the same, life in intellectual solitude. His thoughts were interrupted by a sharp voice shouting at full strength. A girl named Firo, flanked by a large dog, decisively approached them with a reproachful look. There is a rumor about you, son of Balak. What are you planning, Toda maniac? Abel, not the least bit embarrassed by the accusation, simply raised his device. That's all, want to check your status. The result was stunning. Her physical strength was 10 times greater than his. Direct confrontation was unthinkable. Immediately his manner changed in an instant. He bowed his head with refined politeness. Excuse me, I will step away here. Father will be very worried if we don't go home soon. Firo was left completely baffled by the sudden polite retreat. As predicted, his father was already waiting. His face was like a mask of rage. Why are you pulling out Giz so late? It's dangerous. The lecture lasted. It was held against Abel, accusing him of neglecting his duties and playing with magic instead of work. You, on the other hand, are always messing with magic and hardly help around the house. His father's patience had reached its limit. Besides, you are the only person your age who has never hunted before. His mother called out from the door. If his brother goes hunting with that magic, the father did not let her finish and immediately made a decision. I will go, Abel, he replied calmly and evenly. And so they decided. Today Abel would take part in the hunt. In the forest, they came across other huntersome man named Galia and his son Shibai. Abel recognized an art family in them, but spoke to them for the first time in his life. Another reminder of his self-imposed isolation. In the morning, he remembered the terrible farewell of Giselayer pleading for him to stay safe. But it was a necessary step. Comforting her, he knew there were other reasons why he had to go there. He had to test and strengthen his terrible physical strength. He promised her that he would return soon and stay safe. Remembering her deep respect for him, he strengthened his own resolve even more. In this clan, adulthood came at 16, and marriage followed immediately. Piluchi Zappel had few friends. He always stayed close to him. He was pierced by a sharp feeling of guilt. Because of her obsession with magic, she became as much a recluse as he was. He took the first step and extended his hand to the other boy. Nice to meet you today. Shibai just grumbled and turned away. Gaul quickly apologized for her son's rudeness. But Abel, with the understanding of an adult, simply withdrew his hand indifferently, as if nothing had happened. He did everything he could with what he had, and his body betrayed him. Just an hour of hunting had passed, he was already completely exhausted, barely dragging himself to keep up. "Let's go home, please," he begged. He said it was impossible. His entire being was attuned to magic, and he was not capable of this exhausting physical work. She eavesdropped as he grumbled and snorted disdainfully. What a useless person he is. It was then that Galia saw a tiny Shimu parrot perched securely on the branch. Such a bird is very tasty. Shibai drew the bowstring tight, and his face was tense like a string. He released the arrow, but the bird flapped its wings and effortlessly dodged the projectile. Arrows flew past, and the birds dived sharply down and fiercely screamed at the boy who dared to track him. While the men were gathering again to catch the bird with a knife, Abel's mind was racing and rushing. He recalled an old experimental foray into biotope magic, where the rat was the test subject. While others were distracted, he seized the moment, stretched out his hand, and silently cast the sleep spell. The bird instantly fainted and, falling, tumbled from the air. Abel caught it skillfully and immediately handed it to the stunned hunters. "Sleep spell?" she asks, confused. Abel pretended as if nothing happened. Sorry, I wanted as a pet." His father was not amused. "I told you, today you are not allowed magic," he barked, "but I came today to train my physical strength." Abel weakly objected. Suddenly through the forest rolled a dull, deep rhythmic thud. The ground trembled underfoot. Experienced hunters froze. "What is happening?" one asked. There was not a drop of blood on Galia's face. "These footsteps, you guys, let's run at full speed." He shouted at his son, "We have to return and report this to the chief idiot. Faster." A moment later, through the trees with a roar burst a huge figure, a burly monster with claws and cutting teeth. Bigger than a bear. Terror covered the hunting party. Even Abel was stunned by the wild, all-consuming power raging from the monster. Galia acted on pure instinct and shot an arrow straight into the creature's eye. In a terrifying display of endurance, the bear simply blinked. The arrowhead broke off and flew aside, causing no harm to the tough skin. "What hard fur he has," thought Abel while his thoughts raced, calculating how to find a way out. He did not hesitate, rushed forward with his hand, and released the only harmless spell that, as it seemed to him, could work. Sleep. The spell worked. The giant monster trembled and began to stagger, and its eyes slowly closed. "It works." Abel, his father, rushed forward and shouted, begging to pull him out from under the falling beast. But even when she plunged into a magical sleep, the instincts of the greater bear took over. She struck one last time. Her huge claws sliced through the air. The blow hit Abel's father and threw him into the air. "It was my fault. I turned out to be too careless," Abel whispered, froze in horror and froze with fear. Galia tried to draw the beast's attention to herself to buy them a few precious seconds. Dad, covered in blood from the torn stomach, blood was pouring and tearing, stretched out his hand and placed it on Abel's head. "Abel, I leave you Giselle and your mother. I only know restorative magic." He looked at his son with pride. "You are a smart child. What you learned from me may not be much, but..." A faint smile touched his lips. "At least in the end I managed to do something fatherly." And then he disappeared. Galia tore a stream of flame into the awakening wild beast. The flame covered the greater bear, but it only shook its head and remained completely unharmed. A shadow fell over Abel's eyes. All emotions vanished from his face, replaced by a cold, terrible, focused gaze. He spoke 2 words, the activation key to the power he kept secret. A brilliant, intricate magical circle flared around him, pulsating with energy far beyond anything hunters had ever seen. At first, his mind coldly and clearly analyzed the situation. Such fur, thick, breathtaking, probably it had never taken damage before. The tactic formed in a moment, then the wind. He released the blade edge of the spell, a whirlwind of cutting wind that scraped across the bear's hide, tearing a moment of pain from it, but causing no real harm. When the bear growled in frustration, Abel undertook the impossible. He began rewriting the magic circle right then, adjusting its very structure. Now he declared, and pouring out every drop of his magical power dry, he plunged into this new custom attack crafted for him. The beast finally sensed mortal danger and growled fiercely. The spell hit the target. A dense volley of arcane power tore a bloody wound through the thick skin of the creature. A cruel, predatory smile stretched across Abel's face, and his eyes flared with indomitable power. As his mana reserves melted away, Abel faced the monster greater bear. A stream of magical energy swirled before him. His brain worked at full capacity, calculating the exact force needed. If he could hit it even just a little, there would be a chance it would retreat, buying them precious time. But despair seized him. With a surge of will, he poured every last drop of power into the spell. The voice a strained whisper, "Please." Blinding light burst from his hands and covered the clearing. Abel closed his eyes. A shockwave tore through the air, and the world vanished in a white haze. When the dust settled, he raised his gaze, his eyes widened sharply in disbelief. A path of total destruction had been carved through the forest. Only shattered stumps remained of the trees. This was far beyond his expectations. He had intended to cast a simple sleep spell just to make the beast flee. But instead, he saw the huge creature lying motionless on the ground, completely neutralized. Then his gaze fell on two other figures trapped within the bounds of his spell. He screamed sharply and in horror realized his magic had knocked down his companions as well. As he rushed to his father's side, another boy, Theo, approached him holding a slab of freshly cut meat from the fallen beast. "Mr. Abel," he said, his voice trembling, a new, sincere respect had appeared in it. Glance felt nervously tied to his own unconscious father. "Can you cut this a little less?" he asked, clearly choking on what was happening. Quickly assessing the man, "He will regain consciousness soon. Theo, calm down, no external injuries," and I applied life-saving magic on him. But with his own father, it was different. A complex magical circle glowed and flashed on his chest. The seal of a deadly internal wound was pulsating. Without any hesitation, Abel pulled out a dark, pulsating piece of monstrous flesh. Theo froze in horror. "Is it normal to use this?" Abel's face was stern. "Probably not," he admitted, "but I will have to work with this." He covered the grotesque matter with his hands and passed mana through it, adjusting it. He gave the command. The incantation was forbidden art, meant to make the bear's flesh play the role of replacing human tissue. His father let out a painful groan. Life was fading. Abel knew the stakes. Connecting the flesh of a magical creature with a human body was essentially creating a chimera. In some cities, it was forbidden dark sorcery, and in others, a desperate but legal medical procedure. This was his first experience with biological magic on a human. The risks were astronomical. That there was no other choice. He took a deep, steady breath, gathered his thoughts. "I must do this." He put all his concentration into the delicate operation that could change a life. Time seemed to stand still. Finally, the procedure was completed. His father was breathing evenly, the deadly wound had closed. Abel collapsed to the ground completely exhausted and Theo froze in amazement, looking at the miracle that had just happened. "Just let there be no consequences." Abel muttered quietly, making a note in his head, discuss this unprecedented event with the clan leader. His strategic mind was already jumping to the next problem. "Staying here too long is dangerous," he stated, remembering that even more powerful monsters exist in these forests. "We plan to carry our parents through the totems. Can you help me?" When they set off back on the road, dragging their parents on magically made sleds, Theo broke the silence. Abel glanced over his shoulder, his face revealed nothing. "Fine," Abel replied coldly. "You helped a lot. If you weren't here, I wouldn't have the energy to make enough totems." Then Theo made a stunning confession. I thought of you as a rival in love." Abel stopped, genuinely puzzled. A love rival. He mentally ran through a short list of girls he knew. The only one was the younger sister, Giselle, and Theo misunderstood his silence. "If it's about Theo, I thought so." He said that Giselle is a flower that can't be reached. The boy explained that because there were so few families in the Marin clan, and since he always saw Abel and Gisela together, he just made the worst assumptions. When the brothers Abel said this and the correction sounded with mocking finality, Theo's jaw dropped in shock. From the side, Abel sincerely tried inside. He was constantly gnawed by how much energy it took just to communicate through these ordinary social misunderstandings. Maybe he just thought he and his sister were too close for others to understand. Theo, as always silly, immediately blossomed. "Then can I call you brother-in-law?" Abel's face froze with irritation. Only at night do they finally reach the village. The village guards rushed to meet them. On their faces was a mixture of anxiety and relief. Abel nodded sharply, indicating the situation is under control. Suddenly, a wild clatter of footsteps near the gate echoed from the village. It was Giselle. She threw herself into his arms, tears streaming down her face. "Anasama, I am so glad you are safe." Abel pressed her closer to himself. A rare warmth broke through his impassive shell. "Sorry we returned late." Late that night, as they stood under the moon, Giselle asked what he was thinking about. "Nothing," he replied and turned away. But in his mind, everything was perfectly clear. He much preferred the quiet solitude of his magical research to the chaos of the outside world. 2 years passed. Abel, who was already 15, walked through the village calm, confident stride. He counted the time. In 2 more years, he would reach the same age at which he died in his previous life. A faint nostalgia overwhelmed him like a wave. It occurred to him, what are friends doing in the Black Magic Research Club? He thought, looking at the sky. He hoped that his younger one was living well without the burden of guilt for the past. The new life he vowed to protect would be good. "Anasama, I finally found you." The voice called. It was Giselle, now already 13. She led him to a strange wooden structure in their yard. "Lately, I started a little gardening project." She explained, thanks to the magical additives provided by Abel, the plant grew to such gigantic sizes in a week. As expected from me, Abel replied with a barely biting smile. He explained his goal. He wanted to burn the leaves before the upcoming coming-of-age ceremony, so dictates the Marin tradition. That is why he decided to grow everything himself to gather the perfect taste. He brought the bowl with food to one of the totem-like plants. All right, Mr. Gora, time to eat. Dizzle tilted her head. Anasama, why do you call them Mr.? A tremor of deep emotions ran across Abel's face. Because his slender and towering appearance reminded me of Mr. Mountain. He said quietly, the senor who helped me create the Black Magic Research Club. A tear welled up in his eye when he remembered the person who once gave him a place to belong in his past life. Brother, what happened? Gizzle asked anxiously. He quickly wiped his eye. It's just dirt in my eye. Their conversation was interrupted by a confident voice. Hey, are you capable? A boy with a superior grimace, flanked by two others, decisively approached them. Who are you? Abel asked. His voice was even and indifferent. The boy laughed as if to say, the rumors that you are a recluse and know nothing about the outside world are ultimately true. He puffed out his chest with undeserved pride. Haven't you heard of the great Noswell Carlco? The name Carlco clicked, and a distant, insignificant memory surfaced in his mind. He locked the chain of thought. His face was a mask of mild annoyance. What a hassle keeping up with relationships is already too much. The young nobleman approaches the edge of Abel's works. A retinue follows him, and he claims to have heard that the head's apprentice is growing a totem. Pretending to be generous, he offers advice. Abel immediately sees through this transparent excuse. This visit is not advice for the sake of advice. It is meant to confirm rumors and suppress them before they spread. To feel the full weight of this visit, one must understand the local economy. In the settlement of the Marin clan, money does not exist. Barter and trade of goods are the norm here. But one special type of leaf, valuable for its magical properties, has become a convenient substitute for money. The cultivation and distribution of this leaf are completely monopolized by the House of Carlco. Abel, a young nobleman, knew these are not official inspectors. They were sent as mercenary craftsmen to scout a potential competitor. Nobleman Naswell cast a glance at the single, unremarkable totem. So there is only one here, he remarked with feigned indifference. I am grateful that you took the trouble to visit, Naswell replied. Abel said calmly, I grow this only out of curiosity, nothing special. Naswell smiled, understood, then there is nothing to worry about. And just as he returns, a predatory smile twists his lips. In his head, the counting is already boiling, calculations are going ahead. This is not a threat, this is a potential source of incredible profit. His everything standing nearby feels a chill run down their spine. Unnoticed, Nuswell's gaze slides to her. Hey girl there, he commands, be my wife. Abel freezes, stunned to trembling by such pure audacity of the demand. Nuswell's retainers explode in panic, and without any Nuswell, this is terrible news, they shout, grabbing their master's hand. If you anger that guy, it's the end for all of us, so quickly apologize. They try to persuade him with words, providing evidence and reminding him of the terrifying rumors spreading through the village. Haven't you heard? If you cross Abel the wrong way, he will turn you into a totem or a chimera. Nuswell pushes them away, roaring desperately and boldly. Are you too stupid? These stories are complete nonsense. The rumors were indeed incredible. Supposedly, there exist alarm clock totems that announce the time and tell the tale of how Abel with a single simple spell killed a huge bear. These rumors, of course, are exaggerated. Nuswell puffs out his chest, absolutely. Besides, I can easily kill a huge bear with my magic. Where Nuswell saw only nonsense, Abel saw an opportunity. His eyes flashed with genuine delight. This man with such a short haircut has magic. Is it really that strong? He thought, I thought I was the only one interested in magical arts. Could I have found a new friend? Unaware of Abel's inner thoughts, Nuswell continues to demonstrate his power. Hey you, step forward. The eldest heir of the Karlka family is speaking. Gizzle instinctively hides behind Abel, seeking protection. Abel ignores the order. His thoughts are far away. I'm not going to betray Gizzle, but I finally found someone like me. Let's try to behave calmly. He approaches the nobleman, his eyes burning with scientific zeal. Your family has long cultivated leaves, so you must be an expert in making totems. I am working on arrangements based on the works of Calba Fuller, and his theory also seems interesting to me. By the way, what paints do you use? There is no such thing as a loud rebuff, frightened in horror by this creepy marvel that scares to the core. Don't come near me, Noswell shouts and pushes Abel to the ground with all his might. He brushes himself off and mocks with contempt. Just as I thought, the rumors lied. He is just a pathetic recluse. Then he directs his condemnation at the idol itself. Hey, you are raising your totem wrong, you know. Abel's friends are shocked, but NOSWA does not stop. I was watching everything just as I was researching. And yet what's wrong with that, I'll show you. He extends his hand above the palm, a triangular glowing sigil flashes and appears. I call the blade of the wind. A sharp blade-like stream of air bursts from his hand. It cuts the wooden body of the Tatoga cleanly and evenly. The upper part with the heavy gap falls to the ground. He knows well and his people burst into mocking laughter. This is not what. Abel is silent and his face reveals nothing. Gizel abruptly runs up to him. Anasama. But Abel's thoughts are already set. A cold fire has ignited within him. All right then, he says, and there is no emotion left in his voice. If it all goes like this, I will do it thoroughly. His new battlefield is the Eastern Forest. Later, Abel's friend Korglot complains that he was dragged into one of Abel's schemes again. You are so angry, Abel. Gizel-chan has already gone home. Abel says, the first to the top of the log he is carving, I will not force her to stay with us. And now be quiet and start carving. Gargot is confused. Are you really trying to make me stay here? No, wait, why do you even want to push Carl Co. House out of business? The main reason is to take revenge on Mr. Mountain. Apple stops working. Why do you think the leaves are so valuable? Kurgat answers simply, not because they are hard to grow. Abel cuts in instantly, no. Then he reveals the fundamental truth of the Carlco monopoly. Carlco House regulates exactly how much they release into the market. Growing is not that difficult if you know how to stabilize the supply of magic. Gurget recalls how the village elder whined about this very fact. The Carlco family holds their monopoly only because no other faction had the sophisticated magical control needed for mass production. Abel continues the explanation and lays out a grand political chess game before everyone. The boss promotes magical ore to make it the village's currency unit. This is a resource that does not disappear after use, but Carlco House will be in trouble if the value of the leaves they produce falls, so of course, they don't like that. The leader and the Carlco family are involved in a cold war, but Carlco's influence is so huge that the leader cannot strike them directly. That's why Abel utters this with such grim conviction aloud. I will strip Carlco House of its political power so that it does not affect the boss. His plan is a masterclass in economic warfare. He will use the highest quality wood to create an army of totems and mass-produce high-quality leaves. Then he will flood the market, crash the value of Carlco leaves to the floor, and break their monopoly overnight. When Kroget asks what will happen if they fail, Abel delivers the final devastating piece, the same stake, and Gizel may or may not be forced to marry Carlco House. The burden of the world falls on Krocht. This is not a game, this is a war for his friend's future. His determination hardens, time to act. When this plan reaches its end, someone will go underground. He grabs a carving knife and a new resolve appears in his voice. I will make as many totems as possible. Nuswell and his men prowl on the edge of the Eastern Forest. They see a field of totems. Abel built it, I knew it, he is truly evil, one of the men whispers. They notice one that looks exactly like the one Nuswell cut and burst out laughing. Oh no, he plans to attack us using totems. But no waves of silence stop them. Watch closely, he commands. And you two are really idiots, it's a scarecrow, they are idols for gathering leaves, they don't attack anyone. His men realize the mistake they made. Looking back, it turns out he is really trying to grow leaves, isn't he? They mock the scale of the operation, they think one person can't handle that. It's futile. To lift something of that size, you need 20 men, each with a considerable reserve of magical power. One of his men is worried, don't ignore him, his magic is truly overpowering. Even the chief acknowledges his advantage. Nuswell considers this. There is a chance this is a coordinated conspiracy between teacher and student. He makes a move, a deadly miscalculation. You two watch the headman's house. Don't let Abel summon him for magical support, but Nuswell completely misread his opponent. He operated on false information and didn't know that 2 years earlier Abel single-handedly defeated the king of the forest. He didn't even imagine how the boy relentlessly studies magic. Abel had more than enough strength to single-handedly provide a continuous flow of energy for 50 growing totems. In 2 weeks, the results became undeniable. The entire field of mature leafy totems was rising up. A light, devastating victory. Kurget is delighted. Abel, you are incredible. At first I doubted whether we could pull this off, but we really managed. I also expected Noswell to intervene, but nothing happened. Emotionless gestures to his creations. So it's thanks to you too, huh, Mr. Mountain number 2 and number 3. When the harvest was fully grown and thus flourished, the time Kameth's season of leaf gathering. Meanwhile, Noswell spies at the post near the residence of the chief report. Strange. We are here every day, but neither the chief himself nor Abel have entered or left. Noswell weighs this. Has he already admitted defeat and surrendered? Another spy flies in. What is the report from Bellick House? His younger sister just left, but Abel was not there. Nuswell decides to handle everything himself and approaches Giselle on the road. Her huge wolf Firo lets out a low growl. "What are you doing near my house?" asks coolly. We are nothing." Nuswell trembles, just looking for Abel. "Abe," she replies. "Abe hasn't visited for some time, you know." The growing growl of the wolf forces the nobleman and his retinue to flee in fear. While they retreat, Noswell gathers everything together. What a fool Lupius if what she says is true. It seems Abel is not conspiring with the chief. What an idiot. Without a doubt, all the totems in that field have long been soaked with wood, and he hung his head, having suffered defeat. A harsh, confident smile spreads across his face. No one can compete with Karlko when it comes to growing leaves. Gizel watches as they leave, and a look of concentration is frozen on her face. What the hell did Abel do for the eldest son of Karlko house, that he was loitering near my house? Something was wrong. The coming-of-age ceremony was just around the corner, and her brother's behavior was stranger than ever. Or she sighs and pushes that thought away. But whatever, it doesn't concern me anyway. In Bellic House, Greget's father is burning one of the freshly gathered leaves. Oh, today the leaves are simply wonderful. How exactly? Abel enters carrying a full bag of his product. This is nothing like what I've smoked before. In the forest, the final preparations are being completed. The battlefield is being set up. The trading market is being unfolded. The date has already been set, Abel's coming-of-age ceremony, his own. The day arrives. Noswell stands in the market, and there is a predatory gleam in his eyes. Across the square, Abel catches his gaze. The air crackles with tension. This is war. The ceremonial gathering has ended, and Abel is left alone with his own affairs. He grabbed a quiet moment for himself and watched the peasants from afar. Exhaling a thin stream of smoke from a long pipe, he was already several steps ahead in his thoughts, calculating the next stage of his plan. The weight of the official meeting was increasingly exhausting. He sighed heavily. The exhaustion from all these formalities finally caught up with him. "You little devil," Gary shouted, his father patting him on the back. Abel grimaced, clutching the heavy ceremonial robes. He continued with a smile. "That's right, when is the official ceremony?" Abel waved off the joke. His thoughts were on more important matters. Gory's gaze fell on the pouch with neatly gathered leaves. Oh, what is this?" She looked around and immediately realized. Her son was gone. Where could he have run off at such an important time? But Abel was already at the city market launching his real plan. When he was just starting to set everything up, Goria appeared from behind. "I knew you were secretly doing something, but to go this far." He nodded with interest at the product. "Hey, do you have samples? Want to try?" Gary took a drag from the pipe and his eyes widened sharply in shock. "Delicious," he exclaimed. Abel remained unmoved. He only thought to himself that he didn't really like this smoke. Suddenly the man pulled himself out from under the tent flap, scattering a piece of the tent, and frantically called Abel's name. In the noisy market, the man apologized profusely. "I thought I found a great spot that no one had taken, so I started preparing," he explained, embarrassed. But when I noticed it, his voice broke off in another place. He looked back at the crowd of shops. And then he saw where Abel had spread out their simple carpet right in the very knot of the market. "Hey, this is the best place you could get for us." Abel's eyes flashed with strategic fire. "Good, now sell, sell, sell until we run out." But then the old man was filled with fear. He pointed a finger at the luxurious shop opposite. "Are you out of your mind?" His panic only grew. The only disaster would be if we succeeded. Selling the same type of goods right next to them is like pouring oil on the fire. But Abel was completely calm, a slight smile playing on his face. "Come on, Shaibi, you have the courage." "Buddy, calm down," Abel said, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "People looking for incense leaf are gathering here. If we're lucky, this will definitely be a big chance." After 10 minutes, their optimism suddenly seemed inappropriate. Not a single customer approached their stall, while the Karlkov family sign was swarmed with people. Without blinking, Abel turned to his sister. "All right, Gizel, please bring the totems I made yesterday." "Red and blue," she nodded. "Good, Nasama." His partner looked embarrassed. "Where were you going to use this?" Abel's smile was mysterious. "It's just a little secret weapon I made." At that moment, a smug guy rolled up to their shabby shop. It was Noswell, heir of the Karlkov family. Well, just think, you managed to set up mass production." He snorted disdainfully at their small pile of goods, "but your help was in vain." His thoughts revolved around figuring out who had backed this upstart. "Leaves for fragrances in my family are made from years of honed technique. This is branded merchandise," he boasted, boldly poking with his finger, and compared it to what you, like some kid, would make. "Ours is on a completely different level." Abel's calm expression did not flinch once. "He pours this magic into totems to forcibly make leaves for fragrances grow, and by this breaks your family's tradition. Your house supplies low-quality goods, and you know it. If your skill is hiding bad taste with additives, then this is one notably cheap trick." Having ground his competitor's entire business model to dust with a few sharp words, Abel sat down. Hey, now lift this, I'm the client. Nuswell snorted and threw a bunch of leaves at his feet. 1 akali copper for 5 bunches enough. He grimaced with a malicious smile and lowered his boot, crushing Abel's product into dust. He turned to the crowd, and a loud and commanding voice spread over everyone. All of you, if any of you buy from this man, then you understand what will happen, right? Abel's hand clenched into a fist, and a spark of rage flashed in his eyes. At that very moment, Giselle returned. Nyasama, sorry to have kept you waiting. She placed 2 roughly carved totems on their mat. Wonderful time, exclaimed Abel. Their companions stared at the objects. What is this? Aguizel explained. The red totem has magic to make sales flourish, and the blue totem can attract customers. Abel aimed a weapon at Karl Kostal. Their clients were already tired of waiting. Transactions were moving too slowly. I believe in our taste and our price is half as much as theirs, he continued. In his eyes, everything crystallized into a plan. If we manage to lure a few more clients, we can turn this around. Then he showed his main move. The totems contained no magic. He found a spell circle in the book, but it didn't work. It was pure psychology. An ordinary crazy talisman in the form of a cat to stir curiosity. Isn't it exciting? He asked, beaming with a charming smile. His companion looked at him as if he had gone mad. And just as they were about to interrogate whether Abel was okay in the head, Abel's father brought along a whole crowd of men. Hey Abel, that test product you gave me, I sent it to many others. Everyone gave it an incredible rating. Sell me enough so I can stock up a good supply. The men behind him nodded eagerly. They all said the same thing, sell me a little more. Abel's plan just received the catalyst it lacked. The pack swarmed the kiosk. This is incredible, everything here is unique, one of them suddenly shouted. As if what I had smoked so far was just moldy leaves. One even said, it is both pleasant and cheap. And the fuss and that kind of fragrant aroma immediately began to catch the eye. Even the clients waiting in line at Carl Cole could not help but catch the sweet aroma coming from Abel's shop. When people hearing the price of Carl Co. completely abandoned their line and rushed here, is it really normal to sell at such cheapness? I took 50 bundles. All of this was enough. It broke the dam. The whole crowd from Carl Co.'s stall broke loose and covered them. Sell me some, please. I was the first, and no braggart watched as his client base melted away in terrifying horror within seconds. A small kiosk was immediately covered by a wave of people. Abel shouted through the noise. Gizel, please continue to carry what is stored in the warehouse. The situation was still chaotic. It looked even more frantic. Philo's friends noticed and intervened to help. I can help with the lines. Nuswell's subordinate got scared. Nuswell, let's lower the price. If not, we'll be in trouble. But Nuswell was trapped by his own family pride. Fools, I won't do it, Dad said to keep that price at any cost. In a desperate rush, he tried to cut into the queue near the Abel kiosk. Abel calmly blocked his way. Excuse me, could you please go to the end of the line? Abel met Nuswell's furious gaze with a calm smile. A deep voice thundered behind Nuswell, and who could it be? Standing nearby was a burly, powerfully built man in a fur cloak. He radiated authority. It was Norman Karlkow, the head of the family. Nuswell froze, trembling, choking on his words. Dad. Norman waved him off, and his cold eyes fixed on Abel. Who are you, and who the hell put you in charge of the store? Abel simply pointed his thumb over his shoulder. My name is Abel, sir. Nuswell is over there. Norman Karlkow shifted his gaze from his son to his own empty store, then to the stream of customers flowing to the boy on the simple mat. His eyes narrowed and recognition flashed in them. Abel, it's you, that totem-obsessed boy from the Blake family. For a moment there was silence. Then Norman Karlkow threw his head back and roared with laughter. But he laughed so wildly that he stumbled and fell to the ground. Nuswell was petrified with shame. Dad, pull yourself together. He sharply turned to Abel, his face twisted with rage. You know my dad is sensitive. How do you plan to pay for what you've done? He rushed forward and, as if killing the gaze, shouted, I will kill you. Everyone back, Abel ordered, standing up to face the threat. The trading square fell silent as soon as the two faced each other. Harriet watched from the side, completely indifferent. Oh, wonderful, the head of the Karlko family next to his son. He calmed the worried Gizel again, although he himself should have known how to restrain himself, so probably everything was fine. Abel's thoughts whirled in his head. I can easily kill a giant bear with magic, but it has to look like justified self-defense, so I cannot make the first move. Around him, they began chanting the magic gathering. This was the crucial start Nose needed. Here is the light, and he revived his own magical tool with a spell, which materialized in his hand. When the magical circle of Noswell appeared, Abel analyzed it in a moment. The formula was crude, it could not be rewritten, because it was broken from the very beginning. Hand confirmed his thoughts from afar. Norman was undoubtedly a skilled magician, but his son was a blockhead who put no effort into it. The spell was nothing but a bluff, a fake. Nuswell used a magical tool that only amplified power, so his own skill could not compensate for it. If you play like that, Abel responded instantly. Fire, shape, sphere. A huge ball spun with flames flared before him. It stunned Noswell's pathetic attempt. While his opponent did not even manage to shout, Abel had already cast another spell. O Earth, create a form. From the depths of the earth, a huge wall of stone burst out. It intercepted the fireball and rebuilt its form. It loomed over them, turning into a giant stone golem. The golem swung and lowered a colossal stone-leg fist, and Noswell could only stare, frozen by pure horror. He let out a pitiful scream as the fist crashed down on him. Gizzle watched with wide-open eyes. This could hardly be called restraint. Abel calmly stood among the ruins and mocked the opponent. What's wrong? Come at me from anywhere. He saw through Noswell's pathetic attempt to lure him into a trap and make him lower his guard. Nothing would work. Finally, Noswell broke down. Tears ran down his face as he cried out, "Save me, Noswell Sar." Then he finally realized the truth. The whole attack, this magical posturing and empty threat, he was just bluffing. 10 days later, the consequences of that clash had already reshaped the village's economy. The rumor about Abel's superior and affordable incense leaves spread like wildfire. The Carlico family's monopoly collapsed, their prices plummeted sharply, and those they had long oppressed finally broke free from their claws. Noswell approached Abel, trembling, and extended a basket of goods. Abel looked at him without any pity. "Don't break my dad's heart more than you already have," Noswell begged. "Until now they earned money unfairly without working," Abel coldly stated. "I hope from now on they will work diligently and humanely." Frightened, Noswell abruptly jumped up and ran away. Abel looked over his victory. He had already handed over the management of the new ruinous lands of the village's old age, so that the profits would benefit everyone. As for himself, he had already managed to grab a personal fortune from the first sales. He needed enormous luck to finance their next grand project. He immediately began research. He examined his new work, a large, clumsy machine. Everything looks as if it has already been completed. But Emic Door cannot withstand the stress from the volume of magical power required for prolonged operation. It still needs finishing, but it works normally for some time. His main goal was ambitious: to revolutionize the village's agriculture. The produce was expensive because the cultivation was inefficient. He intended to build a tractor. In a broad sense, it is also a totem. It flashed through his mind as he examined his prototype. A totem truck is the first step towards this. Gizzle watched him work, and a smile naturally appeared on her face. After all, the weather is wonderful. There is a thrill in watching him. Abel lay down on the truck's trailer platform. "Is that how it should be? Isn't it time for you to sometimes go have fun with your girls?" She just shook her head. "If I have Nisama, I am satisfied." A thought flashed through Abel's mind. Giselle was already 14. Almost all her time she stayed close to him, communicating with others only when it was absolutely necessary. He understood it shouldn't be like this. If she remains in this state until adulthood, it will become a problem. He needs to talk to his father. That night he found Gario relaxed. "Father, what is this?" asked Gario. "Is it related to your scent leaf?" "No, it's about Gizzle," replied Abel. "I just hope you won't become the second family of Carl Cow." Dad changed the subject. "Oh, so now that you're an adult you want to discuss this?" "Yes, Gizzle will also become an adult in 2 years." "When will the ceremony be?" Abel was confused. Garia looked at him as if it was the most obvious thing in the whole world. "Of course, the ceremony of your and Gizzle's wedding." The words hit Abel as if he was struck with full force. "What?" He awkwardly stopped. Wait. "Why, Gizzle and me, we're brother and sister, blood relatives, right?" Abel's father explained the terrible truth. In the customs of the Marin clan, brother and sister marry as soon as the brother becomes an adult. If they are less than 5 years apart, you should know. The world around Abel seemed to shatter into pieces. What the hell? These words struck Abel like lightning. His head was spinning from the sheer, mad absurdity of what was said. His brother stood before him, and his face showed neither thought nor feeling. "You don't want to?" He asked a simple question, but it carried the weight of an entire culture. Abel was only now beginning to understand this. And Abel's thoughts wildly rushed, trying to digest the terrible revelation. He had always understood marriage as a political and social agreement, as a sacred bond that connects two separate families, forging alliances and the future. But this was something completely different. "What are you talking about?" Abel stammered, and his composure was cracking. His brother answered so matter-of-factly that it sent chills down his spine. "Even I married my younger sister." The confession hit like a physical blow. His brother explained, "It is a basic custom of the Marin clan, a tradition rooted in magical theory. The stronger the bond between the parents, the stronger the magical power of the offspring. That's exactly what he said. He saw deep despair on Abel's face and misinterpreted it. I thought, do you really hate it that much? After all, I thought you always fawned over Gizel. Abel tried to object, but his brother brushed off his feelings, saying it was nothing more than the tenderness of an older brother. Patting him condescendingly on the head, he declared, "You are already an adult of the Marin clan, use that and become one." The next morning, Abel woke up in a cold sweat. The terrible reality of his situation overwhelmed him completely. He knew this village well and his persistent father and thought that they would undoubtedly start preparing a wedding for us. He had to stop it at any cost. The first thought that came to him was about Gizel. He was so absorbed in his magical experiments recreating science from his old world that he neglected the simplest customs of this one. If he, a reincarnator with an adult mind, was completely unaware, then almost certainly Gizel was in the dark too. Abel remembered how another boy, Nuzwell, persistently tried to approach Gizel but was completely ignored every time. Now thinking about it, Abel realized, probably Nuzwell was doing it to spite me. He knew the customs, he knew the prize. In the mind of a skilled strategist, a plan began to form. Brothers and sisters must never marry, he stated firmly. The solution was simple, he and Gizel would show unity. No matter how much Gizel was drawn to me, he was sure she would not like it. Together, they would confront the father and force him to abandon this crazy idea. As soon as he finished working out his strategy, a gentle voice called, "Good morning, Nisama." Gizel froze in place. Everything about her was the embodiment of elegance. Abel's well-crafted plan stuck in his throat. She gently reproached him for late nights. "You didn't sleep all night again. No matter how effective the potions are, I forbid you to overwork yourself." Trying to get back on his feet again, Abel decided to change the subject and revealed his latest work, a magically powered cart. "I literally just finished it a minute ago," he said, hoping to distract her. Gizel's eyes lit up with delight. "Wow, so you really solved the problem. Then when everything is ready, please let me be the first to record it." He explained his update. He replaced the original magical ore from Emik with Letta so that it would last longer. And even before she could continue to rejoice, he raised his hand. "Wait, first this." He needed to finish this quickly. He inhaled, gathering himself. "I have something to tell you, Gizel. You will probably be surprised." He laid out the facts and explained the rumors about their upcoming wedding. Gizel's eyes flashed with shock, but in a moment her face blossomed with pure, perfect happiness. Abel's mind went blank. Gizel shone, "Your coming-of-age ceremony was just yesterday, so I decided that such a thing was still far off, and that you yourself would initiate it." Her eyes flashed with tears of joy. "I am so touched," she blurted out. 10 years ago, my mother told me everything about this. Since then, I have dreamed of this moment to become Nisami's wife." The flashback confirmed his worst fears. Their mother had been preparing Gizel for this fate since childhood. Around Abel, the world seemed to collapse into static noise. His plan was not just wrong, it failed catastrophically. Gizel, completely ignoring her inner turmoil, continued, "I understand that Isama is passionately drawn to magic. So I knew this passion would grow into a strong passion for your future family. I was going to wait for you all this time." She looked at him with such adoration and expectation that Abel felt the weight of a promise that had lasted a whole decade, and that he had never known about. Panic overwhelmed him. He needed an escape according to plan, no excuses. "Here is the place with the book storage, but it still needs a little adjustment and I still have to go to the chiefs no matter what it costs." And meanwhile he began to retreat, babbling some nonsense. "We will still talk about one matter regarding incense leaves. Next time, definitely next time." But he rushed to run away, leaving behind a somewhat puzzled but still radiant Gizel. When he disappeared, she spoke into the empty air, her voice steady and full of calm determination. "As I said, the wedding ceremony will be held in 3 days." She clenched her hands and trembled with excitement. In 3 days, any moment now. Nearby, another woman noticed that Abel seemed to show no interest at all. And his brother just shrugged indifferently. But indifferent, he is easily carried away by this flow anyway. As soon as the ceremony ends, he will settle. The village chief found Abel shortly after, hoping to consult with him about the fields with fragrant leaves. Abel waved off indifferently. His mind was a mess of conflicting thoughts. Can this be postponed a bit? He retreated to the book storage and, collapsing onto a shelf, froze in complete defeat. Here lay the knot of his problem. Memories of a past life in a world with different values and ethics made him an anomaly. In this world, it was believed that the souls of the dead reincarnate into spirits, a comforting cycle of existence. But he was living proof that this belief was false. He was a soul from another universe. For years, he avoided confronting these cultural differences, choosing the quiet life of a researcher. But procrastination led him into a situation from which there was no escape. But what troubled him most was not life itself. It was for Giselle's sake. All her life she had nurtured the belief that this was her destiny. She was a polar introvert, a magical bookish mouse closed off in herself. If this marriage agreement went further, then most likely she would never again be able to form truly meaningful relationships with anyone. And in the long run, this would turn into a truly terrible lonely doom. The burden of her future lay on him like a heavy slab. Suddenly, a heavy scroll fell from the top shelf. It hit him on the head with a dull thud. Unrolling it, he stared wide-eyed. It was a map of lands beyond the village. At that moment, a new desperate plan crystallized in his mind. Eyes that a moment ago were clouded with despair now burned with cold determination. Yes, I will leave the village. The logic was ironclad. If he disappeared, his parents would be forced to give up and retreat from the marriage. His illness, left without him, would have no choice. It would have to interact with other people. To find his own path, he began gathering the necessary books and talismans and would flee tonight. The chief noticed him from the balcony. Hold on and don't return those things. Abel, embarrassed but determined, said a clipped all right and rushed forward again. His escape was almost thwarted when he ran into Philo. Abel, congratulations on the marriage. The news was already spreading around the world. How did you find out about this? He was low-pointed. I saw your father walking around telling everyone. Of course, his father was boxing him in, keeping him in a cage, using social pressure as bars. He had to leave now. Tylo, you covered me so many times, thank you for that, he shouted and ran away. Philo watched him leave completely confused. No need to say it as if this is our last farewell end. He got home and immediately started the first phase of his plan. I plan to do research, so please don't enter my room, he said to his brother, covering it with words about fragrant leaves. His brother sighed heavily, as if saying petty libertine, and waved him off, leaving him to his own devices. From the darkness, Gizel watched him with her gaze, and her determination did not waver. If he wants to lock himself in, I'll just continue preparing for the ceremony. In his room, Abel blocked the door with heavy books, pressing them in piles and securely barricading the exit. A nod appeared. It was Gizel offering to bring him something to eat. But no, it's okay, I already ate at the chief's. He lied. His heart was pounding in his chest. Her voice was filled with concern. Please don't lose strength and don't collapse from exhaustion halfway. He forced himself to speak calmly. All right, sorry to bother you. When her footsteps faded, he sat by the door and let out a trembling breath. In the dim candlelight, he wrote a simple note, the last message to break off the relationship. I will leave as soon as I hear that Gizel got married, or until I get married myself. For now, goodbye. Having prepared for the end, he turned on his faithful totems, preloaded with supplies. He slipped out of the fortified room and passed through the silent house. Standing just by the door, he looked back at his home one last time. A sudden nostalgia overwhelmed him like a wave. Once I used to climb out like this. This will be the last time, so hold on. He ran to the fence where he had hidden his new invention. From the quiet command, the launch starts, the totem truck hums, comes to life. When the cart rolled away into the darkness, he was pierced by a sharp pang of conscience. Gizel. He knew the law. People from the Marin clan were forbidden to leave the village without the chief's permission. The punishment was unconditional. Whoever broke the rules could not return. It was exile. One tear traced a path down his cheek as he imagined a future where he could only watch her from afar. After traveling all night, he woke up yawning just as the sun began to rise. Glancing at the map, he drew his route. His goal was Lamarn, a bustling trading city. Here was the best place to disappear, the center of news and exotic magical instruments that were not found in his isolated village. The thought of new knowledge, new magic, and new life ignited in him a wave of sincere delight. Suddenly the cart jerked and dashed forward in a bloody stop, throwing him ahead. Ouch. Returning to the village, he heard his father's roar, full of rage, echoing throughout their house. Yes, it was Abel. He stood in the boy's empty room, an abandoned letter, as proof of his son's betrayal, and thought that he would simply run away. His brother suggested that it might just be a test of the new totem. But Gizel Kalman calmly and quietly dismissed the idea of raising an alarm. I think everything will be fine, she said, and there was a quiet confidence in her voice. Her hand clenched the letter so tightly that it crumbled and fell apart in her fingers. A cold, calm smile touched her lips and a creepy glow flashed in her eyes. I believe in Nisamu. Smiling from a distance, Abel froze in shock and stared at the cause of his sudden stop. He was allowed with polite indulgence to travel in the luggage compartment, a small price for guaranteed rescue. The chariot rumbles along the road, carrying him away from the village he so desperately wanted to leave. People he just met come to mind, those eyes and that hair, distinctive features. The young man James explains his situation. What are you doing here at the edge? We couldn't understand each other and I ran away from home. Abel notes the details that make you part of the Marin clan. The girl Maya throws in her line and immediately does the same as I do. Surprise from Fane, really? I thought you were a traveling couple. Maya explains, James came to her village to trade and in the end took her with him. James clarifies, they met only a week ago just like I did. Abel sighs mockingly saying, yes it's allowed. Your reasoning was also due to customs you cannot get used to. James exposes the truth about his companion. Maya is from the Doom clan, and apparently, the fact that there is no magical crystal on her forehead is a problem. Maya touches her head and explains the special features of her people, 2 horns and a crystal embedded in the forehead. Hers is lost, her mother fell during pregnancy. She says, can peel off like a crust, but when it disappears, it does not grow back. The contempt came not only from outsiders. Even her own mother was ashamed of having given birth to her and met her with indifference. Maya takes out a jangling pouch of coins. Maya left and took this with her, her mother's secret savings. James shudders in shock, but Abel immediately understands everything. It was not stolen, it was taken as reparations for a lifetime of abuse. Maya declares, and a new hope appears in her voice. From now on, Maya will joyfully discover the wide world together with James Sen. As they move forward, Abel notices something in the forest ahead. A guttural roar cuts through the air, and 3 monsters emerge from the trees: crystalline, spiked wolves, Garma variant of hounds, and Mia screams in horror. Abel reproduces an excerpt from a book about magical organisms. They are a type of beast class that appears as a result of a convergence of magical power. Their appearance comes suddenly like a natural disaster that is difficult to predict. The lead hound emits a terrible growl while Mayus shouts at his driver, James San, faster please. Abel knows, near his village, the most dangerous beast one can encounter is a bear. Such creatures are a threat of rank D or higher. James shouts, it doesn't matter, we need to get out of here, away from them. Throw all the cargo off the wagon, if we're lucky, it will attract their attention. But the beasts are already gathering. James turns to Abel, despair in his eyes. Right, Abel-san, you are from the Marin clan. Yes, you can do magic, right? Abel replies with calm, collected confidence. A small amount, yes. Enough to scare them, and that will be enough. Use all you can. They will become a problem for other travelers if we don't exterminate them or capture them. No. Abel raises his wand and his face shows nothing, as if it no longer matters. Please, faster. James presses forward, uttering a simple spell. Oh, earth, take shape and form, and Abel reveals his power. The ground itself splits open. A colossal earth fist, tens of feet high, strikes the charging cobras and instantly crushes them to dust. The shockwave from the impact cuts through the air and rolls onward in waves. James and Maya freeze in stunned silence, looking at the golem that Abel created. Turning to them, he stood amid the ruins. His display of power had just destroyed everything around. Abel asks, do you think this is enough? James can only whisper one word, mad. That evening, the group sets up camp by the river, and the golem silently stands nearby on guard. Abel's spell not only protected them, but also gave them a source of fresh fish for dinner. The next day, their journey continues. The mood becomes noticeably lighter. Looking out from the hill, James points forward. Now you see it. Well, that's it, Lamarns. A horse-drawn carriage approaches the gates of the sprawling stone fortress city. Suddenly, James announces that they need to part ways here. Maya is stunned by this. Abel calmly lays out the logic. But nothing can be done, right? And I doubt that either of us could be useful to the affairs of a street trader. James thanks Abel for the help and admits that without him, it would have been very bad. Maya, still embarrassed, suddenly extends her bag of coins to James and declares that she will buy all his wheat so that he has no work left. His impulsive gesture leaves James speechless. Maya quickly turns back to Abel and grabs his hand. Abel won't leave, right? Her eyes shine with academic curiosity. Wait, you haven't taught me advanced methods of totem carving yet. Maya really wants to learn more about magic. Abel simply agrees. It can be more useful with a partner, and here he knows no one. Then she leans closer, smiling conspiratorially, and raises her savings. So yes, right, take this, maybe you'll need it. If you want anything at all, Maya will buy it. The city was a whole world compared to that quiet village he left behind. A spacious metropolis teeming with life and noise. As they made their way through the noisy streets, Maya's eyes lit up. She saw a merchant's cart piled high with bright red apples. Abel's attention was fixed on a more specific target, a cozy establishment called Chimera's Tale, a shop trading magical and alchemical instruments. His gaze immediately bypassed the shelves with enchanted trinkets and rare reagents and stopped at a large, unremarkable block of wood standing in the corner. The saleswoman, a woman with the expressive posture of a true sorceress, noticed his keen focus. Wow, a customer with a keen eye, she said. It's been here for a long time, but you are the first to be interested in it, even before anything else. What is this? Asked Abel, and he already began to feel a tingling from the immense power hidden here. The witch smiled. It is not a trunk, it is a branch. She told of its origin. A legendary tree in the very heart of the forest, teeming with such mighty magic, it gave birth to many fierce beasts. Once, a famous group of 4 heroes burst in to summon monsters. Only one returned from there. The survivor, after a harrowing flight, having lost all his legendary gear, still escaped, keeping only one branch and then sold it for an astounding amount of money. Abel felt it a whole stream of magical energy, so boundless that it spilled out despite the powerful barrier restraining it. His mind wildly considered options. With this, he could create a totem of incredible power. "So these are the magical instruments in your homeland?" the witch asked, enchanted. "In that case," she added, taking out a small sealed vial. "Unicorn blood." She explained that it was a byproduct of a monster's panic, a catastrophic event during which herds of unicorns appeared. Their origin is a complete mystery. In Abel's mind, the gears turned at lightning speed, the branch combined with the blood, and together they formed the perfect core for his craft. He could create a masterpiece without a single flaw. The saleswoman named the price 2,100,000 gold. The number was a shock. Abel's own resources, valuable incense left from his homeland, were considered worthless here in the kingdom of Lamarn. In fact, he was completely and utterly penniless. Just as the weight of his financial problems began to settle, a heavy pouch fell onto the counter with a thud. Maya, with a determined face, offered to pay the entire amount. "If it's that much, you will already be able to save yourself from the excess," she declared. "And what about exchanging all this for what is standing here?" Abel froze, trying to dissuade her from such incredible generosity, but Maya was relentless. The witch, sensing a grand discount, immediately sealed the deal. "All right for you, I'll do it for 2,050,000. Maya rationalized the purchase. It instantly became clear: the chance to buy a piece of the world tree is a once-in-a-lifetime event. She was already celebrating, dreaming about the comfortable conditions that the rest of the money would allow them. Returning to his room, Abel sat before the branch of the world tree and was already calculating the next move. The witch's parting words echoed in his thoughts. She had bet that he could exponentially increase the value of the branch and promised to buy back the finished product for twice or even 3 times as much. It was more than a purchase, it was a contract. With this one act, he would create the greatest totem in the world, restore Maya's trust, and secure his future. He had to repay the debts. After a night of exhausting, focused work, everything was completed. Abel lifted the finished totem, a masterpiece of the craft of curses, pulsating with uncontrollable power. With it, he could achieve almost anything. But the colossal effort took its toll. He collapsed from sheer exhaustion and needed a potion to avoid losing consciousness. Maya rushed to him when he lost consciousness, sobbing and calling his name. His thoughts blurred, and suddenly he was no longer in the tavern, but within the familiar walls of his old warehouse shed, among his former creations. Memories of his escape returned in a wave. A broken truck driver on the road to Lamarn, and suddenly it sharply twisted into a sensation as if he was shackled. He woke up in bed, seeing Gizzle. She apologized for shackling him, insisting she did it so he wouldn't cause any more reckless acts. "Don't behave so dangerously anymore, please," she said, maintaining a calm smile. With growing horror, he realized she misunderstood his escape, confusing it with one of his most explosive experiments. And that could not be true. She brought him a bowl of stew, explaining that it was a tradition of the Marin clan. He remembered the letter he left behind and the chilling fact: Gizzle was the only other person capable of stopping his truck. The terrible truth clicked and everything fell into place. This dish a trap, eating it meant giving up freedom forever. In the haze of his feverish dream, he apologized for leaving without saying a word. He tried to explain himself so she would understand. His way of thinking is fundamentally different from theirs. To his shock, she seemed to accept his words. "I understand, Niyasama." She pushed the food aside but insisted that he drink some water. Believing that she understood everything, he agreed. Her sweet smile returned. Isama is just confused by everything that is happening, right? And then the final betrayal. A flash of steel and a sharp burning pain as she plunged the knife into him. He choked on agony, and she calmly recited a closing spell, sealing the wound but trapping all the damage inside. He screamed not from pain, but from the icy realization that followed. His tongue goes numb, the water was poisoned. "It's okay, Nisama," she whispered, and there was not a drop of pity in her voice. "Even if you will never be able to walk again, I will always be by your side to take care of you." When paralysis crept up his leg, he desperately tried to summon magic to withstand this terrible sentence, but a familiar voice called his name. Abel's eyes snapped open. He was back in the race, and Maya was looking down at him, anxiety in her eyes. The entire room, walls, floor, and ceiling were covered with an elaborate, incredibly complex magical circle pulsing with a threatening light. He was still lying in bed, drenched in cold sweat. And he stared at the glowing runes. "I did this." The scale of his own power was terrifying. This subconsciously created creature was a weapon of the end of the world, a curse theoretically capable of destroying anything. My own talent is dreadful, he whispered, struck by horror. What dream did you have? Maya asked, and he spoke the truth before he could stop himself. I had a very terrible dream. It seems I did it unconsciously. I almost wiped out this entire region. He quickly recoiled, insisting he did not remember the details. Maya noted with relief. His temperature had finally dropped. He slept for a day and a half. He thanked her for taking care of him, and she beamed. Abel glanced at the totem. A new plan was already forming in his mind. Sell it and they would hit the jackpot. Maya gloomily lowered her gaze at the thought. You don't want to sell it, do you? Abel said. She admitted she did not want to and reminded him it was a gift. He thought it over once more, but in the end, they still needed to cover expenses. Maya suggested an alternative adventure support center. It was an organization where you could exchange killed magical beasts for currency. With Abel's power, it would be the perfect option. He agreed that it was a sound strategy. Returning to Marin Village, the consequences of Abel's departure were already unfolding. A search party sent by the chief came across his abandoned truck. Seeing the engraving, they realized it was his, and the search was stopped. Deciding he had simply run away, Giselle locked herself in her room and sank into deep despair. Her family watched anxiously, whispering about her depression. She froze by the window, consumed by one question: why didn't he return? In a fit of despair, she struck the table with her fist. That night, a strange, shadowy creature floated to her window and brought the news. I found a way. So that you could win that boy. And in the shadow, a figure with a terrifyingly familiar silhouette extended a path to her to reclaim what she had lost. In the bustle of the Abel Adventure Support Center, Abel shifts his gaze to his companion Maya. He speaks in a steady voice. Can you use magic or something like that? Maya paused for a moment. If it's about fighting magical beasts. Abel observes her discomfort as well as how she looks away. It seems any talk about her clan is a too sensitive topic. He guesses correctly. She had previously tried to use her abilities around them but instead met with judgment. Not wanting to press, he shifts attention further. Next turn. At the counter, Abel addresses the receptionist politely and clearly. Thank you, we came from the village, so please start by explaining what this organization does. He already understood the basics, but for a true master there are no small things. No detail is insignificant. He will start from the very beginning. The process goes quickly, and in a moment he holds a freshly issued adventure card, or ID. In the name field, not his own but the pseudonym Mountain is written. Maya looks at him puzzled. Why did you register under that name? Abel just shrugs indifferently. It was an impulse. Seems like there will be no problem. Orientation continues. It outlines the main principles of the Adventurer Support Center: magic beast extermination, general support for adventurers, and the search and discovery of new talent. The value of a traveler is measured by a simple ranking, a merit pyramid from F to A, and higher ranks can only be achieved through extraordinary deeds than even monarchs themselves grant privileges. Abel glanced down at the lowest rank. F. He had no interest in climbing that rung. Reputation and responsibility shackled him like a cage he had no intention of entering. Maya stared at the name on the card and her eyes widened with recognition. Patron, my patron is Mr. Gora. Her voice trembles with admiration and respect as she recounts this story. He saved me when magical beasts swarmed at me. If things had continued as they were, I would have died. In the blink of an eye, he turned all the magical beasts around me to ashes. Then he fully healed me when I was already on the brink of death. Abel's expression remains impassive, but a memory from his previous world flashes through his mind. How he sat at the computer, and his character Mountain effortlessly cleared a whole crowd of monsters near another player. He was then talking about an online game, but Maya, unaware of this truth, sees only a legend. Wow, she exclaims, clutching the card tightly as if it were a sacred relic, because everyone from the Marin clan is so strong. Her excitement quickly derails the conversation, saying, we have already finished registration. So shall we make plans for after this? Before they could grasp a decision, a loud voice cuts through the silence in the hall. I've been thinking about this for a long time. Maizen, we disagree. The mischievous traveler with blonde hair turns sharply, apologizes. No, I also went too far, I apologize. But his party members are resolute. As soon as I apologize, let's make peace, he pleads. But the woman named Tio replies, if Tio leaves, then I will leave too. The dispute suddenly changes course. Two former party members, Lisa and Tio, confess their feelings to each other and decide to leave together. Maya watches the dramatic scene unfold with full rapt attention. Abel glanced at her. That's where you should be directing your gaze. He sighs inwardly, don't look at Maya like that, better not get involved. The neglected party leader Maizen now notices them. And what are you doing back there behind our backs? He shouts and strides toward them. Weren't you too worried before about where to go hunting? Oh, so you are mages, he impatiently smirks with his eyes. I really need magical comrades. I'm the party leader, so why don't you join me in the party? Abel answers simply with one word, all right. One prevented the mines from exploding and bent down, acting as if it were not a conspiracy. And I also have a very valuable hunting spot. So if you come with me, I'll even cover the travel expenses. However, despite the dubiousness of the offer, it was interesting enough. In a moment they are already in a covered wagon, rushing through the dense forest. Abel finally asks, where is your very valuable hunting spot? Mason explains, the Zesham ruins are being destroyed, but hunting in the forest seems more effective. Recently, it seems several barriers were removed at once. An investigation was conducted in those ruins. He got involved because after the barriers were opened, magical beasts entered there. He continues the history lesson as soon as the ancient structure appears in the frame, and right here we skillfully immerse ourselves in the ruins and declare its treasures. The ruins were once a fortress of the Norks clan, a people without any defining magical traits, who were expelled by elves from the sky country of Alfheim centuries ago. Abel, having obtained a map from historical documents, cuts straight to the point. The treasure is the legendary secret wealth of the elves. The arrow of God, right? But most likely it should be another one. Miz understands and nods, even with enthusiasm. Add this to the walk on the spot arranged by magical beasts in the ruins, those that will be hunted. Essentially, two birds with one stone. And the magical stones that support the barriers protecting the ruins must be worth a lot, right? So Maya, listening to the plan, she considers it flawless. That is, there is nothing to worry about. Mason puffs out his chest with undeserved confidence. I'm almost an E-rank adventurer and the leader of this party. Isn't that wonderful? He lays out the money. Abel, sitting opposite, watches everything indifferently. They arrive and their path is already blocked. He lies, stumbles, and does not believe, although those ruins were right before his eyes. Late that evening, by the campfire, he boils. Cursed investigative team. Even if you have the support of some lord, that does not give you the right to be so arrogant. The guard stood firm. Strangers are forbidden entry. Get out of this place. Abel, however, saw the truth of the situation with perfect clarity. Probably the information has not yet reached the support center. A lord who has the power to keep a secret treasure to himself will never give it to someone else. However, we have already come this far, so let's wait until the sun rises. If the ruins are visible from afar, probably everyone will be satisfied. Mise and subsidence. Do you intend to give up? Yeah, I mean it's impossible. They keep that place under such strict control. But his determination flares back. Adventure and trouble go hand in hand. If you wait with fierce patience, they will show a glimpse for. A piercing whistle screech breaks his moment again and again. A magical creature, me asks fearfully. Misen instantly jumps up from his place, the perfect moment. He draws his sword with a graceful whirl. I am trembling from being forced to sit and wait. I'll show them what the sword skills of an almost E-rank adventurer can do. Attack however you want. Abel warns him against this. Oh, calm down, there's no point in revealing our position. But it's already too late. Suddenly a huge beast with white fur bursts out from under the bushes. A breath held back by fear was heard. Misen rushed forward, meeting the creature's claws with his blade. He parries the blow and manages to land his own diagonal slash. Laughing, heh, that's elementary. A wounded animal staggers backward and lets out a deafening, piercing scream. It was not a scream of pain, a signal. From the shadows come out three more of the same beasts. Their eyes burn in the firelight. Mazen's courage melts. Damn. Paralyzed with fear, he drops his sword. Then instinct kicks in. While I distract them, you run, he shouts, turns around and tries to flee for his own life. The animals close in closer to the frightened traveler. Abel calmly steps forward and raises his wand. So it's good that you are so motivated, but... In a quiet, almost bored tone, he utters a spell. Oh, fire, burn to ashes. From his place bursts a wave of flames. It covers the monsters that rushed forward, and... The shockwave lashes the mice and throws them to the ground, along with what is rolling and tumbling. He suddenly rises to his feet and, not believing his eyes, stares at what is happening. The fire disappears as quickly as it appeared, leaving behind only smoldering, decapitated corpses of magical beasts. Abel lowers his magic wand, his face unchanged, while Mazen trembles and kneels before him. Thank you. Humiliated and shaken to trembling, he makes a desperate offer. Position Lilith Bleeder. Once and Abel didn't even glance at him. But no, if you like it so much, here you go. Three of them stand in the silence of the now safe glade. But they were not alone in the deep shadows of the forest. Darkness hid them. A vigilant elf with a stern face watched them closely. His eyes narrowed as soon as he noticed the details of the young mage, white hair and also red eyes, strange magical circles. He instantly recognizes these signs. A conclusion flashes in his mind with chilling certainty. That boy is probably from Marin. The sullen elf with the stone face looked at the young mage before him. His eyes were sharp and scrutinizing. The boy's companions looked confused. One of them whispered elf they. But the elf's gaze was fixed not on the boy's face, but on the simple wooden staff in his hand. It is a spear designed to enhance magical control and attract spirits. The elf's voice trembled with disbelief. This is completely beyond ordinary theory. Why? How? Cyrus himself froze. The stranger saw the hidden properties of the spear at a glance. I use it exactly as an experiment, Kyre replied. His voice was steady with no hint of intimidation. The elf's face sharpened slightly. Oh, you are too confident. Just then, a group of armed men burst out of the trees in a whirlwind. Relief flooded their faces as soon as they saw the elf. Abel hates Sama, we humbly ask that you return with us. The elf turned to them, his authority was obvious. I am able to conceal myself from the elf kin. To study the history of my people, I examine these ruins. Then he again shifted his gaze to Kyre's banquet. If you help me with the research, if you obtain results, I will allow you to accompany me. I will definitely speak to the Lord about a reward. The guards began negotiating among themselves, and one of them looked at Cyrus with new respect. Abel hides Sama, this mage turns out to be more useful than that Wagner. The next day the company stood before the entrance to the ancient structure. Abelheid turned to Kyra in her gaze a direct question. The one who broke the barrier, was it you? Right. He did not wait for an answer. Yes, it's true. After many long years of investigations, I finally managed to remove the outer barrier. That's why I sought cooperation with the regional lord. Cyrus processed this new information instantly, so Abelheid worked independently, involving the local lord only when he encountered a wall he could not overcome alone. A thoughtful political move. These ruins, Abelheid continued, are built from strange ore. I believe this is a work of alchemy, not something that fell from the sky or grew from the land of this country. Cyrus's mind raced wildly. Could this ore be a hint at the spread of light over the seals here? Abelheid's gaze narrowed, eyes fixed, piercing and cold. I have no intention of adapting to any of your independent interests. Cyrus felt a chill. The elf seemed to see through his attempt to squeeze out a little more information. Don't forget who hired you. Not at all, I had no such intentions. Cyrus replied quickly. Abelheid just glanced and simply roared, your guard is strong, boy. One of the other travelers whispered to Cyrus. This is the first time I've seen Abelheid Sama grimace like this. He is too gloomy, he won't even deign to look at us. Cyrus could only think, my god. In the ruins, some arrogant mage in luxurious robes was shouting at full volume. I don't understand the ideas of the great elf herself. He just wanders back and forth, not even touching the magical formulas. Now he drags some brat from who knows where, and making him follow him is already exhausting me. The man puffed out his chest. To remove such a type of seal, you need to check many times and steadily, step by step, build progress, you understand. He turned to the group with a superior, disgusting grimace. However, there is no point in checking magical formulas on the walls. Right. There must be a large magical formula that serves as a basis somewhere. Cyrus said this directly, cutting off the man's notations. Therefore, analyzing this will not help to dissipate any barriers. The respectable mage spat from tension and blushed so much that his face turned red. How can you just assume that? From what I have already seen, the seals on the barrier locks are the same as in the Pig Clan barrier. Cyrus continued speaking in an academic tone. The only difference is how the surface looks. Abelheid nodded in approval. Good that you noticed that. Another mage could not utter a word. He could only clench his fist in silent rage, thinking that this upstart was just an inept sorcerer who could not catch up. It seems it was right to bring you here. Abelheid said to Cyrus with a subtle smile, and he felt how the flash of anger in the man's gaze burned his back. Soon they found themselves in a huge hall, above which stood a massive stone monument. I think the purpose of this stone statue is to amplify the essence of the seal, noted Cyrus. Abelheid agreed. You could say this is the heart of the magical formula. Cyrus approached the shimmering barrier, blocking the way forward, and ran his fingers over its intricate patterns. This is a multi-frame barriera puzzle of several barriers, composed of partially overlapping objects of different nature. The guard asked, is this four-layered? They say two-layered ones are almost never found. Cyrus shook his head. No, this is a fake. For one of them, I cannot find how it interacts with the others. Abelheid was deeply impressed and took out a tablet. Here are my notes from all the research I have conducted. Cyrus's gaze sharply widened when he saw the complex abbreviated formulas. Now an exchange of ideas of pure magical theory was unfolding between them at the highest level. The others could only watch completely bewildered. A frontal assault to remove this seems excessive. Kiris pondered, his hand hovering over the flickering energy glow. It's quite troublesome. It's better not to destroy it with magic, right? Abelheid asked wryly. Ha, what a petty joke. Magic that could directly shatter this statue would require a colossal amount of magical power. Callias nodded, closing his eyes, and thought, "It was obvious if you mindlessly and boldly destroy these ruins, the reward will fall. I want them to remain completely intact." He looked up at the majestic seal. So intricate two hats behind it, there must be an incredible treasure. Suddenly, a screech sounded from behind. The large stone doors they had just entered through were opening and a pack of monsters emerged, fierce, growling goblin dogs. An entire army poured into the chamber, their crude weapons raised high. "Wow, who are these guys?" one of the guards shouted. "They probably hid in the forest and waited for the right moment to attack us." The chubby mage began to panic. "Damn, we need to clear a path. Use that entrance, let's see what's there." He pointed at the guards but said, "You all say I should run alone," one of them replied with disgust in his voice. The timid mage then sharply turned to Cyrus. "Oh, so who will be my escort? How did this old man become a mage under the Lord?" But a figure calmly stood between them and the crowd. It was Abelhade. "Move," he ordered, and magical circles were already glowing around his hand. "I will make you regret coming here." A scorching strip of energy shot forward and cut the goblin in half. "Follow my lead," Abelhade growled at the guards. "If we have their numbers, they will run." His strength was colossal and his leadership unquestionable. Against the backdrop of chaos, Cyrus observed the battle with cold calculation. He suddenly shouted to the adventurers, "Excuse me, can you catch 3 goblin tricksters for me? Alive." Abelhite looked around, surprised. "Only 3? Cyrus's eyes flashed with a spark of genius. "Maybe I can use them to dissolve the seal." The elf immediately understood the plan was so audacious, so brilliant, that only he could make it work. "A trivial matter," he declared, and from his fingers a powerful spell mood began to form again. After 20 minutes, the fight ended. The guards were gasping from exhaustion, surrounding the fallen, and before Kier lay 3 hobgoblins tied and unconscious. "I paralyzed them with magic," he explained to the worried Maya. "They will not move for about 92 days. Then he laid out his impressive hypothesis. To break this seal, magical power of a specific magical beast is needed. First, it is necessary to accurately determine which one, and this will take time, especially for a seal that is already 2,000 years old. Moreover, there is a chance that this magical beast is already extinct." He paused for effect. "Therefore," he stated, "I thought I could transform magical power to these guys as a substitute." He began explaining the principles of biomagic, using the mage's power to rewrite the biology of a creature, turning the goblin's own magic-producing organs into a source of power that generates the exact magical frequency required by the griffin statue. Abelhite froze, completely stunned. I concluded that the magic of a magical creature was needed, but I did not take your idea into account." "My idea, thanks to your notes, Abelhite-san," Cyrus said humbly. "And it's still not a fact that it will work. First, we need to change the organic composition of the gobgoblin, and for that, we need magical stones." The man showed a heavy sack, and Cyrus even gasped in amazement. Inside lay magical stones of king-grade level. Half of them were given by the Lord, however, Abelhade clarified. Cyrus held a large glowing rock-a-hot, almost crazy smile spread across his face. "And from all this I feel we must not lose." Maya looked worried. "You're not doing anything crazy, right? If you can't endure bloody cruelty, look away." The ritual began. Goblin schlepakis started convulsing and mutating, their bodies twisted into unnatural forms. The process was extremely disturbing. The guards froze in horror. "Such miserable goblins, mages are dangerous." "It's a demon," someone whispered, turning pale, and just a minute ago they were simply cutting them. Finally, the grotesque transformation subsided. "This must work," Cyrus announced, and his voice echoed in the silence of the hall. He returned to Abelhead. "The rest is up to you," the elf nodded. This time Cyrus stepped forward and a new huge magical circle appeared, assimilate. The circle enveloped 3 transformed goblins, connecting their new magical signatures with the ancient statue. It worked. The creatures began to tremble wildly. As energy was being sucked from them, a strange haze swirled around. "Looks great, it responds," Cyrus exclaimed. He began shouting encouragement to the goblins, calling them new names he had given them. "You can do it, just don't die, understood?" With a final deafening groan, the massive stone doors in front of the statue slid aside. The barrier was gone. The guards burst into applause. "We did it. This is a historic moment. Now we can go deeper." Maybe he felt the trembling. A tiny pebble shifted across the floor. Something was shaking. Abelhead's gaze darted to the griffin statue. Now it was cracked. The statue shattered into fragments from an explosion of dark energy, and from the dust rose a monstrous shadow. An ancient, angry voice echoed in the chamber. "Damn annoying elves." The creature fully broke free. "Its power is suffocating. You did well to lock up a king like me for 2,000 years." He spread his claws, his eyes flared with predatory hunger. Each of you will become a victim for me. The great griffin, a creature of myths and legends, spoke with the voice of a fallen monarch. You did well to lock up a king like me for 2,000 years. Its form was a distorted, grotesque parody of a once noble appearance. Its eyes burned with ancient hatred. Each of you will become a victim to me. Abel's eyes widened sharply, not from fear, but from tactical reassessment. The power emanating from this monster was beyond any ordinary beasts. While his companion lamented the lost chance to tame the goblins, Alathe, a reserved elf, identified the real threat. With the calm of an experienced commander, Alhaid gave the order. Everyone use our numerical advantage and surround him. He raised his hand and chanted a simple binding spell. Here comes the light binder. Chains of pure energy wrapped around the griffin's leg, but the creature shattered them with a single contemptuous stomp. The shockwaves scattered the other travelers across the field. Alhaid's gaze fell on Abel. Attack his wings, he commanded. The boy's jaw clenched and rage flared. How dare you give me orders after what you did to the Gabu brothers? But knowing the guardian was the key, he began the spell. A complex magical circle flared and spun around his hand. O wind, become a blade. The griffin turned its ancient, intelligent eyes on him. Abel froze. The creature spoke in spirit, Ni's the language of the spirits themselves. The guardian mocked him. Do you think that by using wind magic against me, you will achieve a result? A terrible realization overwhelmed Abel. He broke the seal and released the spell anyway. He knew only chosen magical beasts and high-ranking demons could understand spirit Ni's. For a creature to acquire this ability, it had to be deeply subjected to the influence of spirits, a process that granted it enormous resistance to the corresponding magical element. Griffins were by their nature bound to the spirits of the wind, so they were almost invulnerable to attacks relying on wind. Abel watched as his carefully crafted wind blades scattered into dust and vainly extinguished against the creature's feathers. The griffin let out a victorious cry, but the victory was cut short mid-word. A huge pike burst from the ground, piercing the beast from below. Abel froze, stunned by the sudden turn of events. It was Alhaid who seized the initiative. Now he growled. Courage returned to the travelers, and they rushed at the wounded guardian. When everything quickly came to an end, Mayer noted that Abel's power made the legendary beast significantly less formidable. But Abel did not look at the fallen griffin, looked at Alhaid. Her cold, measured gaze stubbornly met his, and this silent duel held a challenge without words. Later, before the sealed stone wall, Abel simply said the word, open. He pressed his palm against the rock and its surface flashed with light, and the imagined curse spread out in a circle of light. The doorway flashed and appeared where just a moment ago there was a solid stone wall. Like ruins, a closed window has just opened. Alhaid said this, and his voice sounded for the first time with a new, sharpened strength. He intently gazed at Abel with sharp, analytical eyes, probing the depth of the boy's strength. Other adventurers, blinded by greed, rushed to the new passenger racing to grab the treasures inside. Their advance was stopped by a sudden noise. A stream of monsters, rat-like creatures called suifis, flooded the corridor, their movement driven by the scent of magic. The fencer from the party grinned in a smile, reveled in the challenge, as he drew his blade to face the pack. 30 minutes later the fight ended, but the party remained exhausted and drained. When someone suggested turning around and returning during the day, Alhaid's response was icy. Weakness. Only when Abel's companion calmly suggested organizing the area to rest did the elf finally give in. Abel also felt the pressure. His endurance was almost exhausted, even though his magical reserves were still deep. I will hide what they declared. They will set up camp. Tomorrow we will resume the investigation. That night by the campfire, Alhaid happened to see Abel leaning over ancient texts. Are you okay not sleeping? He asked. Abel explained that he had rested earlier, and now was using a homemade elixir to maintain concentration. Il's eyes narrowed as he examined the vial. Better not to show this in front of people. The elf's tone became stern. Under normal circumstances, brewing amazing healing herbs is forbidden in any country. Moreover, the biomagic you used to dissolve the barrier. Abel was stunned. It seems your homeland turned out to be quite unusual to allow its use. Abel had never thought about the laws of the outside world. Alhaid offered to take responsibility for him, a gesture that was both a shield and shackles. I am grateful for your kindness, Abel said cautiously. When the appearance of camaraderie was established, Alhaid revealed part of his own story. I have been searching for the ruins of Zesham for 300 years, but one thing slipped in my analysis. I have delayed this for many years. I have no descendants to whom I could entrust my goal. Then a sharp question sounded. What made you join such a company? He pushed away Abel's companions like an annoying trifle, like a burden. Abel gave a carefully thought-out answer. He explained that he relied on them on the road and with supplies simple give-take relations. Alhide accepted the answer and they said goodnight to each other. When the old elf left, Abel's expression sharpened. He knew he was being tested, evaluated for some greater purpose. I hope you are capable of great deeds, Abel, the elf said. Abel realized the weight of these words and mentally understood that. The next day they entered the treasure hall. The team froze at the sight magical stones of royal quality, artifacts of colossal power and value. Even Abel was impressed by the wealth of the ancient elves. But Alhide passed by the mountain of riches and did not look once. Abel looked at him enchanted and noticed. He did not move at all, although such a spectacle was before him. In these actions there was a purpose that went far beyond simple greed. I reached the next sealed doorway and opened it with a single simple word. Beyond it stood a silent army of stone golems, guards frozen in time. Alhide strode through their ranks as if they were not there. A thin victorious smile barely trembles on his lips. He finally stopped at the threshold of the huge dark hall. Finally, I have reached this place, he whispered. Now he began the spell Fire Form Sphere. Immediately Abel became alert. He recognized the powerful spell and rushed to stop it, but was too late. A gigantic explosion thundered, scattering the not yet ready adventurers backward. He raised his gaze, his eyes burned with power. A magical circle flared and spun on his palm. As expected, you are something incredible. You can cancel my magical formula even among the high elves. There is no one who could do this. Next to them, the eyes of the stone golems began to flare eerily. The true nature of Alhaith was finally revealed. The arrow of God, he said, arrogantly and solemnly, is too much for the hands of Norks. And this, he added, belongs to me. He looked directly at Abel and the plan finally unfolded. And I am a descendant of Zesham. Abel froze and fragments of forgotten history clicked in his memory more and more precisely with eerie clarity. Descends from the line of Zesham. Before him stood Abel Hayden, ancient elf. And on her sides, silent, majestic figures of clay golems restrained her. And indeed, Abel Jade confirmed with his voice heavy as the burden of millennia. We in Zesham lost our crusade and were driven from home in Sky Country. He touched his own exhausted, weathered face. Here below, the magical powers of the moon barely reach the surface. Our thread with it weakens, bodies become more fragile, and our people can no longer continue the lineage. Abel immediately realized the accelerated aging and despair. But I could not renounce my ancestors, Abel Hayden said. His eyes blazed with cold fire. So they built this fortress, a fortress from which the Norks oppressed the lands. He spread his arms, embracing the grand, terrible scale of his design. All this is a weapon created so that the country in the sky would fall, so that we Zesham could once again take our rightful throne. Mizan twitched with disbelief, but the story says, elves were persecuted by the Norks. Maya corrected him, her voice barely trembled. This is the complete opposite of the legend we know. But Abel still saw the truth. Zesham are probably elves who were forced to descend to the earth 2,000 years ago after a religious conflict. At that time, our king made a terrible mistake. Abel Hayden snorted contemptuously. The memories were still fresh, poisoned. He fell in love with the daughter of the Norks. That king allied with a creature of a lower kind, spread a barrier over this stronghold, and sealed our ambitions and our heritage. His face twisted into a mask of pure hatred. The dust dirties mixing our noble blood with the foolish and short-lived Norks. This is absolutely unforgivable. That king killed my ancestors, and then, disgracing himself, buried our true history under a mountain of lies. He swallowed firmly, and such poisonous rage rang in his voice that a chill ran down the spine. These golems, Abel Hayden continued, were created using the highest techniques of Zesham, and his sovereignty returned once again. Powerless today, the soldiers of the Lord cried out, "You bastard, you conspired against the Lord from the beginning." Abel Hayden ignored them, his gaze stubbornly held on the true purpose of the ruins. Now you see, this entire structure was built to hide the most precious treasure in the world, a weapon meant to pierce the land of the heavens. We call it Arrow of God. He revealed the very essence of his power. To release it, a colossal reserve of magic stones is needed. And from the remains of the barrier I just dissolved, there is enough material for 3 shots. He spread his arms in a sign of triumph. He roared his last wish. I will conquer the land and gather all the magic stones. Heaven and earth, I will take everything. Abel's mind raced wildly with thoughts. He was gathering that incredible power for this one purpose, but why reveal his entire strategy right now? The two sides froze in silent confrontation. And then Abel finally understood. Abel Hayden stubbornly shifted his gaze to the young mage. You are the wizard I recognize, Abel. If you cooperate with me, I will give you half the world. Abel remained silent, and nothing can be read on his face. Maya froze and watched, holding her breath, whispering his name with anxiety. Finally, Abel spoke calmly and clearly. I will pretend I did not hear what you just said. Abel Gates' pursed lips twisted into a malicious grimace. After all, you are just a child, what a pity. He sighed as if he was simply tired of it all. Approaching you directly will be exhausting work. He raised his hand, dark energy swirled around a complex magical circle. Oh, my forest dream asthma. Abel's eyes suddenly widened, alarm flared up. Poisonous magical smoke began to fill the chamber. Abel dashed without any pause. Pass my doll, teleport, he commanded, pressing the wooden idol into space. Maizen forward. The doll flew through the air and absorbed all the poisonous haze into its wooden head. An incredible absorbing force sent a shockwave through the room, knocking Abel and Maya off their feet. Abelheit glanced from the side, restrained but somewhat impressed. Well, you survived this. As befits Marina, who uses wooden dolls, he raised his hand. Surrender, Abel-san. But Abel responded to the gesture with eerie confidence. It will be hard to hold myself now. In this position, I do not lose, so please lay down your arms. The ancient elf chuckled. Of course, if we weren't in this room, I would definitely have lost. Yet he pulled out a glowing command stone. O golem, obey. The nearest white giant rumbled and came to life. His huge fist flared with destructive energy. Watch, Abel, Abelheid commanded. I will remember your name as the greatest contribution to the revival of Zesham. Accept this honor and perish. This is a Zesham soldier, the white giant of destruction. The golem's fist thundered down. The party darted away from the blow. Too fast, Maizen shouted, but Abel had already seen everything he needed. Calmly raised the wand to the giant automaton. Hey golem, obey. Abelheit froze, and on his face froze a mask of complete disbelief. What? His mind wavered, he could not comprehend what he saw. Incredible. How do you know the activation formula of the Zesham golem? You deciphered the cipher at a glance, but without the colossal power of the magic stone. The golem does not activate. A circle lit up on the golem's chest, repeating what was on Abel's wand. The giant froze motionless as if rooted to the spot. Abelheit desperately tried to wrest control back, clutching his own command stone. But you do not have elven blood, you cannot suppress my command. Move, O white giant, move. The golem froze in place. Abel only gave one more command. O golem, obey. In response, the two remaining golems turned to Abelheid. Their loyalty was completely rewritten. The elf's confidence finally crumbled. Under Abel's command, the two newly acquired golems advanced on the last soldier of Abelheid. He delivered a series of devastating blows, shattering the white giant into a cloud of stone fragments. Abelheit froze before the ruins, his plan crumbled right before his eyes. Could it be true? He was defeated only by the magical power of a human. He hopelessly tried to give one last command, move, O white giants. But the rest of the golems stood silently. Now they belonged to his enemy and lined up as a passive army. Abel dealt the final devastating blow. I took control over all the golems in this room. Trying to cancel my barriers on them is futile stupidity. The burden of total defeat struck Abelheid. He fell to his knees. A rough, fierce scream, full of rage and humiliation, burst from his throat and echoed through the ancient chamber. But as soon as victory seemed indisputable, Abel's eyes suddenly widened. Wait, hold on. He froze in shock, unable to react in time. Abelheid disappeared, already a distant figure, rushing down a long, long-forgotten corridor. The voice of the elven lord trembled with panic. Wait, Abelheid. I don't know what kind of weapon this arrow of God is, but I still can't let him pull the trigger. From his place, Abel stood firm, like a silent guardian against the approaching storm, and his attention was fully focused. He turned to his small companion. It will be dangerous, so Mayo, you wait here. You can help carry the World Tree Totem. Maya shuddered, realizing that her combat skills were not suitable for this clash. Tears welled up in her eyes, so please don't abandon me. Abel softened a little. All right, be ready while you follow behind. Damn it, this has already gone too far, huh? If needed, I'll just use teleportation magic and bring her to the horse-drawn carriage. Just then, Maizen spoke up with a confident smile on his face. I'll go too, I can. Honestly, I was already about to run away. The role of a leader is to stay behind and cover your subordinates. When their determination strengthened, a small squad rushed forward deep into the ruins. All right, let's go. But their desperate dash was suddenly cut off. Maizen suddenly collapsed and the strength in his body vanished. No, I can't anymore, I can't go on. Maizen wheezed as he inhaled air, sweat streaming down his face. I'm already powerless. All the accumulated fatigue from analyzing everything in the ruins finally caught up with me, and I have no more potions. No. If you don't go, there is no chance that we can stop him. Abel and Maze stared at their fallen leader. No, seriously, I can't. Maze implanted. His legs were trembling. My legs ache. Abel looked down, his face unreadable. You just need someone to do your dirty work right. In a moment, he effortlessly threw the bigger man over his back. Can't you stop swaying like that? I'm feeling sick, Mason complained weakly. Abe asked almost indifferently, why did you decide to become an adventurer? Maizen's voice was quiet, I just needed a quick way to earn money. He recounted a memory from his past. When I was little, I wandered alone into the lair of a magical creature. And just when I was about to be attacked, a traveler passed by and rushed to save me. His voice regained at least some of its usual strength. With my current strength, I don't think I can stop Abelhade. He stubbornly looked at Abel's nape. And as our current leader, I will do everything in my power to help you, Maizen. Straining to carry their leader on his back, they continued their way forward. Soon they reached the entrance to a huge, towering chamber. We had already climbed quite high, hadn't we? Only behind this place could Abelhade be. They stepped over the threshold and entered a huge hall with columns. Ahead stretched deep darkness, too dark I can't see all the way to the end, Maizen purred quietly. In the gloom, a silhouetted figure began to emerge. A massive wolf-like automaton made of stone and metal rose before Themit's eyes blazed, but the power was still dormant. A model beast golem, Abel said calmly while Maya screamed wildly. It seemed Abel had already activated it. From behind Abel, Mason asked, Abel, can you take this under control? When we fought other golems in that large area, Abel's answer was grim. No, I managed to deploy a barrier near those humanoids, but this one might not work because it had plenty of time to activate it. Maizen's eyes sharpened. Abel's mind was already racing. He was gathering a new strategy, but Lakitha's room was so large. Before he could finish speaking, Maizen suddenly jumped off his back, drew his sword, and charged forward alone. Oh, it's all right, no need to risk your life. Abel called, but Maizen was already in action. While I keep them distracted, you run past. The swordsman dashed past the huge construct. The golem roared, shifting his gaze to the lone warrior. Maizen-san probably screamed in horror. You guys stop, Maizen shouted over his shoulder, a mask of desperate bravery frozen on his face. He was shouting, tears streaming from his eyes. Tell my story, make me look like a hero, I'm counting on you. He looks at the scoreboard, but calmly shouting is useless. He doesn't hear me that way, we don't have time, so I'll pull that golem out. He raised his wand and right before him, the air began to distort and converge. A vortex of raw power started swirling inside it. It spun, drawing spirits and magical energy from the atmosphere. In seconds, everything compressed into a dense black sphere that shimmered made of pure magical alloy. Hydeem Magi Metal, Abel announced. A metal made from a combination of magical energy, spirits, and other components in the air. Its quality depends on who created it. Then he raised his voice and began mocking the mechanical beast. Hey, scrap dog over here. The golems abruptly turned their heads, and their glowing eyes immediately fixed on the new threat. When the energy began to charge, Maizen shouted, Maizen, get away from the golem. With a simple wave of his wand, Abel launched the spherate flew forward like a cannonball. A silent black moment of total destruction. The projectile struck the side of the golem with unimaginable force. There was no explosion, only a devastating blow that shattered the armored hull. The impact sphere pierced through everything, destroying the head and core of the golem in a cascade of shattered stone and metal. The construct's momentum pushed it forward a few more steps. Then its headless body collapsed to the ground, completely destroyed. It slid and stopped a lump of dead scrap. Maizen froze in shock. Good, it seems it no longer works. But the projectile's path was not over yet. The sphere of magical metal, barely slowing down, crashed into one of the colossal hall supports, deeply embedding itself in the ancient stone. A web of cracks spread across the surface of the pillar. Abel clicked his tongue irritably. Won't the regional lord make me pay for the damages after this? Well, fine, we'll blame it all on Abelhide. He smiled at Riley straight in the eyes. At least that is excusable, although perhaps they should be glad this is all we did. Suddenly the entire chamber trembled as if someone had jerked it. The damaged column groaned, threatening to collapse at any moment. Maizen was horrified when the ceiling began to crumble. This is really bad, shouldn't we already be running away from here, in this situation? Abel's memory surfaced what had flashed through his mind, his own internal reasoning. If we do nothing, Abel will hide until he loses a person as knowledgeable as himself, and that will be unfortunate. Missing one thing, I have no one to entrust my life's aspiration to. I have no descendants. He had thought everything through in the past. I expect great achievements from you, Abel. And one more thing, Abelhide will not be able to simply return to the city after what he has done. He will definitely be put on the execution list. The sentence is inevitable. His decision was made. He returned to Maizen and ordered, leave the investigative team, which they put to sleep. He fell to his knees. Let's run, get on my back. Maizen was confused. He probably would have preferred to die among these ruins which he had cherished all these years rather than be executed in that city. Abel calmly pointed at his former enemy. If I fix the golem model best, I can make it work. We'll escape by riding it. He raised his wand again. Oh, Heidi Maggie metal changed shape. Immediately, the black sphere tore off the pedestal, rarefied, and flowed back into the golem, instantly sealing the damage with a flash of light. The golem was fully restored in a moment. And as soon as they boarded Abel, he began a technical lecture. I would prefer not to repair or simplify the control device. But the magical energy consumption of this golem was initially not very high. Is it due to the difference in capabilities between generations? Or maybe because of the elf's temperament, his companions cut him off from the conversation? Well, all right, understood, we'll listen later. Riding the new chariot, they rushed from the collapsed ruins just in time. Abelhade was left to his own fate, and Missile inside sighed with relief. Hooray, I'm so glad we made it. So after all, what is the arrow of God? While they crossed the dead, deserted wasteland, Maya noticed something in Abel's hand. Abel, what is that? He raised a small crystalline shard. It was a piece of the wall from inside the ruins. I picked it up before we escaped. He examined it carefully. It's a strange ore. Probably the elves wove it through alchemy, but he infused a little magic into the fragment, and to everyone's surprise, it rose from his palm and began to hover. It seems it has the property of changing buoyancy when the correct wavelength of magic is applied. The puzzle pieces came together in his mind with eerie clarity. Abelhade said, 2,000 years ago, the elves who descended to Earth built this fortress to reclaim Sky Country. But then why did they place the fortress so far from Sky Country and in a place difficult to reach? His eyes widened as he looked at the stones hanging in the air. An impossible, world-turning answer suddenly illuminated him. It can't be. You could suddenly burst into a piercing scream and wildly waving your hands point behind their backs. Ebel, look. Ebel turned sharply, and his face distorted with pure shock as soon as he saw what struck his eyes. The golem pulled the cart screeching and rumbling rolled in diverging waves across the wind-swept steppes, carrying Abel and his companions further and further. Far away in the very heart of the soaring fortress, Elf Lord Abelahide was illuminated by a smile with cold, eerie delight. Finally, he whispered to the wind, the time of Zesham's rebirth has come. His gaze slid toward the distant battlefield where Abel had just fought. It seemed he could not defeat the beast model golem without a great cost. He imagined a young mage exhausted and powerless, still fighting and using magic after having taken control of so many golems, and that was probably impossible. I'm sure, it wore him out. Abiela clenched his fist, and a dark sigil on his back flared with light. Eventually, he smiled arrogantly. No one who is not an elf can achieve victory over the weapon of Zesham. He approached the edge of the enormous balcony, and the world spread out below, reaching far. I will start by releasing the god's arrow into the city of Lamarn. He imagined the destruction. The city turned into a burning field from a single divine shot. It is extremely important that I arrange a magnificent performance and show the power I possess. His voice dripped with poison. Just wait, Sky Country Alpham, this time I will drive you into the ground. Suddenly, a terrible blow shook the very foundations of his fortress. He shouted and, staggering uneasily, recoiled backward as a large crack flared up on the fortress's defensive barrier. The barrier cracked. Where could such a powerful attack have come from? Mile after mile, Abel's party froze in amazement, looking at the distant, wounded Sky Fortress. How did you manage to send that piece of metal so far? Asked one of his companions, but Abel remained silent. His gaze was fixed on the target. And then, to their shock, the shimmering crack in the barrier began to heal itself. The crack in the barrier was repaired. Abel had quietly let out a victorious snort, watching them through the vision device. There he boasted about his car repair skills. It is impossible to break this obstacle without interrupting the flow of its magic. All the nodes of the obstacle around the fortress must be destroyed. Maya clenched her teeth in irritation, although the blow hit. Then to attack pointless. This barrier is exactly that type. It automatically regenerates, right? Another companion concluded. Abel's focus did not waver for a moment. He only directed the stick and the thought worked like a blade, precise as a calculator. All right, he said calmly. From what I just observed, a full barrier recovery takes about 15 seconds. Abelhide looked at their futile efforts with disgust. Did he really think he could hold me for that long? Well, it's nice that he is finally retreating. He snorted mockingly. Food is just a struggle. You can't retreat, it only holds by sheer force. His arrogance was cut off by a sharp, deafening blow. Another one and another one. What? A hail of shells struck his shield faster than it could heal. Abel's strategy was brutally simple and unquestionably brilliant. If one attack doesn't work, keep attacking continuously at a frequency so that the repair ability can't keep up. Abahites froze in horror, watching the boy personally destroy the fortress. Damn you, Abel. I raised him because I thought he would be a useful assistant, but it turned out he is a complete plague to my goals. A terrible realization flashed within him. This is the power of the warrior clan, those called gods of death on the battlefield. His face twisted with rage. I will not forgive any of this. Roaring thunderously, he twisted his arm against the control panel in a strike, protesting against the weapons. Dozens of giant cannons emerged from hidden ports all over the fortress. Panic exploded in the golem cart. Aha, it seems a whole bunch of cannons are coming out of it. What do we do capable? Abel simply raised his wand, Hydim Magi Metal. A new series of dense metal spheres just appeared and surged forward, intercepting the fortress's cannonballs and smashing them with devastating force. Whoa, but Magi Metal, my magic power, creating what he created, does not lose to those weapons made of stone. Still impressive, but he always solves it with force. Does he have any other ways to solve problems? Abel's thoughts were on some higher level. It would be a disaster if he spilled this towards the city. Soon I will be able to make him respond. After the final deafening crash, the Sky Fortress barrier completely shattered. And despite this, his words faltered unfailingly. He only watched as the impregnable defense began to crumble. Like a fortress that had not suffered a single scratch in 2,000 years, my life's work, the hope of Zesham. Rage and despair consumed him. And just think, I would be forced to use a weapon created to throw Sky Country to the ground right here. He poured every last drop of strength into the fortress, roaring a single command God's arrow. At the top of the fortress, a giant crystal began to glow. It cracked, absorbing an unimaginable amount of energy. The very air seemed to scream. Maya's voice trembled. Most likely this is the sound when spiritual energy is exhausted. Usually it is so quiet that people do not catch it, but now so many sky spirits are pulling out. It turns out, this has a gigantic volume of magical power. She froze in horror. Just a guess. But from that cluster of magical power coming from this crystal, it will probably release a laser. Maya running away would be the wiser decision, right? Ah, right, Abel answered, and his voice was strangely calm. I'll try that. He handed his staff to the confused Maya. Hold it, don't you use a staff? The staff is only needed to make it easier for me to cast spells. It does not affect my power level. He raised his bare hands to the sky. Complex magical circles, more complex than they had ever seen, they blossomed right in the air. Oh, fire, he sang. The sphere took shape. From his fortress, which was collapsing, Abel laughed like a madman. Cuckoo, is this your end? Mage Marina, disappear. Abel ignored him and focused on the spell being born between his palms, compressing a fiery ball, then layering it and compressing again. A miniature blue of pure, compressed energy flared in his hands. Theoretically, it is capable of destroying anything. I called it Abel Ball. He recalled the moment of his discovery, a random theory he stumbled upon while recovering his strength. He had no idea that the chance to test it would come so soon. His gaze fixed on the target. Here I go, a blaint. He sharply thrust his hands forward, releasing a dazzling beam of pure annihilation. The attack with a deafening blow crashed into Abel Hyde. It didn't even give him time to scream. A bullet pierced through the elf lord, tore the fortress from within, and crashed straight into the fully charged arrow of God. For a moment, the two highest weapons clashed and fought for supremacy. Abel Hyde's face froze in agony. He saw his ultimate weapon being defeated. The massive crystal of the arrow of God cracked, then exploded under the relentless power of Abel's spell. The sky itself was being consumed from within by a quiet, dazzling white light. In the very heart of the bustling city, Abel and Lilith experienced a rare moment of peace on the cafe balcony. Lilith, taking a big bite, looked at Abel with concern. Are you really okay with this? Her words were slightly muffled. Leaving a report on the extermination of the magic beast for Maizen-san. Abel leaned back, the very embodiment of calm. Well, of course, it's not like I did anything special during the goblin hunt, he replied indifferently. And since both the griffin and the ruin disappeared, I have nothing to report. I'll focus on promotion as soon as I set a proper goal for myself. Lilith recalled the true chaotic events that had erupted, and the full unstoppable power of the arrow of God that had fallen upon them. She remembered Abel's desperate scream when he unleashed his own power to stop the divine attack. A breeze, he summoned a whirlwind of power. Not to destroy, but to gently redirect the mad elf, Abelhide, saving him from inevitable death. She recalled how Abel stood over the defeated elf, his face revealing nothing. Why did you do that? Abelhide asked, stunned by the act of mercy. I will leave it to the city to decide what to do next, Abel said, and by closing the case about Abelhide's desire to conquer the world, he ensured that this dream would now remain a secret. But when Lilith tried to explain this to the guildmaster, her words were lost in a confusion of joyful exclamations. The ruins rustled Sion, and bang, Abel immediately took control of the golem, and it struck bang, with a lightning flash, and bam. The government officials from the guild stared at her, confused to the point of trembling. One of them begged, "Let someone, anyone, translate her frantic testimony." The guildmaster pinched the bridge of his nose, exhaled irritably. Ha. Then he fixed his gaze on Abel, but no lone mage could have done all this. Are you just greedy for achievements? Because of people like you, I can't stand dealing with country bumpkins. Returning to the cafe, Abel kept silent at his table. He knew, even if he told them everything, the truth would only multiply problems. From a strategic point of view, it was better to let them hold on to their own version. It turned out much more effective, and the result was just right. It was then that he caught a snippet of conversation from the neighboring table. Hey, did you hear about this? About that ruin obstacle? Yes, I heard. It was destroyed. They say one of the elves working for the landowner tried to intercept everything and it backfired on him. Lilith's eyes widened sharply in shock. That guy got a death sentence, right? And that elf is now in prison. The adventure continued. However, the ruin has already been removed. Nothing can be done. Abel was silent. Reflecting on their last conversation with Abelhade, the elf admitted, Abel was the first person who ever taught him magic, a memory he had kept since he left his village. He is not someone I would want to finish with my own hands, Abelhade confessed. I wish you the best of luck, Abelhade. That elf was a fool. The second man at the table mockingly threw a remark with contempt. Act according to your desire and as a result destroyed the ruin. What irresponsibility. And I thought elves were a smarter race. Lilith touched her chin with a finger pie. Death, the official version, was already sealed, and the entire incident happened due to one single raging elf. This version of events completely exonerated Abel, placing all the blame on Abelhade. Suddenly a familiar voice rang out. Hey guys, over here. It was Maizen. He was waving and clearly glowing with enthusiasm. He sat down at their table looking absolutely terrible. My body hurts. For 2 days I couldn't get out of bed. If only I had a potion, he groaned. Is your body all right? Asked Abel. Oh, is that so? Added Lilith. Maizen quickly revived. I received information about the wanted person, he said. Although I cannot go with you, I have other matters, but I am sure you will manage without me. He explained, do you see those two from that party back? Then they asked me. He told how on the way back after submitting the report, former members of his party ambushed him. Maizen, they shouted, we heard you have risen to E rank, congratulations. Maizen trembled when he saw them. No, what, you two? They looked guilty. Honestly, we were looking for you. Our destruction of magical beasts is not going well because you are not here, so please rejoin our company. Come back, leader. By the pressure of desperate pleas, Menzane was forced to surrender. His resolve cracked. Nothing can be done, he announced, shining with the fact that he was needed again. But I just can't say no, you understand. Maizen finished his story with an indifferent shrug. So who is this person mentioned in the rumors who supposedly wanted something? He pointed with his hand to the very edge of the city. Late that night in a modest Narid clan Marin house, a serious meeting was taking place. The chief sat at the head of the table and his face was stern. Everyone, thank you for coming. We have problems. But first I must apologize for my mistake. He gestured to a detailed document on the table. Abel really left notes on how to grow incense leaves, but it is impossible to reproduce them. The effect is such that only Abel can make it. Abel's father Zelrut slammed his fist on the table with a crash. Mumu, this is Abel. His face twisted in agony. And I already thought that I could finally do well in the village thanks to my rights to incense leaves. Suddenly through the tension, a sudden loud laugh broke out. It was Norman Carlo, head of the rival Carlo family. Is it really impossible to reproduce this? He abruptly stood up and beamed with triumph. In that case, I have nothing more to do here. If Abel's incense leaves have disappeared, then I have nothing to worry about. The Carlo family's incense leaves will rise again. He threw a pouch with magical ore and coins on the floor with disgust. You who look down on me will pay dearly for this, he growled before rushing out. The chief watched him go and sighed wearily. My God, such a petty man. Didn't he think that for people who have tasted Abel's incense this would not just pass so easily? He froze for a moment, and his gaze became harsher, but this is truly beneficial for the Carlo family. He turned to the rest of the clan members, speaking quietly and calculatedly. For now, let's slowly push the stock. Add a few leaves of Abel's incense to the other products before distributing them. He leaned forward and the full weight of their situation suddenly became clear. When we managed to establish the magic ore coin system, Abel's incense leaves worked splendidly. Now we can break free from the decline of the leaves, but even if it doesn't hook enough to disrupt the user's daily life, it's a chance to simply make it disappear. His eyes narrowed. If this leaks out, a rebellion might ignite. We will continue our real agenda secretly. As soon as the chief left the hut, he stopped, feeling a faint pulse of magic in the air. He looked around but saw nothing. In this shack, all the skilled magicians of the village should be now except Abel, he muttered thoughtfully. It seems it was only my imagination, right? In the distance, invisible to anyone, a ceramic mug quietly floated through the night sky. The cup stopped against the window glass with a soft rustle, barely clinking. A small hand opened the window and took the mug. Inside the room, cramped by tall stacks of books, Abel's sister listened tensely as the mug recounted the clan's secret strategy. "Welcome back," she whispered. "For now, mix some of Abel's fragrant leaves with other ingredients before distributing them. Mumu, Abel." She looked out the window into the darkness. "You don't understand why the village elder and father still haven't started worrying more about Nisama." Her voice sounded genuinely concerned. "I'm sure, Nisama is scared and alone right now in the middle of an unknown space." A ray of light flashed in her eyes. The idea, bright and sharp, cut through her anxiety. Innocent concern melted away for a moment, and instead something much more intense appeared, a gaze filled with deep determination. "Just wait, Nisama. I'm sure the village elder will start serious searches for Nisama as well." A confident, almost predatory smile stretched across her face. "Your little sister will definitely come for you." She pressed the glowing book to her chest, a quiet promise of the power she will use to find her brother. In the southern lands of the kingdom of Dinlard, the ancient stones of the main temple Kudal seem to scream as the Ordi monastery explodes in brutal destruction. A dark figure stands among the ruins, a silhouette outlined against the approaching twilight. In his hands a staff emitting scorched energy, and a voice praises him for removing the seal. In the locked passages, now a tomb, former inhabitants lie motionless on the cold stone floor. From the shattered sanctuary emerges a mighty presence, a tall demon, her figure shrouded in shadow and ancient power. Several hundred years have passed since she last saw the outside world, and now, as she speaks, her voice spreads with the weight of centuries. The man in the cloak bows his head, acknowledging her freedom. "You are the great demon of knowledge and destruction, Zalman Sama," he proclaims with reverence. Zalman's sharp gaze crawls to the horizon. The spirit is already close," she notes, and a barely predatory smile forms on her lips. "The last time I saw this, there was only a mid-level spirit, and it has grown." She returns to her subordinate. "The order is unquestionable. All right then, Magus, go from here to the south to Lamarn." After a long journey, Abel and Maya rest by a quiet stream. Water cools their tired feet. Their travels finally lead to the territory of Dinlor. They arrive at the western branch of Lamar and the Adventurer Support Center. Abel approaches the counter and places his proof of submission on it. In the guild reception, the receptionist's eyes widen sharply in shock. This is." Her exclamation rolls like a wave of disbelief through the crowded guild hall. The very demon head eater himself completely seriousters the whisper of adventurers. It sends chills. "A demon with skin so hard it shattered so many adventurers' swords." And someone else adds, "No, it can't, but did that guy really do it?" Abel and Maya found themselves at the center of dozens of watchful gazes. Maya, however, clearly enjoys the attention. She whispers to Abel, holding back laughter. "As if we are known to someone, but..." But the whisper sounds with a taste of distrust. "I am sure it is an exaggeration." The veteran adventurer snorts. "I think that ear is from another creature, and he just painted the skin to make it look real." Abel felt the weight of the gaze, immediately understood envy and suspicion. It was neither admiration nor respect. The flustered receptionist leans forward. "Sorry, but the morning check will take some time. After all, this is the first time we've had to work with such a rare material." Could you please lower your voice?" Abel sighs internally. This is exactly what he wanted to avoid. And to think he will stand out so clearly not in the best way. He heard that once you reach rank C, a nobleman has a good chance to try to scout you, and that is already a serious obstacle. While ordinary adventurers rushed to higher ranks to make a name for themselves, Abel's goals were different. He just wanted to collect money without the chains of fame or rank. Suddenly, a loud voice cuts through the noise. "You said that guy defeated the demon, the head eater." A mountain of a man in heavy armor looms over them. "You scoundrel are lying, and you know it well." The crowd recognizes him immediately, Gaston Garand. A guild representative steps forward, his face showing fatigue. "Stop. We've already received a bunch of complaints about your bad behavior. You know, if you keep causing problems for travelers, I'm just helping to bring order to bad travelers." Abel meets the brute's gaze without flinching. "You're right, sometimes bad adventurers try to cheat to raise their rank." "Shut up," Gaston bellows. "It's because of people like you that those with real talent can't take their rightful place. Your business is not to judge, that is our duty." He jabbed an accusing finger at Abel. "This only confirms the flaws in your ability to judge. If the danger rank of head eater demon is considered higher than C, then this weak kid shouldn't be able to defeat it. By the way, what's your rank?" Gaston's henchmen puff out their chests. Hear this and be amazed. This great Saint Gaston is a D-rank adventurer. He is a veteran among veterans. After all, for 10 years he has been a D-rank adventurer. Abel instantly calculates the information. The plan is already forming. So he is just a mercenary with a trained body but without the necessary skill to be hired by nobles, right? He can be used. He raises his gaze at the man. Gaston-san, again this. If we cause a commotion it will be bad, so how about a private conversation? In the alley behind, Maya looks at him stunned. Abel, he throws her a reassuring look. It's okay, just wait here a bit. In the cozy alley, Gaston crosses his arms. You have more courage than I thought. Well, I'll give it to you. He cracks his knuckles and smiles fiercely, then leans closer. I understand you are ready to do this. Shall we talk? Abel remains completely calm. His thoughts are already several steps ahead. The truth is, I am not the one who hunted this demon. If I make a complete massacre here, it will only fuel the envy of other hunters, and I don't want to deal with that later. He begins his carefully constructed story. So you admit it, huh? Actually, I am just exchanging it for money I was asked to buy from a certain guy who lost both his adventure and status, you see. He leans closer, and his voice drops to a conspiracy, almost a whisper. Although I can't name him, he is a very dangerous person, so if you tell anyone otherwise, he will kill you too. Abel carefully watches Gaston's facial expression, looking for a reaction, and thinks, looks like this lie is already too obvious, huh? Dustin almost laughed out loud. Phew, I knew that right away, you know. Abel hides his relief. So as I said, give me the money, demands Gaston. Abel shakes his head. I also need something to live on, so I can't give it to you, but I have a proposal. He lays out his proposal. And next time when that guy asks me again to exchange the material, how about you take this job instead of me? Gaston froze on the stairs. What you say like that, so I can take the laurels? Lord, as he explains, at first I really liked that it raised my rank, but it's strange. For someone as weak as me to do something like that. Fine, I'll still take the money you pass on, but it will be much easier for me if you do it for me. I think, if someone who looks strong and cool like you does it, it won't look strange at all. They will show him a bright, innocent smile. I don't think it's a bad idea for both of us, right? Yes. Returning to the guild hall, Gaston's followers jingle among themselves and laugh. Cuckoo. I bet this guy is being beaten right now so badly that no part of him will remain alive. One of them sneaks up to the worried Maya. Missy, you are actually quite capable. Ability is power, but there is no one in this city who could return unharmed after a fight with Gaston, you understand? I don't mind helping you if you ask. Just then the door bursts open and Gaston enters the room. Oh, elder brother, his men break into a joyful shout. Have you finished with that troublemaker yet? Without warning, Gaston's fist hits the subordinate in the jaw and he flies into the air. Be great, brother, why did you do that? His mouth stammers in shock. Gaston roars, growls, a voice full of righteous anger. He grabs another traveler's companion. This is a disgrace. Abbas appears behind him. Sorry for the delay. Now Gaston's people are being intimidated. Aren't you ashamed to grumble all the time about others' achievements? Use gestures to show Maya to follow them. Let's go, I'll tell you later. As they leave, he glances back at the thugs. You are already rotten, he mutters. But since you started this yourselves, I'll have to fix you myself. Later in the tavern, Maya listens as Abel tells what happened. He counts a heavy pouch of coins. With this, we can continue hunting monsters without worrying about anything. Let's spend this money on equipment for our next outing. Maya looks at the amount. Abel, why do you need so much money? Why are you asking? Abel answers matter-of-factly. Of course, it's for my daily expenses. I also have to pay back the money I borrowed from you. Maya's face falls. Hey, Dai, do you really want to leave Maya so far away like this? She begins to panic. Is it really because Maya is worthless? Maya will do her best to also carry the suitcases. Abel raises his hands, trying to calm her down. Calm down, I'm not saying anything like that. He looks at her and a frozen thought appears on his face. What exactly happened to her in her hometown that she so often thinks that she will be abandoned? I'm not so shameless as to not repay debts. He explains this gently. And besides, there are many other things I want to do, so first we need to get everything we need. He leans forward and ambition flashes in his eyes. I want to create magical tools, chimeras, and golems. More precisely, I want to try to make a handphone. He explains the concept, recalling information from a past life. Once I read about a type of monsters that can use magic to communicate with each other over a distance. In short, they use magic like an electromagnetic wave. He imagines what kind of revolution this could stir up. If I can create a handphone in this world, it will definitely become popular. Maya still looks confused, while Abel is deeply immersed in his vision of the future. A sharp knock on the door interrupts his thoughts. It's Maizen smiling from the door. Hi, are you there? Yo, Maizen, you look like you're doing fine. Abel greets him. Thank you for telling us about this, says Maizen, and his facial expression becomes serious. I heard you defeated the demon devourer, you know. By the way, Abel, did you notice anything strange in the forest? Maya intervenes. It turns out that demon is the one devouring them. Like those fish we found without heads scattered in the river. But I didn't see anything strange except that. Did something happen? Asks Abel. Maizen's voice becomes quieter. We really went in the opposite direction from you. When the order came, it said, send all adventurers below BRANK back. You understand? I'm sure the order will soon reach the support center as well. Abel's senses sharpened. The reason for the order is cruel and inevitable. The squad sent by the Lord himself was ambushed. In the deep dark forest, an ominous wind rustles among the trees. A mighty twisted tree stands as a silent monument to a brutal battle. The ground around its roots is mutilated, and soiled traces of a fierce clash that ended in silence. In the deep shadow of the forest, Maya's voice cuts through the suffocating silence. Abel, are you really okay? Abel grits his teeth, his thoughts racing wildly. His brain recalls Maizen's stern warning, this forest is forbidden to everyone below B rank. The griffin they defeated was B rank, a formidable opponent, but here the fear felt even stronger. They said the expedition team was attacked by a living tree. Maya glanced at the endless canopy of crowns. If that's true, then it's somewhere among all the trees here, right? Abel puts on a confident smile and brushes off her worries. So everything will be fine. But in a moment, a cold realization overwhelms him. His bravado crumbles. As he suspected, it was too dangerous to venture into this place alone. He freezes in place sharply as if rooted to the spot. Maya shudders at his sudden stop and shouts, "Hey, what happened, Abel?" Seizing a moment to stop and reassess the strategy, Abel delivers a convincing scene of pain gripping his leg with his hands. He forced a tactical pause, gaining himself precious seconds to think. Meanwhile, Maya rests near a small, quiet waterfall and her concern is noticeable. "Are you really okay?" she asks. Abel exhales quietly, finally able to rest and properly assess the situation. Suddenly, his eyes flash with inspiration. "Ah, exactly." He raises his wand. "My wand will react if it senses a strange magical power nearby, but I cannot keep my hand raised while walking." A brilliant, simple solution suggests itself. He points his stick at the bag and utters a single command. Before them materializes the talisman totem of the world tree. Maya asks what magical price it costs to keep it active, and Abel brushes off her worries. "Don't worry, I never felt like my magic was running out. Really, I should have done this earlier." The totem floats ahead like a magical early warning system, and they continue their journey. Abel quietly ran through the principles of his abilities in his mind. Teleportation is a high-level art, and it had its limits. He could not throw the World Tree Totem over long distances due to the colossal magical power within it. His own magic circle simply did not reach that far. It was this very limitation that forced him to personally prepare the teleportation circle when he was fleeing from his father. Maya panics at the very thought. Please don't. I can at least teleport back to the inn, but then I'll have to leave you behind." Abel calmly assures her that he has no such intentions. A confident smile swings on his lips, but in reality he seeks to find the legendary monster tree. There is a chance that it contains a lot of magical power. I want to make a totem out of it. Maya looks stunned. Then from the tree made into a totem, attacks people, and Abel's consciousness is already sliding through the schemes. "I have gathered a universal totem from the tree of the world," he explains, his eyes shining with ambition. "Therefore, I want to try to create the next battle totem." While they walk, Maya notices a strange flower off the path. What a beautiful flower. Abel recognizes this instantly. If I am not mistaken, this is a papalga flower. Usually it has red petals. He leans closer with his analytical gaze, sharpening his sight. Once I read that its color can change depending on the magical power around, which means. Just as he fails to finish speaking, his totem begins to tremble wildly. Before them opens a vortex of energy, pure and boundless, and the voice not in their ears but directly in their heads echoes. "Honor me as a god or you will die." Maya shudders with fear, while Abel remains composed and analyzes the phenomenon. It was not an ordinary voice, it fell straight into our heads. In a burst of movement, a thick whip-like offshoot cuts through the air where they stood a moment ago. A massive vine flies into the World Tree Totem and pushes it away into the thicket. The source reveals itself. It is here. Not some magical creature, rather a tree possessed by a demon. From the cracks in the bark of the ancient tree, emerges a grotesque, distorted face, the eyes burn with rage. A demon is a dangerous congregation of spirits. It looks like an evil idol, Maya whispers in horror. The monster roars, the voice shakes the forest. "How dare you compare me to some statue?" The roots burst forward and Abel manages to push me just in time. He turns to the monster, a defiant smile on his face. "Like a statue, huh? Such bold words. I will show you the power of my masterpiece." His totem abruptly disappears back into the clearing and re-engages the opponent in battle. The enchanted tree unleashes a barrage of roots, but the totem dodges every strike smoothly, impossibly gracefully. Abel follows the pattern, a cold computational mechanism in his head. He plans to throw a dull one, huh? But And the tree lunges forward, and as she predicted, the totem braces for the attack, striking with full weight directly into the monstrous trunk. Unfortunately, Abel explains aloud, I installed only a simple combat protocol in my world tree totem, so psychological warfare against it doesn't work. The tree howls madly with rage and pain, while the totem relentlessly, coldly, and without any emotion continues its strike after strike. It was systematically dismantled into parts by the power of just one statue. Hey, what are you talking about? Me asks, confused, looking at his completely calm appearance. My world tree totem is a universal type, so it has little firepower. He clarifies, it turns out we can't win this fight by dodging alone. His eyes widen, but no, I'm just thinking about what will work best against this. Abel's analysis was already complete, and these roots move too slowly for a tree with such a level of magical power. He has already reverse-engineered her strategy down to the smallest detail. She divides magical power among each root. A few roots, if I follow this, actually works well, so what should I do to optimize this? The game is over, the demon tree reveals all its power. It will be blown away by the wind. A gigantic burst of energy breaks out, grabs the totem and hurls it into flight. It strikes the ground and shatters into pieces. The tree triumphs, its voice oozes arrogance. Did you see that? My power is far greater than this simple idol. Abel's face is in shadow, the expression is indistinguishable. He has already learned everything that was needed. I had no idea he could use a different type of attack besides physical. I can still improve my world tree totem. He raises his wand, summon my totem here. To the demon's surprise, the broken fragments hang in the air and fly back to Abel, perfectly reassembling in his hand. And now he had a complete blueprint for victory. Now that I have a plan for my totem, he says, staring upward with cold determination. I think this is where I'll stop the game on the wooden bell spirit. How dare you? I am a god, crowned with points. This is wand wind. A focused magical cyclone of angels tears the tree apart. Demon, rest in peace. The spell intensifies the whirlwind of cleansing, tears the clumped spirits to pieces. When the magic subsides, the demonic presence disappears, leaving only a withered, powerless tree in its place. What have you done, Abel? Maya asks, awestruck. I just dispersed the spirits and returned them to their original forms, he says casually. My clan are specialists in such matters, you see. Then he gestures to the base of the tree, its roots now pulse with soft magical light. Here is the score. The true value of this tree lies in its roots, filled with magical power. In Abel's head, the cataloging of materials begins immediately. First, it is necessary to slow down its decay, and his magical conductivity is quite high. I can even use this for the piano, tune the pitch, trim the root, and later apply it for something else. Next, for the ball joint. It seems we will stay here for a long time, so I will set up camp here. After a period of intense work, Abel triumphantly shows his newest work. I did it. Can you take a look? Combat totem. I will name it Ashura 5000. He suddenly stands up in a dramatic pose and gives the command for the totem dance. The new totem, a complex creation with many limbs, moves with stunning precision. Look at this craftsmanship, isn't it impressive? Maya notices its considerable size. Most importantly, it confirms, just like the world tree totem, I can teleport with this guy. His work is finished. He buries the last remains of the demon-possessed tree. The request is fulfilled. Let's return to the tavern and finally rest properly. I'm hungry, he says, while his thoughts are already jumping to the next stage of his grand plan. To assemble the handphone, more money needed to be collected. Far away in the starry sky, a woman with dark wings and piercing eyes sharply raises her gaze. What happened, master? A man asks beside her. I thought my old acquaintance had teleported somewhere because suddenly I couldn't feel his presence, but a trembling glint of misunderstanding runs through her gaze. I still probably feel the power of this charm, but it seems to be my mistake, huh? The man shifts her attention. Are we now heading to Lammer? A cruel smile spreads across her face. Of course I expect this. They walk away, and what we bring into this world, intoxicated by peace, grows in their wake as an icy aura. In the nearest village, the man freezes, sensing the looming doom approaching. In a moment, the whole town erupts with screams. The winged woman and her master fly over the chaos they unleashed. Their dark figures block the moon. Evil creeps closer and closer. The group broke through the city streets. Their target was the Western Division of the Lammer and Adventurer Support Center. Inside, the mood was gloomy. The traveler exhaled, exhausted, and the burden of his trouble settled on him. His companion was no less broken. Even so, what is your plan? We have no other skills, nor any connections to leverage. The man shrugged and could only curl up in defeat. I think I'll use this chance to finally give up the dream of being a traveler. The atmosphere in the guild was heavy with despair. After Abel dealt with the threat in the forest, the city banned entry into the woods, cutting off the main source of income for lower-tier adventurers who depended on it for their survival. The man tapped his fingers on his head, counting his dwindling assets. But we still have loans to pay off and weapons. Forget about the housing budget, I don't think I'll have enough money to eat tomorrow. It was then that a clear voice cut through the darkness. Everyone rejoice, proclaimed Abel, standing between Maya and Maizen. In fact, Gaston San has already cleared the monster's lair in the northern forest, so I'm sure the ban will be lifted soon. One of the desperate travelers he grabbed to his feet. In fury, what is that smoke? Enough with this nonsense. Don't babble when we are already hiding without money. You are also a troublemaker, I'm telling you the truth. And just as the argument was about to flare up, a heavy presence rolled into the room. Another adventurer was approaching the entrance. Look there. The door burst open and Gaston entered the hall, his face gloomy, his gaze determined. On his back stood a huge bundle of thick dark roots. The skeptic adventurer's eyes widened, those roots. Gaston rushed straight to the counter and slammed the evidence on the table with a bang. Hall responded with a vibration. The guild official stared at the award, his eyes widening in disbelief. This. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Are you serious? It's impossible to confuse. This is the telepathic black root capable of summoning powerful winds from the monster. That's exactly why we sent a team to exterminate it. Through the crowd of adventurers, a murmur spread like a wave. Gaston really did it even though he had been stuck in D rank for years. Someone else spoke up. I told you, I always thought he was one of those who would break through to the top someday. The official representative of the guild gathered his thoughts and addressed the new hero. Gaston Dono, sorry to keep you waiting. Such an investigation will require a special type of search. Gaston perfectly played the role Abel prepared for him and waved his hand, dismissing everything. But I don't remember the details about those small monsters I defeated. The crowd erupted with admiration. Incredible, sounds like a real professional. Gaston, you are our hero, one traveler exclaimed with delight. With this we can go to the forest again. The official confidently and quickly intervened. Just make it brief, follow me to the special counter. While Gaston was being led away, the guild hall rang with his name. Adventurers chanted in chorus. Gaston, Gaston. From a quiet corner, Abel barely smiled, so they unfolded the fuss. I am glad he took my place there. Thanks to this, the issue was resolved without me attracting anyone's attention. Maya nodded, although she looked less confident. Just hope no problems arise in the future. Suddenly Abel's head jerked up. What is that? There is some noise outside. The guild doors burst open again and flew apart, but this time a frightened citizen flew inside. Someone help us. The man staggered and fell on the threshold. His face was pale with fear. Something terrible is attacking us. Panic began to spread among the people. Oh, someone please do something, you guys are adventurers, right? Immediately all eyes fixed on their newly crowned champion. I already thought we had defeated that forest monster, but then another one sprang up in its place. Yes, Gaston, you can do something, right? If you defeated that B+ class monster, then you should handle this one too. The color drained from Gaston's face. The pressure of their huge expectations crashed down on him. Everyone is counting on me. Fire flared in his eyes. I wanted to be a hero. He clenched his fists, turning to the other adventurers. Yes, leave this to me. Let's follow Gaston's trail. Let's show them the power of adventurers. And with a roar, he led the attack from the guild. Abel watched them leave and pure shock froze on his face. That's the guy. What about the reward? Before he could even process the failure of his plan, Maizen broke through the crowd. There you are. Come with me, Abel. Maizen, Tio, Lisa. And then he grabbed Abel's hand and pulled him into the very heart of chaos. Tio and Lisa turned into this urinary petrification. On the street stood two flawless gray mesh statues where his friends had been moments ago. Abel's mind twitched and instantly processed new information, petrification magic. So in the city that is now in chaos, it's not a beast but a mage, huh? He turned to Maizen sharply and composed. Run, he will turn you to stone. Maizen grabbed Abel's hand again. His voice was full of despair. Let's go, Abel, it looks like the villain is somewhere out there. When it comes to magic, I can rely on no one more than you. They rushed through the panic-stricken streets without slowing down. They crashed into a turn and, swirling, stopped abruptly before them unfolded a terrible sight. The entire street was a gallery of stone figures, citizens frozen in poses of horror, and among them a heroic traveler. Gaston had already turned to stone, and the rest of the travelers from the support center as well. On the neighboring roof, a mage in a dark robe quietly chuckled. Cuckoo, cuckoo, those foolish pranksters. He looked down at Abel's party right there. He snorted mockingly, holding the staff with a look as if it were deadly evil. He thought they had come here on their own to be turned to stone. Curse them. A beam of dark energy shot out from the tip of the staff. Abel reacted, instantly thrust his hand forward. The dark mage's eyes widened sharply in surprise. You're a mage, right? His surprise quickly turned into sadistic joy. Cuckoo, looks like I will be able to enjoy this. I'll let you feel the power of the great high demon Zalamania-sama. Abel's eyes narrowed. The mage cast another spell. Fire, he shouted, releasing a blazing projectile. My Amazon here. Mazin acted on pure instinct. He pushed forward the stone statue of Gaston to intercept the fireball. The spell exploded against the stone figure. Maya froze in horror, but this stone was once a person. Are you sure it can be used as a shield? Mason, drenched in sweat, replied, there won't be a problem as long as it remains petrified, but... He grimaced, if the form breaks, then after it returns it will become something terrible. I don't want to imagine that. Abel ignored their quarrels. His thoughts were already dissecting the enemy in detail. That guy's cane can cast dangerous magic. He also said something about demons. He continued the analysis, maintaining a calm expression, and stared at the curse of petrification magic that had already been used. It seems this is not such a complicated spell after all. He returned to his comrades. I think the petrification curse will be lifted if we do enough damage to his sorcerer. Mason's hope flared up again. Then everyone will return to normal if we hit that man right. If possible, I also want to seize that staff. Abel added coolly, it seems this is not like an ordinary magical tool. All right, I understand. Mason and Maya immediately moved forward. I will be the bait and distract him, and you deal with that guy, said Maya. Maya too, Maya added, at least I can run in circles and cause confusion. Abel nodded once, you are right, this will be the safest way to settle everything. After the plans were made, the two backstage men took off. Let's go, said the mage, watching their run. On his face was a cruel, crooked smile. Cuckoo, are you too afraid to move? When Mason and Maya were running away, he laughed mockingly. Phew, do you really think you can escape from me? He raised his staff to strike them down. Idiot, behind you, Magus. The curse mage froze. Abel was already their hand outstretched. Wind. A bloody whirlwind of arrows flared around the dark mage, and he was completely trapped. He screamed, the gust of wind tore him, knocked him off his feet, and tossed him into the air. Powerful winds ripped the demonic staff from his grip. The artifact clanged and helplessly thudded onto the cobblestones below. The mage was thrown out of the tornado with all his might, spun in the air like a top, and with a dull thud crashed onto the street. Abel stood over the fallen enemy, his face did not change. Well, that's it. If he is completely dependent on this cane, now he will be powerless. The mage twitched and got up, groaning in pain. God, just take it and eat, Abel said with detached curiosity. Wow, I didn't expect you to survive such a fall. Your body is too strong, you know. The mage glared fiercely, full of hatred. You, as a mage, should understand what I feel, right? He burst into a heated monologue, his voice spurted poison. This time is so rotten, and those people from that village who drove me out just because I continued to study magic. His face twisted into a mask of madness. Isn't it? The whole trouble is in this world which has drunk peace and looks down on magic. He spread his arms wide, a prophet of chaos. I want the whole world to know this. The power of magic and the destructive power of demons. That's why I destroyed the seal that imprisoned Sama from Zalamania. Abel listened, and understanding flashed in his eyes. For some reason, it seemed to him that he had heard something similar very recently. He remembered the elven princess who could and knew how to hide, and that boy. They all became twisted because no one understood them. He considered himself lucky. But what was truly sad was that he was reborn in a world where magic is not respected. But unlike them, he had the Master Chief of his tribe and Yamasen from the past world. If it weren't for these wonderful people nearby, he would have nothing good. Maizen jumped from the stands. Abel, don't listen to that boy. Abel again focused on what was happening right now. I know. The destitute mage seized his chance. While Abel was distracted, he lunged for his fallen staff. Abel noticed that fool. I guess before I remove the petrification magic, I'll check this staff. But as soon as the mage's fingers touched the orb, it exploded with a dazzling, sinister glow. A winged creature burst out of the artifact like a whirlwind. Its power was extraordinary and terrifying. The ancient demon Zalamania finally appeared before Abel. From above, from a place looming over the chaos, the winged demon watched the fight below. She turned to another mage, her voice dripping with condescension. Zalamania-sama, why are you taking so long to deal with this triviality? Abel's eyes narrowed. He fixed his gaze on the stranger. The magical pressure rising in waves from her was colossal. Overpowering the mage's strength on the ground, he immediately understood the hierarchy. She was the one pulling the strings. The demon Zalamania gracefully descended onto the street. But looking at it, it wasn't that important, she thought, a sly, mocking smile frozen on her lips. I have nothing better to do anyway, so I'll play with you a little. The voices of Maya, Musen, and Abel sharply cut through the air, sharp, commanding. Abel asked, is there someone in the sky? Who are you talking to? Musen, confused, replied, there is. And immediately keep your eyes on this stick. Abel ordered, don't let her touch it. But Zolomania was already moving, releasing a stream of dark energy without a wordless magic, as he had suspected. Abel reacted with inhuman speed. He raised his hand and shouted, "Light wall." A transparent barrier of pure energy flared up before him. It absorbed the demon's attack. Zolomania laughed, and her voice echoed in the alley. It had been a long time since she last used magic. But that was by no means bad. Her companions could only stare in shock at the bluish skin that stood out so sharply. In a moment she vanished, then appeared right in front of Abel with blinding speed. "And how much longer can you keep this up?" She sneered mockingly, her claws slashing at the barrier. The force of her attack scattered shockwaves down the street, nearly hitting Maya. Next to him, another dark mage laughed with joy and urged his master to tear them to pieces. Abel clenched his teeth. "I would strike if I could," he thought, dreaming of releasing a powerful blast to end it all instantly. But he couldn't risk it not here, among innocent villagers turned to stone. An indiscriminate attack would cause many innocent casualties and collateral damage. His only way out was to act with absolute precision. "Her speed," Maya whispered, her face pale. "What should we do?" But in Abel's mind he was already 10 steps ahead. All that remained was to seal her movement, and he saw the path to victory. "What happened?" Zolomonia mocked, pressing her in an attack. "How long will you stand like that? Let's have some fun. Call my totem here," Abel commanded, extending his hand. In a flash of light, the totem appeared. It struck directly in Zolomonia's path, intercepting her attack. She was thrown back, her eyes widening in shock. "Wow, totem," she exclaimed, recognizing its origin, and that feeling. It was from the Marin clan's totem. The idol was hurled into flight, but it absorbed the blow completely. "If I were to guess," Zolimonia muttered aloud, "this is a tree filled with magical power and of quite good quality. It's made from the bark of the world tree, huh?" Abel didn't let her finish, immediately fired a focused beam of magic from his staff. The totem surged forward, caught another of her attacks, and released a giant explosion of power that shook the very foundations of the city. When the dust settled, Zolimonia saw her chance and rushed forward to finish him off. "I am holding you," she shouted triumphantly. Suddenly the idol transformed. From its body grew dozens of wooden hands, a sight that made the demon freeze in the air. Before she could react, the hands lunged forward, wrapped around her and bound her tightly. She was shackled. She was caught, held firmly by the very force she recognized. Maya's lift the handle. He raised his staff and pressed it against the very jewel on her. "Seal it here." A mighty whirlwind of sealing magic burst from the staff. The totem, which still held Solomonia captive, was madly and irreversibly drawn toward the light. She shouted stop, but it was already too late. With the last flash, everything ended. God, what an exhausting fight it was. Abel, gasping for air, said, "There is no place for Solomonia in panic, in her astral form inside the headquarters confusion. What kind of attack is this? Why is someone from the Marin clan here?" She saw the totem floating before her, and it was terrifying. The totem spoke, its voice was ancient and calm, but the aura was meant for my old friend. "They suddenly disappeared as soon as we decided to come here, so I thought they went somewhere else." Abel smiled, his plan worked perfectly. "Who the hell are you?" Solomonia faltered. "Don't say you know, I am from the Marin clan, but it's so easy to defeat my old friend, turn him into a totem, and then seal me myself." Abel only replied, "So what am I supposed to do with you?" He raised the staff and it immediately trembled, filled with the colossal magical power of the demon. A staff with magic embedded inside. He thought, there are countless ways to use this. Solomonia just froze in complete horror. Suddenly, a woman nearby moved. Her stony skin cracked and crumbled, showing that she was returning to her usual state, and the peasants who had turned to stone were returning to normal again. Ah, soon everyone will wake up. And the fact that they find you with the staff of the very same mage who attacked the city meant terrible consequences. The belt pulled so hard that his hands could not hold. A burden he could not overcome. "I don't want to let this go, but let's just hide it somewhere." He rejected this thought. There is a better way out. With incredible strength, he threw the stick across the square. Night nausea and heavy cold slowly left him, and he finally came to. Aha, where is the enemy? At that moment, the staff jumped out of the sky and crashed onto the cobblestones right in front of him. Around them, the curse was retreating. People shouted with joy, finding their relatives safe and sound. Then their eyes fell on Gaston, who stood heroically before the staff of the defeated mage. The conclusion was instant and unanimous, so Gaston broke it, a miracle as befits a hero. The square exploded with thunderous salvation. "Thank you, you are our savior, Gaston." Gaston was completely bewildered. "What is happening? I don't remember anything from the moment I found myself in the square." Then a dangerous, egocentric thought took root in his head. Could it be that the superpower inside me has awakened? The applause and shouts of the crowd only grew louder, finally cementing his delusion. "Can I look at the scene with a sense of admiration and disbelief?" They are already creating a cult. Are you sure you're okay with this? She asked Abel. Mason was no less shocked. Abel-kun, what have you done? How did you? Then Abel simply smiled and to their surprise raised his fist up, joining the chorus of approval. Long live Gaston. And that is how the legend of Gaston, the hero of the kingdom of Dinrat, was born. His fame spread far and wide, growing out of pure chance without any skill to support it. And this reputation would later drag him into all sorts of adventures and troubles. But that is a story for another time. In the sunlit canyons of the kingdom of Dinrat, in the city of Asim stood a majestic library belonging to the faith of Kudal. May froze in horror. Her eyes widened with anxiety because it turned out he was trying to resurrect that evil monster, exactly the kind I thought. He was a bad person from the very beginning. She stared intently at the framed image of a terrible, otherworldly creature of incredible power. Her hands flew to her face in shock, and she, stumbling, recoiled backward along with the pile of books she was holding. Abel, however, remained completely calm. The people here believe in Yumal. It is a new religion, so their views are different. Maya, embarrassed, could only apologize and admitted that she did not know. He waved his hand at the library around them. This place belongs to the faith of Kujula, unlike most other religions in the kingdom of Dinrad. There are no persecutions of other doctrines here. Meanwhile, the conversation shifted to the man whose fame was now sweeping the entire country. Gaston, he was hailed as a hero. He resurrected the ancient demon Zalaman and saved entire villages from petrification. Gaston's fame did not just hold in Lamarn, it spread like wildfire. His name eventually reached the king himself. His rapid rise reached its peak when Queen Charlotte, the fourth ruler of the kingdom of Dinrad, personally signed him as the commander of her personal bodyguard unit. Abel revealed the cold, calculated truth behind the legend. Of course, Gaston is just a name, an unlucky man. I used to hide my own achievements. But now, when it has come to this, I can no longer cover for him. Fortunately, I saved quite a bit of money, so I decided to leave Lamarn before I got stuck in some troublesome story. He slammed a heavy stack of books onto the research table with a dull thud. I wonder what happened to him after that, Abel thought silently. I have no doubt people will quickly realize he has no experience as a soldier. I just hope the queen's anger over this humiliation doesn't reach me when that happens. A moment of silence froze. A shadow of thought passed over his face, as if he was already calculating what would happen to Gaston. To be honest, Gaston is quite resilient. I just hope he doesn't give up. But the situation was much more complicated. Even for Abel, it didn't make sense. In reality, Queen Charlotte desperately wanted Gaston's fame to work for her. As a political weapon, as a tool that strengthens her claims to the throne against her own brothers and sisters. So even if Gaston didn't have the strength for his position, she couldn't just dismiss him. And so Gaston, completely unaware of the great political game he was now involved in, simply matched luck, time, and confidence, and cemented his false reputation as a hero. But at that time, Abel knew nothing about these royal intrigues. By the way, Maya broke the silence. What are we researching? Abel tore his gaze away from the notes. I am looking for some magical device that I can use to spread Magical signals to promote the use of Magiphone. Maya's eyes flashed with understanding. Ah, Magiphone, that's the long-range magical handphone powered by magic. Didn't you tell me about it before? 3 hours had already passed and in silence focused, nothing unnecessary. All right, said Abel, stretching. For now, I'll just randomly flip through books here in this place, and you can read the ones you like. He returned to work and meticulously copied ancient texts. The task was exhausting. Different alphabets and signs from various regions and eras made the text incredibly difficult to decipher. He was especially struck by one book by an alchemist named Altamia, who died 80 years ago. The content was fascinating, but the writing style was deliberately confusing, as if the author wrote to mock his own readers. This alchemist is interesting, he has smart thoughts. If possible, I want to talk about this with someone my age. But if I am looking for someone who will live normally after 80 years, then I should have asked either elves or wise dragons, right? Yoruba. Suddenly Maya was next to him. She grabbed the book and exclaimed, "Look." On the cover was written, Wigner Journey Diary about the Yoruba people, author Urker Wigner. The name flashed in memory, immediately familiar. Winger, Maya beamed. Remember that old man from the research team when we went to explore Zesum Ruin, right? Her excitement was palpable. It turns out that guy fought a dragon for 3 nights and 3 days. And look, this book is so popular that they even write, the next volume will be out soon. Later, outside near the library, Maya's sighed. It's unbearably frustrating that they don't let us take books in our hands. Today I got a bunch of useful information. I think I'll come here again tomorrow. Then she turned to Abel and said, as I suspected, it would be good if you stopped fussing and finally made an effort to get promoted in the adventurer rank. If you have a high rank, then you can get the right to use some opportunities, right? Abel shook his head, but you understand. If I become too famous, it will be an unnecessary hassle and I lose my freedom. While he was speaking, a familiar voice called out, "Hey there, Abel-chan." It was Sheem, a traveler with F rank who helped them find housing, and back then, when they first arrived in Assam, directed them to the library. Maya excitedly told her about Wigner's diary, which they found. Sheem smiled. "This place is full of complicated books from which I can't understand anything. But there are also adventure books for ordinary people, you know." Sheem's tone changed sharply. "Also, I heard that some strange organization has been shining in Lammer recently. Do you know anything about it, Maya-chan?" Ebel and Maya looked at her surprised. Sheem continued, "I heard they have 2 horns and some kind of stone on their head. But Maya-chan, you don't have any stones on your head, right?" Ebel's blood froze. 2 horns and a precious stone on the forehead. It was exactly recognizable, the description of a doomed lineage. Why did they end up in Lammer? Maya faltered and objected, but her face turned pale with horror. Is there really somewhere further? They even got here to look for me. And the thought of this was unbearable for her. Her body stiffened. "Oh Maya," Abel exclaimed when she suddenly sharply leaned forward. He reached out to her, but it was too late. Maya sank to the ground unconscious. Far from here in Marin village, another crisis was unfolding. An angry crowd surrounded the elder's house, and their voices rose in a fierce chant, "Bring out the elder." "Say that Abel can no longer produce these leaves. What does that mean?" In the nearest house, Giselle desperately called her brother. She was restrained by a huge loyal beast. In the village elder's chief's house, a heated meeting was underway. "How did its details leak out?" demanded the chief. The old man slammed his fist on the table. "And it's obvious to everyone. What a fool. I knew right away inviting Norman to that meeting was a mistake. If he does that, the people who tasted Abel's leaves will not be satisfied with their leaves. Village head, what should we do?" The chief ran his fingers through his beard. His face was stern. "If we let this go unchecked, the unrest will never subside." His gaze hardened with determination. "We have no other choice." Watching the chaotic scene from a safe shelter in the forest, Giselle barely smiled. "Incredible," she whispered to herself. She pressed a thick, luxuriously decorated book tightly to her chest. "It really is as Shimshin said." A dark, calculating look flashed across her face. "They will quickly send a few people to soon find Nisama." She turned and walked deeper into the forest, leaving behind all this stormy turmoil. A young guy from the village rushed forward to catch up with her. "God, G. Gizzle-chan, just as I thought, something bad is up with this magical book, you know. Who is this Shim you keep talking about?" Gazelle just smiled and said nothing and continued on her way. A terrible promise formed in her thoughts, a message for her distant brother. "Just wait, Nisama. I know Abel stays with me only because he owes me money," she admitted quietly, "but this money means nothing to me. I only ask, let me join your travels." She gripped the pages tightly, determination hardening within her. "I don't want to go back home," and Abel was silent, absorbing the burden of her past. He remembered his own parents, those from the previous world and those from this one. They were too different, but none of them ever tried to stop him when he chose his path. He looked straight at Mia and his face was firm, without hesitation. "If you hate your hometown that much," he said, cutting through her despair with cold logic, "then go to hell with it." Her eyes widened sharply. He offered her a simple, brilliant solution. "If you are being chased, you can just run away and continue traveling together." For Mia, who was drowning in fear and despair, his words became a lifeline. Layla, overhearing, intervened. "Mia has suffered so much pain," she whispered, sighing. "If that's the case, then I will help too." She pointed out an obvious flaw in their plan. Mia and Abel stood out, so it was easy for pursuers to catch them, who could gather eyewitness testimony in Lamorna. "Sorry for causing trouble," Mia whispered. "Abel," he replied, as always too practically. "For now, we need to get out of here as quickly as possible and wait somewhere. But I still want to review the collection in the library." Leela pondered this. There is somewhere a place to lie down unnoticed, while Abel continues his research on magic. A plan began to form in her head. Far in the settlements of Marin Clan, on the edge of the Forest of Paths, a squad was gathering for the search. Their goal was one: to extract Abel. The entire settlement trembled in quiet panic. Abel was the only one who could grow their precious grow tobacco, foundation of their economy. To extract it, they would have to break the longest-standing and most sacred rule. Leaving the settlement is forbidden, and those who do will regret it. Abel's father bid his daughter goodbye. "Take care of our home, Gina." A young woman holding a heavy grimoire promised her mother, "Don't worry, we will definitely bring Nisama back." A young man named Falal looked at her worried. "Giselle," he began, "don't you think she is acting strange?" He couldn't exactly explain what, but her aura had completely changed. She had never parted with that strange grimoire. After Abel left, Gazelle threw herself into magical studies with feverish obsession, as if trying to catch up with him at any cost. The grimoire was a relic from her grandfather's library. She stared into the distance. The sudden disappearance of her fiancé remained an open wound. "Damn it, Abel," she hissed, clenching her fist, "after turning the whole village upside down for you to just disappear like that without a word. If I see you again, I will tell you exactly what I think." The leader of the Marin clan, look at the procession leaving. "Chief, is this really normal?" That's what his advisor asked him. The tribal chief fell silent for a moment, recalling an ancient law: whoever leaves the village will regret it. They were breaking a sacred tradition to bring Abel back. Without evidence, the old leader only squinted. His weapon of thought was cunning. "It seems to me that this means." His voice broke off, leaving in the air a hint of a deeper, hidden truth. Meanwhile, at the western gates of Lamarn, Miva's pursuers received new information. "Chief, we received a report from a witness," a subordinate reported. "They saw her on a cart drawn by horses heading to Sim. That's about 2 days' journey from here." He added, "It seems she is traveling with a blonde young man. His hair and clothes indicate he is from the Marin clan." The chief's eyes narrowed. "They say the Marini never leave their remote lands." The appearance of Marin clansmen was an unexpected variable in his calculation. Still, he ordered us to move to Assam. His troops confirmed the order and set out. Their path was immediately blocked by a line of soldiers. "Stop." The royal guard stepped forward to explain what was happening. The chief demanded. The guard replied, "A magical creature caused a massacre here yesterday, and now the cliffs are crumbling. It will take about a week to open a passage for travel. We will have to go around." The chief did not even slow his pace. "We are not bound by the laws of Dinroth." The guard awkwardly raised his spear. "Hey, keep going and you will be arrested for treason." The chief simply marched forward while the guards were already catching up to intercept him. With a single contemptuous motion, he shattered their intertwined spears. The grove split, cracking like dry twigs. A deep roar suddenly pressed into the canyon and the space cracked. A part of the huge cliff broke off from the wall and rushed like a stone straight at them. The kingdom guards screamed in pure horror. The chief, the father of Majonli, raised his gaze to the approaching stone mountain descending from above, and his face was filled with complete contempt. He pulled back, his fist power crackled around him. Then he struck not the stone but just the very air. From clenched fists burst a concussion explosion of force. A shockwave, with incredible power, struck the boulder. The mass of the rock instantly crumbled. It shattered into a hail of dust and small pebbles that fell down completely safely. The kingdom's guards could only freeze. Their minds were unable to process the catastrophic force they had just witnessed. Amid falling debris, the leader uttered one word. His voice was a low growl. He clenched his fist, and in his eyes flashed the fire of unconditional, terrible certainty. "I will return you." A long, strong wall winds through the hills, stretching as the boundary of a remote territory. On this land, Abel and Mia are examining the local vegetation while a market buzzes nearby. Someone calls his name and Abel restrains his gaze. Calm, precise, analytical. Dollard's servant approaches and asks why he ended up on the farm. Abel raises a handful of soil, explaining that he heard about trouble with magic grass and came himself to check the soil quality. The servant exclaims that he is shocked and notes, "Sir Abel is not only a master in exterminating magical beasts, but also quite knowledgeable in botany." Abel modestly replies that it was a subject he studied in his hometown. Then the butler asks if Abel is truly satisfied with his reward. For defeating an A-class magical beast, both the payment and the promotion should have been orders of magnitude greater. Abel just smiles and makes it clear that everything is fine. He begins to explain the true purpose of his mission. His only request is to give them shelter and a place to rest in Farge, a rural area in the far west of the country. For half a month, this territory was completely cut off from the world. Trade routes were blocked by a powerful magical creature that even experienced adventurers dared not challenge. It was on Shime's recommendation that they came here. The beast was a terrible three-headed dragon, a hydra of colossal strength, that spread fear throughout the entire region. But against Abel, who had colossal power, it had no chance at all. A blinding flash of power and the creature was felled. For such an incredible feat, the local lord greeted them as heroes. They refused the incredible reward, asking only for permission to hide on this land, a calculated move that stunned the locals. Abel explains his masterstroke to his butler. In return for service, he secured a promise of a research laboratory and constant supplies of materials, all to be prepared tonight. In this remote area, where trade is almost non-existent, he found the perfect place to work in complete solitude. May looks at him worried. "You go through so much trouble because of me," she begins, but Abel brushes off her worries with a confident smile. He says he doesn't believe it. They are already being pursued to the very edge of the Dinlat state. The foundation of their new life now stands firm. Mia asks, "What did you even want to say with all this?" Abel continues and explains. "Staying here is convenient for her too." He will be able to calmly conduct his research while they provide all necessary conditions in a guarded laboratory, all thanks to the patronage of the local lord. Mia notices the soil is amazingly high quality, not like in her hometown. Probably because of this, magical power affects it so much, which is why the harvests turn out bad. Abel admits an interest in agriculture and tells about a past experiment how he tried to mass-produce grass by basing it on magic. Mia smiles, simply happy to have found a new project to take on. Yes, Abel confirms decisively, I will manage. Raising his hand in triumph, he proclaims his grand dream. I will start a new sensation in the magical world from here, from this corner of the rural area. A group of local guards watches from afar, baffled by the wandering mage who defeated a three-headed dragon, whispering among themselves about how strange he looks. Far beyond the walls of Lomirn, the great commercial city of the kingdom of Dinlat, a handful of nobles lose their balance from shock. The news had been true all along. They complain about their misfortune. They just escaped from a pack of magical beasts and ended up in a strange town. Leaving the settlement is forbidden, one warned, and whoever listens and still goes will regret it. The leader of the group tries to gather the panickers, but they only wail that they want to go home. Two younger members of the group, a boy and a girl, watch this pitiful spectacle with contempt. The girl noted that Giselle, Abel's sister, handled the magical monsters chasing her quite impressively. They discussed the search for Abel. They found witnesses, but within the town there was no trace. The locals met them with hostility and forcibly dumped their investigative work on them. In the silence of the deep forest, Gazelle flips through a large ancient folio. She lifts her eyes from the book. Her face is troubled. The trail of the big brother ends here, and her mood falls. She thinks, at this speed we will return to the settlement. Holding on to hope, she decides that they must wait for a favorable sign, confident that they are getting closer to the place where Abel is, under the light of the full moon. Returning to the farm in Farge, the sky seems to part like gates and a furious, continuous downpour begins. Abel looks up at the rain and his face twists with panic. The peasant hired hands see him standing in the storm and shout for him to come back into the house before he catches a cold. But Abel shouts in despair that the sprouts of the totemic pumpkin crop he planted have been washed away by the rain. He builds a tower in the structure Ashura 5000 and it rises from the ground. While the golem charges its weapon, Abel declares that he is going to scatter the very rain clouds themselves. Pointing the weapon-like arm of the golem at the sky, he released a powerful spell. He sang, "O wind's terror." The magic circle flashes as the huge energy gathers together, and cutting through the air slices space. The spell tears the sky, physically cuts through the clouds, and reveals a clear sky beyond. The rain stops instantly, the gaze of the farmer and desperate rejection and even laughter with triumph. He shouts, "Nothing is impossible for me." But already the next day, at the Lord's estate, Abel lies bedridden, exhausted to the limit, feverish. Mia rushed to him as he murmured through whispers that his life might end here, and it felt not like an ordinary cold. The doctor assures frightened Mia that by tomorrow everything will be fine with him, and Abella scolds him for running into the fields and orders him to rest. That evening Mia sits by his bed and promises not to leave. She heard from the locals, the World Tree Totem watches over his pumpkins. While Abel sleeps peacefully, Mia lays her head nearby and keeps a vigilant watch. A thin but so brightly brilliant spot of light trembles on Mia's forehead. The light detaches and slowly stretches toward Abel, and he suddenly feels his consciousness clearing as the fever subsides. A stream of flickering particles flows from Mia to Abel, then bends and flies out the window. The light trail glides over the estate and disappears into the night sky. It continues its ascent, drawing a dazzling streak over the cosmos. Above the mountains, the light gathers together, a cross-shaped symbol grows with radiance and flares up, illuminating the sky. Giselle and her semi-dark companions in hoods watch the celestial event. This is the omen she was waiting for. Both she and the leading mage froze, staring upward in surprise. They understood that this divine sign points the way. Returning to the manor the next morning still comes. Abel stirs in his sleep and suddenly sits up. He rises and feels completely rested. Suddenly he is pierced by a flash of thought, a memory of the dream. There is no time to waste, he exclaims and jumps out of bed. He rushes out of the room, excitedly telling the stunned Mia that he must test the magic circle he saw in the dream. On the hill behind Lord's Manor, Abel unleashes a devastating burst of power into the sky, so much so that the earth splits open with a deep, huge trench. Maya can only freeze in complete shock and fear, watching the blatant display of power. Could it really have worked? Abel exclaims, thrilled by the result of his new inspiration. Out loud he must admit that probably these incredible ideas come to him every time he falls ill. Mia still shuddered. She fears that the Lord himself will punish them for damaging his property. Abel ignores her, is already thinking about the next step. He needs a worthy reason for destruction, but first he must name this powerful new technology. When he freezes and listens to the sound of someone landing on the ridge above them, a sharp whistle cuts through the air. A group in hoodies appears as black silhouettes against the sky. Their leader, a stern man with distinct horns, looks down and speaks solemnly, coldly, without hesitation. I have found you. As a leader and as a father, he stood unwavering, the burden of duty gathered in his gaze. The morning silence in the nearby town was shattered by a gruesome sight. Two travelers on the road headed towards Lord's mansion, and a column of smoke rose from the mountain behind. They quickened their pace, haste is felt in every movement. But their road was suddenly blocked. Nearby stood a squad of majestic figures in white hooded robes before them, their leaders, and the gaze of each radiated an aura of unquestionable supremacy. Meanwhile, Abel, completely unaware, called Mia. He stretched and felt the effects of his long rest. Let's go have breakfast, he announced. I was bedridden for a while, so I was really hungry. Mia waved her hand at the ravaged landscape around them, the result of his previous battle. If they find this, won't the Lord be very angry? She asked. Abel just smiled. Exactly. I'll fix it later with a construction totem. When they set off for the city, he noticed the bustle. The city was indeed noisy even so early. A voice called out from the side. It was one of the travelers who managed to bypass the figures in robes. Ah, exactly. Maybe it's about this young lady, he said, pointing at Mia. Sir, a guest has come to you. Figures in white robes emerged from the trees, and their appearance chilled the air. Mia froze and her face turned pale with pure horror. Her eyes widened as soon as she saw their leader, a man with familiar horns and a grim expression. It was her father. Dad, she whispered, not believing her own words. The man's gaze did not leave her and his voice sounded low and firm. Mia. The order left no room for objections, but Mia could only silently watch, confused and frightened. Before she could respond, Abel squeezed between them, shielding her. Mia said she doesn't want to return to you, he announced, and his voice sharply cut through the silence. If you don't care about her, just leave her alone. He finally heard her voice. Her fear turned into anger. You abandoned me all this time, and now suddenly you come back to take me back. What is your reason? The man's expression remained stern, unchanged. So Mia's power is finally beginning to awaken, he said, as if that explained everything. Abel shuddered. What are you talking about? The father's patience ran out. His eyes narrowed into a poisonous, angry glare. Step back, brat. Abel did not move. Instead, he raised his hand. An imaginary circle of magic, filled with lines and symbols, flared up. Teleportation, he said calmly, as if talking about the weather. In an instant, a gigantic multi-armed totem rose from the air and, rumbling, crashed down between them with the force of a meteor. Men masked in mantles shuddered in shock. Matt, right on the mark, Abel ordered to drag her to the construct. The totem immediately rushed forward, raising a huge cloud of dust like their path to escape. It rushed through the forest, tearing them out of the very clash. On board the rushing totem, Abel's thoughts spun wildly. He is not like someone you can negotiate with. How did they manage to track our location? Suddenly, the ground exploded before them. Ian Abel burst out screaming from shock. Standing in the trench he had dug himself, and moving faster than their eyes could follow, Mia's father completely blocked their path. Abel's face grew harder. It seemed we had no choice left but to fight. He turned to Mia and his voice became deathly serious. Mia, all right if I destroy your father and his men? Her eyes widened with fear, but the answer was firm. I don't want to go back. Oh yes, Abel shouted and sharply thrust his hand forward. A new magical circle had just appeared. Earthly fury. The ground beneath me suddenly tore apart. My father and his men forcefully ripped it open, and pillars of stone burst forth from the depths. The leader only gritted his teeth, resisting the magical onslaught. Abel didn't finish. Go, Ashura, he commanded, and his battle golem charged into battle. The fist flared with power. Gather the blurred foreground, a marvel of magical engineering. But his father dodged the blow with impossible ease. He twisted through the hail of the golems, attacks a phantom on the battlefield. Abel froze in disbelief. He keeps pace with Ashura's movements. The old man is a monster. The prince saw his chance. He rolled aside from the blow and pressed his fist right into Ashura's torso. The impact was colossal. The ground cracked beneath the golem itself. Abel reacted instantly. Oh, earth, become a wall. From the ground, a towering barricade of solid stone burst out like a whirlwind, blocking the leader's path. But that was no obstacle at all. The wall shattered like glass. Torn to pieces by his wild physical strength, he got out from under the debris and was not at all confused. He again closed the distance and moved forward to finish Ashura, ready to tear the golem to pieces. But Abel had already prepared the next move. Above him, 5 spheres of pure, condensed energy flared up. Heidi magic metal, he barked. The 5 orbs shot forward like cannons, converging on a single target. A series of devastating explosions shook the forest. Everything was covered with dust and smoke, and the dazzling light cut the eyes. The chief did not try to dodge, he only focused and prepared to take the blow. He was engulfed by the explosion. When the smoke began to disperse, Abel watched the epicenter intently. Did I probably overdo it, he thought. The stone clinked and thudded on the ground. From the smoky haze that was dissipating, a figure emerged. It was Mia's father, clothes slightly torn, but the body completely unharmed. There was not even a scratch on him. Abel's eyes sharply widened in pure shock. The leader's gaze was analytical, called a mage from Marin. He processed the information with frightening speed. The fact that a representative of the tribe, which had not left its settlement for over 150 years, was now on Mia's side means the distortion of the world is growing and becoming more extensive. Ignoring the deep consequences of that statement, Abel ordered his golem Ashura, but the chief no longer paid any attention to what was happening to the construct. His burning gaze was fixed only on his daughter, but Maya. He growled a thick voice, mixing anger and clarity, a stubborn goal. The rumble of silent thunder, and he unleashed his true power. He grabbed Ashura, the golem forged from magic and steel, with his bare hands. With a grip that defied all logic, he began to squeeze and crush it. The sound of tearing metal and cracking spells filled the air. The golem, which had endured incredible torture, was now being torn to pieces like paper. The armored projectile bent, cracked, and shattered under colossal unshielded pressure. Abel and Mia could only freeze in absolute horror. How the pinnacle of magical mastery was destroyed right before their eyes. Bathed in silence, the clearing looked like complete devastation. Before them, the mighty guardian Ashura Lee was defeated and his power, shattered, powerless, frozen. Above the fallen creature towered the majestic figure of the leader of the doomed clan, a cold, unwavering gaze. Abel froze in shock, not believing his eyes while his mind raced, trying to comprehend what should not have been possible. A cold fury washed over him like a wave. It responded with a roar. He sharply thrust his hands forward, and the intertwined magical circle flared up, coming to life. A storm of sharp, blade-like airstreams thundered over the commander, a spell of such power that it could shred steel. The wind spell scattered along the invisible barrier, and the leader was thrown back. He flipped in the air, then landed gracefully on his feet, completely unharmed. He stood silently and watched, as if Abel's feeble attack was just a minor inconvenience. The silence in the forest pressed on the chest. Abel panted, his thoughts racing. And you, your father. It was incredible, he confessed to Mia. Did it enhance his movements with magic? I don't understand how he so easily destroyed Shura, a creature of magic. Mia shook her head. It's a secret technique. It was passed down by descendants. I believe your master knew a similar technique with a wooden staff. She explained, it is a physical art. It strengthens the body by channeling magical power through it. And such a trick requires colossal control, often with the help of totems. It was a secret, jealously guarded technique, so difficult to learn that even Abel tried and failed. Their principles are completely different from my magic. Abel was silent, analyzing the new data. How does the Doom clan control this? He insisted on more information. Is there any tool like the totems of the Marin clan? If I knew the source of his power, I could find a vulnerable spot. They say that the crystal in the center of the forehead of the Doom clan holds the power that the chief's voice pierced through the air, calm, commanding, strong. Magic was controlled through spirit unification. He looked at Mia. She had already been told not to use magic, a pity, as she skillfully senses spirits in the air. Abel's eyes suddenly widened with understanding. They were simply looking down on her because she did not have a crystal. The puzzle came together, the pieces clicked into place. A comprehensive explanation of how he could precisely determine our location. Abel grimly turned to Mia. Sorry, the tools I took, the world tree totem, they emit a distinct aura. The situation was critical. The chief was not chasing them for the gems, he was chasing the daughter. If we stay here any longer, they will find us in a moment. Abel calculated. And if I use magic, the aura will reveal our location. And after Ashura's destruction, we won't be able to face him one-on-one. There was no time to devise a perfect strategy. The ground trembled as soon as the chief closed the distance. His speed was otherworldly, and his presence was suffocating. Each step cracked the earth beneath his boots. He stopped just a few steps away, an invincible, elemental force of nature. Abel raised his hands, a gesture of peace. I surrender, a voice without any emotion. Right now, I see no way to defeat you. The chief hesitated and his face revealed nothing. However, he added, I respect the one who respects me. But May had her own choice. With a defiant scream, she pulled out a sharp dagger and pressed the cold steel to her own throat. I will not return, she shouted, her voice trembling but firm. If you try to bring me back, I will end my life right here. The leader snorted defiantly. Don't pretend to be a price tag, a performance. Abel's calm finally cracked. Chasing after his own daughter until she has to run away is the act of the worst father. He barked so loudly that his voice echoed among the trees. Mia was always lonely, everyone ignored her and kept her locked away. The only thing she wanted was to see the world. He spoke about his past, about parents who were distant or demanding, and about how he was still allowed to have his own pursuits. You isolated your daughter and did not let her do what she wanted. Bringing her back is the same as death. This is the only resistance we can offer. You think this is a performance? He was forced to answer. His gaze burned like embers. You think Mia can't do it? Then I will do it myself. No matter how fast you move, my strike from the game body will be faster. Angry at the boy's disobedience, the chief struck his fist into the ground. The stone beneath him shattered. That was it, Gambit. Abel's mind flashed with lightning speed. Whatever the reason, he clearly wants to bring her back alive, he thought. To create a chance, we need to stage a performance. He gave me a clever look. Just a little bit will be enough. If we confuse him, he will lose concentration. That's when I will turn his wonderful sense right against him. Earth, create a wall capable of command. From the earth grew a huge barricade of solid rock. It blocked the leader's path. It was a futile gesture. The chief pierced it through with one contemptuous strike, and the wall shattered into a cloud of dust and debris. He emerged from the ruins not at all damaged. Under the leader's feet, the earth suddenly rumbled and boiled. A chaotic whirl of earth and stones rose to cover him. He stood firm against the onslaught, and his strength was colossal. His eyes narrowed. He focused on the magical attack. However, it was all in vain. As soon as the chief was distracted, a small wooden totem appeared in the air behind him. I teleport the world tree totem, imbued with my magical power, Abel declared, executing the true core of his plan. The totem pulsed with an aura identical to Abel's aura. While he is confused, the boy will decide that it is my aura. The master shuddered. His senses were overwhelmed. In a moment of confusion, Abel had already begun his final invocation. O spirits who created the earth, here and now forge. Thick, mighty strands of frozen earth burst from the ground. Clinging to the leader's body, it found his arms and legs completely. He writhed, muscles straining in the bonds, but could not break free from. When the opponent was immobilized, Abel revealed his masterful move. In his hands appeared a new weapon, long and flexible. Hidden Manga metal transformation technique. He declared it so that his voice rang with triumph. I call it Abel Whip. He swung the arcane weapon with all his might. The whip cracked through the air, snapping loudly, and with a swing struck the captured leader with devastating force. The blow was colossal. It pushed with such a shockwave that the trees around them cracked right before their eyes. The whip itself snapped, and its purpose was fulfilled in one perfect strike. Mersif, leader of the Doom tribe, spoke, his voice cut through the silence. Why are you chasing Mia? The strong chief, tightly bound by Abel's magical whip, stubbornly remains silent. His face is a mask of contempt. Abel's gaze was sharp, intelligent, like a scalpel. Let's say, if this is about the ornaments that Mia took from the world tree in Ramen City, then the chief's pupils almost imperceptibly dilated. Abel pressed his advantage, his intellect, like a rapier. You were following his tracks and Asher's magical power, right? Asher, I mean the wooden doll that you completely destroyed. A burst of rough, wild power broke out from Murasef. You still have the strength to resist, Abel noted, surprised by the chief's resilience. With a raging roar, Murasef strained against the chains, and magical energy crackled around him. But it was in vain. Abel simply commanded whip seasoning. The magical construct instantly tightened, with a rumble pressing the mighty warrior back into the ground and breaking his resistance in a cloud of dust. Mananasev growled in pain and clenched his teeth. Even if one or two bones were supposed to be damaged, what is happening to your body? Abel focused intently on the opponents, assessing their natural endurance. The chief raised his gaze, his expression mixed rage and reverence. The metal transformed instantly. The control was terrifyingly precise. The magic worked flawlessly. Is this the power you gained by exploiting my daughter? What are you talking about? Abel asked, pretending not to understand. Last night I saw a symbol floating in the sky. Murasef revealed it, and his voice was low and gloomy. That was Mia's power. As the prophecy foretold, he stared at Abel, and in his eyes already smoldered a cold, inevitable certainty. I don't know what your goal is, but most likely you approached my daughter because you felt, as a sorcerer, you could take control of her power. Mom, who had been silently listening until now, was completely confused. Dad, what is this even? Two men stared intently at each other. A chasm of secrets yawned between them. Marissa finally spoke, and his voice dragged with heavy ancient sorrow. Do you honestly speaking know nothing at all? A gloomy silence fell over the plains. 4,000 years ago, he began to look far beyond. God protector of this land, God Kudur, declared war on the malevolent sky god Silpum and imprisoned him in the moon. It is said that in exhaustion Kudur fell asleep after that battle. Somewhere in this land to recover. Abel listened attentively, absorbing divine wisdom. Now almost only the elves of Sky Kingdom know about this but in Murasef's eyes fierce tragic pride flared up. We, the tribe of fate, are descendants of the lineage created by the heavenly god. Mir and Abel froze in shocked silence. What did you say? The chief continued his Talia story, woven directly into the very fabric of his people's existence. He created the tribe doomed by the sky god to raise a military force capable of standing against the god Kudur. And the legend says, the god of the sky was sealed in the moon by the god Kudur. Exhausting his strength, Kudur closed the god of the sky and himself fell asleep. But before he was sealed, the sky poured the living volume into the body of the ancestor of the doomed tribe. Live for me, Abel repeated, and a subtle understanding flashed in his eyes. Medes shifted his gaze to his daughter Me. Her eyes sharply widened in shock. It's you. The weight of his words fell on them. We, the cursed doomed tribes born of the god of the sky, were forgiven and granted permission to live on the land of Dinret. The god Kudur allowed this. And beyond that point, the tale is probably unknown even to the elves. The god of the sky is gathering strength to resurrect on the moon. Only a few in our tribe have inherited this prophecy. He looked at me, his face was stern. After 2,000 years, the descendant of doom will become a powerful weapon for the god of the sky. Wait a moment, Abel interrupted, and fragments of the cosmic puzzle clicked, assembling into one picture. I don't know if this is a legend of your people or something like that. But how do you know about the revival of ancient evil from mythological times, and where exactly the god Kudur resides? The conversation about the moon festival in May never ended. It is believed that on the day when the moon approaches once every 500 years, the magical power of all living beings on the entire planet sharply intensifies, so different countries and religions hold some forms of celebrations. Abel's mind was feverish, and he seemed to reckon that it should be somewhere around 6 months from now. Even in that town, they said that with the resumption of trade, preparations for the festival would move forward right. He glanced at Murasef. A new terrible theory was forming in his head. So what do you think about the frequent cases when magical beasts have recently gone mad in various regions? Medisev's gloomy face became the very confirmation he needed. Abel recalled recent events. The disaster with a magical creature in Ramen, the appearance of the demon Zalaman, and unprecedented riots that were not supposed to be in recorded history at all. I even remember that, even Nargalin, who blocked the trade route in the territory of Phage. Our doomed tribe is a race created by the sky god, explained Morsef. There was a weight of duty in his voice. For 2,000 years we have lived peacefully. We have no need to show loyalty to our creator, the sky god, but if there is even the slightest chance that the riots will bring our cursed offspring, the one who will become a weapon for the sky god, we cannot give it away. He looked at his daughter with deep sorrow. Kent's Maya, like a shapeless stone, was isolated in a fortress surrounded by a barrier. He closed his eyes. I did not know how effective the barrier was, but I thought she needed to be kept hidden at least until the moon festival in 15 years. Mia's voice trembled. Why didn't you tell me? Tears welled up in her eyes as the truth shattered her old resentment. If I had known it would be like this, I would not have hated my family, and I wouldn't have run away either. 15 years ago, Morsav confessed the memory still hurts. When I realized that my newborn child was cursed, like the tribe leader, I had to remove any possibility that could bring a crisis to the world. The image of him holding the baby daughter in his arms flashed in his mind, but He stubbornly held her gaze and pain splashed in his eyes. The reason I allowed you to live is my own selfishness. May froze in place. The revelation crashed down on her with a roar. I am the weapon that the god of evil will use when he resurrects. Meanwhile, on the ridge of the mountain beyond 2 hills, a shining symbol flared in the night sky. This is indeed a good sign, a whisper of a voice from the darkness. Giselle stood at the edge of the cliff, her eyes burning with excitement. Big brother is there, right? Just as Simsan said, I feel the magical power of my big brother rising from that side. She tightly held the grimoire. A triumphant smile blazed on her face. Cuckoo. I don't know why, but it's strange that everything is going so smoothly in my favor. The book pulsed with dark energy. Without a doubt, this is my father's will. I will make not only Abel mine but also that girl. Her smile was the embodiment of unquestionable confidence. Yes, of course, I knew it. I knew Big Brother wanted to return home, right? The truth which was already chasing her, she finally managed to voice standing before her father, the demon Lord Murasef. I am the weapon that the evil god will use when he resurrects. A terrible realization surged like a wave. If my father's words are true, I am a being who will ultimately bring disaster to this entire continent. Even the recent surge of Abel's magical power, it could have been stirred by the fact that within me sleeps the power of the heavenly God. Her thoughts instantly rush to him, and her heart tightens with fear. What would Abel think? That he might be gripped by horror that the magic he believed in as his own was actually born of someone's dark influence. Fear bound me so tightly that I couldn't even move. Could it be that he no longer wants me to be near? She approached him hesitantly, and her voice barely trembled in a whisper. Abel. As he turned around, his face became incomprehensible for a moment. But then his face broke into a dazzling, almost manic smile, and his eyes flashed with pure, unadulterated delight. Mina's father could only stare silently, completely stunned by his reaction. Abel's mind was already racing wildly. He connected the variables so quickly that no normal person could keep up. He turned to Mirzef, and his voice rang with discovery. So if you're telling the truth, then Mia's mission is to give the servants of the heavenly god power when he breaks the seal so they can conquer the world. The implications were staggering. That's why, as a sorcerer, I felt the influence of Mia being near me. Thanks to this, I was able to invent powerful magic. He recalled one key moment. Even what I managed to invent, it happened during a nightmare at the inn in Ramen. A new theory suddenly formed in his head. Maybe when my mind is clouded, I become more vulnerable to external influence. He sharply turned to the stunned Mia, and in his gaze was genuine gratitude. And yet, since I was with you, I was able to release my power without even realizing it. Thank you, Mia. She was still reeling from shock. Don't you have at least a little fear or a strange feeling about all this? If the prophecy is true, I will ultimately bring disaster to this country. But Abel saw only opportunity. What are you talking about? How could I pass by something so interesting, huh? He clenches his hands, restrains enthusiasm, and now it overflows everything. From now on, please stay close to me as an object for magical research. Murasif observed the exchange of remarks. A moment of understanding flashed in his eyes. Exactly. If we understand what is happening, then we have no reason to be enemies. Abel notices the moment and extends his hand to the demon lord, a bold political gesture. I will also help protect us. Let's handle this together, father. Murazit's face twisted with rage. You, just look, you have no right to call me father. Despite the rage, the demon lord thought pragmatically. And with the power of this boy, if you say you will protect her, do you have a plan? Abel's firm, confident smile did not tremble at all. Yes, about that. In 20 minutes they stood before the Phage mansion. The Lord himself was in a state of complete panic, pointing at the horizon with a trembling finger. Lord Abel, what does this mean? Behind them the mountain was torn in half, the landscape was ravaged, the local nobles froze in horror, and Abel, calm amid this chaos, simply said, He solemnly waved his hand toward Marizef and his entourage. Yes, I called them here. The goods were torn apart in confusion, huh? While every noble's gaze was fixed on him, Abel began to weave his story. I talked about this with Milord yesterday, didn't I? About investigating the cause of low harvests in this area. This man, you know, is a real expert. He pretended to apologize. You see, the expert was busy. We didn't know when he would arrive. I forgot to tell you that we would conduct excavations. Forgive me. He continued the story, and with each moment it became more intricate, because he loves research even more than I do. As soon as he arrived, apparently, he got so excited about the matter he had never seen before. And he couldn't sit still, right, Mr. Expert? While the stunned lord did not have time to object further, Abel bowed. Sorry for causing such a commotion at such an early hour. We will use magic to restore the place that was destroyed, and everything will return to how it was. Skillfully dispelling the tension, Abel led the group into the ravaged landscape. Well then, first let's make a totem for the construction work, huh? Murazif surveyed the area, and a grim expression froze on his face. There is too little magical power in this wooden log. At times like this, I again feel how blessed the environment in the marine settlement is. His tone broke into urgency. Do you think you will find a solution if you just sit and wait? While we speak, the time of the resurrection of the sky god is already approaching. Abel's gaze crawled upward, the terrifying sign that had appeared surfaced in his memory. Indeed, as soon as the shield, like the one protecting our village, disappears, the sign of magic will flare up in the sky again, and waiting is futile. The servants of the sky god will most likely immediately catch this scent. What is this ancient Doomtribe barrier? Abel asked. Can anyone here explain the magical formula and all the details? Murzef shook his head, then pulled out a small hexagonal wooden artifact. In that case, I have a magical tool to build a temporary barrier here. The object was covered with ancient inscriptions, and in the very center a single precious stone. This is a shard from ancient ruins brought from the settlement, Morisef explained. If we return to the settlement, it will become even more powerful. Abel studied the artifact, his mind counted blow after blow. Honestly, this does not look good, Murzef admitted. I do not know how powerful the sky god's force is, but at this level of reach, even I, a sorcerer, see right through it immediately. Abel had already formed a polygonal strategy. I would like to gather a bit more information. While we return to the Doom settlement for some time, we can also collect research and materials from here. So to everyone from Doom, please help clear the local area. Let's do everything we can here, and then we will figure out what to do next. He called his own creation. So let's go help the World Tree Totem do its job. Mia will help too, teleport. And just as the talisman turned out to be material, Murasov shouted, "Wait." He was intently staring at the wooden figure, so yes. It couldn't be. It seemed to me that I had seen this somewhere before. And I remembered the Demon Lord said this, his gaze flickering between the totem and the ancient relic in his hand. Could it really be made from the same material as this barrier magical instrument? The realization struck Abel like lightning. The thing is, this is exactly the base of this magical instrument. It is made from the World Tree. I didn't notice because it was so ancient and worn down. Yes, we found this place last night as soon as we saw the symbol that appeared in the sky above this land. That's when I understood that Mia had been here. Mia connected another piece of the puzzle. It happened when I had a high fever at the inn in Ramen. While Abel was having a nightmare upon waking, he unconsciously formed a huge magical circle in the air. If the sign really appeared as a reaction to the power Mia influenced me with, then Murasef-san and others should have figured out where we were 2 months ago. Nirezef nodded grimly. I have been chasing Mia since that same time 2 months ago, but I have never seen a reaction of this kind. The answer hung in the air, simple, visible to all, the sacrificial totem of the World Tree. So it turns out it didn't work last night, Mia asked, and Abel had already put everything together. I'm not sure, but maybe physical distance also affects it. Last night I sent the World Tree Totem to patrol the fields. Now that you mention it, it wasn't near me. The theory began to strengthen. Technics naturally have the power to hide themselves from evil entities like a barrier, Abel explained. And if the World Tree can strengthen barriers, then totems made from it should have even stronger barrier capabilities. It was a breakthrough. The World Tree worth taking a closer look. What do you think? Said Abel, turning to his companions. A spark flashed in her eyes. I immediately understood. It really was no coincidence fate brought us together. But then a more mundane thought flashed through her mind. What a problem. When I think about it, I still haven't paid her the amount from the time we bought it. But Abel had already moved on to the next phase. First, we need to gather information on where the World Tree is located. Morissette tried to interrupt the conversation. Enough, wait, there are still things I need to finish. Thalan, we are immediately setting out to scout the World Tree. Suddenly Marisif's head shot up and his gaze hardened. Get ready, he barked to his people, and a wave of colossal, evil energy crashed down on them. This feeling, a demon probably, asked one of his men. Something creepy is already sneaking up. Marisif confirmed, squinting, no way. Abel paled. Hey, what already? Perhaps the appearance of the mark from last night warned not only us but also the servants of the heavenly god. The voice of Myra Zepha sounded like a low growl. They are coming. The knight's detachment ascended the hill and crowned it with a crest. Abel's blood ran cold in his veins. He recognized their flawless white and gold armor. He recognized the woman leading them. His voice broke into a strangled whisper. He froze in complete shocked silence, unable to comprehend how she ended up here. The voice from the grimoire echoed in Giselle's head, a memory from the very beginning of its existence. When I was born, the first thing I saw was a giant light. Ethereal, swirling darkness in a blinding sphere. I do not know why, but somehow I managed to recognize in it the one who created me. The name of my creator is Silpum. To me, he is a being like a father. The flow of information poured into his embryonic consciousness, revealing the grand and tragic history of his creator. It learned how his father was defeated and sealed by another god, and that now he sleeps, waiting for the perfect moment to be resurrected. And then I found myself among countless shadows all larger than me. They appeared in the world before me, so they were like older brothers to people. Their father's last command echoed in each of them: to descend to the surface, plunge the world into chaos, and from the shadow prepare the foundation for my return. To secure on the surface that spellbook prepared for the next monthly festival ritual Dinmei. We descended to the surface. The voice was still pouring out so that when our father resurrects, the invasion could continue without obstacles. But despite the fact that his comrades had incredible strength, he stirred up riots and unleashed magical beasts to wreak havoc across the Lanthi's creature was different. Its own magic was extremely weak. The only gift, his only power, is the subtle ability to influence the hearts of the weak. The first attempts were catastrophic. She tried to seize the powerful magical creature, but in the process her own essence was almost completely devoured. Then it settled on an average magician until a group of travelers quickly spotted it and immediately subdued it, just after laughing at its pathetic presence. What a loser, they mocked. I thought it was a low-level demon because it had no aura. The humiliation burned out inside him. The only thing driving him forward was a desperate, powerful urge to prove that he existed and to be useful to his father just like his older brothers. But she had no strength at all. Even approaching the one who was truly strong seemed impossible. And then from the place where it was hiding, it saw him. A young wizard traveling with companions. The demon instantly recognized his power. He was not an ordinary man. If only it were possible to lure him to the warehouse, if only it were possible to seize that vessel. In its current state, it could not capture a person of that level. It was necessary to find a weakness, something, anything that could be used. And then it found the perfect key. A young woman was reading a book in a distant town. Dear brother. She whispered quietly. How to get that guy? Suddenly, a figure appeared on the road ahead. I wanted to see you, dear brother. It was Giselle, calm on the face and holding a familiar grimoire in her hands. Abel froze and a cold fear ran through his body. Gazelle, why are you here? Abel asked confusedly, and do you two know each other? His voice trembled. She is my younger sister. In Lord Graham's eyes darkened, he felt a dissonant energy. This strange glow comes from that book. Maya sharply exhaled. Could it be that someone has subordinated her, a demon? Gazelle stepped closer. Sorry, dear brother. It turned out that I made you come to such a remote place where you really didn't need to be. She gave a gentle, soothing smile. I have regretted since then that I checked on you. You were scared because you broke the rules, right? But the situation in the village has changed. She extended her hand. Now even father will definitely forgive you. Let's go back to the village together. Abel stared and his thoughts raced wildly. It was not like that, Giselle. Gazelle, step away from that grimoire, Abel shouted, and instinct screamed, danger. This thing is deadly dangerous. And his sister just smiled. All thanks to Simsan, he guided me here from the very beginning using divination. Maya's jaw dropped. Gazelle's gaze was firm. I am Gazelle Balak and I am betrothed to my brother Abel. Chaos flared up. Lord Graham exploded with rage. You damn bastard, Wyatt, what were you trying to do with my daughter? The serene face of Gazelle disappeared, and instead a cold gaze appeared, directed straight at Mia. And who exactly are you? She demanded sharply. May groaned embarrassedly. Well, I am Abel's Gazelle. She was sharply cut off by her voice. What is your relationship with my brother? In the book, the demon savored his victory. I was really very lucky. Who would have thought that the girl who was following Abel was the very magical tome that father left behind? His plan was perfect, 1-to-1, I knew it. There is no one more worthy than me to become father's confident successor. His voice whispered in her head, bring Abel together, definitely ignore the girl next to him. Do exactly as I say, older brother. Abel froze and stared at the changed girl in front of him. Who is she? Now the voice coming from Gazelle's lips was contemptuous. Gazelle, just ignore the girl next to him. Don't you think you're being too familiar? But Gazelle's own will faltered for a moment. Simsan, please be quieter, she said and clenched the book. Mia looked at Abel confusedly. A buzzing in the throat. Who is this, your sister, talking to Abel? Abel's eyes were fixed on the grimoire. She was probably the one holding the book under control. Lord Graham grimaced. His demonic senses decomposed the energy into components. No matter what anyone says, apparently, his power is limited by how much he can influence the mind. Most likely, he is just a low-level demon. The demon's consciousness twitched with offense. Low-level demon, how dare they, and both brothers and sisters dared to mock me. Dark energy burst out of the book in a wave. Dazel held her breath, her body petrified, as the grimoire fell from her hands. She looked up and saw a twisted, sinister smile spreading across her face. Her eyes became black abysses with eerie white pupils. Lord Graham's eyes widened in horror. The demon had taken over her body. The possessed gazelle enjoyed the new vessel and declared its dominion. Now I control this body. She pointed her finger directly at Abel. Abel, obey me. Abel gritted his teeth. The demon's voice sounded triumphant. Don't try to do anything better, know this. I hold your sister's life in my grip. Lord Graham quickly assessed the new dire situation. If we don't defeat her quickly, we will be in trouble. We must do it, even if it means putting that girl in danger. She might reveal herself. Mio to Sky God, possessed simply without a smile, else smiled. Bring my doll here. A small wooden totem flew into her hand. She raised it high above her head. Energy swirled around her like a vortex. O power of life, gather here. The ground cracked and shattered into fragments beneath her feet as she unleashed colossal power. Energy converged, it beat with a pulse and rang wildly. Both Abel and Lord Graham stood stunned, watching as all the raw magical power burst outward. The totem shot from her hand like a bullet and flew straight at Mia. Oh no, Lord Graham, shouted Lord Graham. But it was not an attack. The voice of the swallowed gazelle rustled with a sharp whisper, and sleep was falling. Mommy's eyes suddenly opened wide for a moment, then she heavily sank to the ground unconscious. The demon laughed, magic that strengthens the body in that wooden doll. Abel Gissel worked hard to find you. Abel was petrified with shock. The demon continued spreading her smug speech. She mastered all the magic she could learn in that village, and even extracted the secret techniques of the Marin tribe that was to be expected from your blood sister. Having laid unconscious Mia at her feet, the demon turned back to Abel. Victory was guaranteed. Good, now I have 2 hostages. Her voice was a poisonous whisper that sealed his fate. Surrender. If you want to save these 2, give up your body. When Mia was taken hostage, the situation sharply escalated. Giselle, whose eyes were masked by the demon's influence, gave Abel an ultimatum. If you want to save these 2, give up your body. Murazov's subordinates exhaled aloud in shock. All their attention was focused only on their captured leader. But before Murazev could act, Sim intervened. His voice became a calm anchor amid the growing storm. Wait, he said, turning to the demon lord. Sorry for this, but if Mia is taken, everything will go according to God's plan, even if I have to sacrifice that girl. For now, Sim's words sounded cold and calculated to provoke exactly that response. He recalled Murazev's paternal instinct. You wanted to save your daughter even if you had to hide her from the whole world, right? And isn't it you, above all, who should understand this best? His gaze fixed on Mia. She helplessly hung inside a crystal prison. Next to Sim, he still held on, and thoughts raced through all possibilities. If we rush in without thinking, we will also be in danger. Gazelle held the prison aloft, a symbol of her control over the battlefield. Since intellect cut through the chaos and identified the only critical path to victory, the only way to save them both unharmed is to separate the demon from Giselle. With the World Tree Totem, removing the nightmare possession is not difficult, but a memory surfaced, the past fight against Mia's father. Just like then, in Gazelle, enhanced physical abilities granted by that wooden doll spell, she will definitely stop me before I can utter the spell that removes the curse. The strategy was clear: neutralize the totem, the wooden doll used by Giselle. The demon inside Gazelle laughed maliciously, and his patience in thin robes. I think I'll start by getting rid of these nuisances. A spinning magic circle burst from the hand. Oh wind, tear those people apart. Blades wildly tore through the air, whistling and flying straight at them. Murzev instantly rushed forward and became a living shield. Wind magic tore at him, covering those behind. While the attack raged, Sim transmitted key information. The totemic sleeves control the regulation of physical enhancements from the wooden doll. Mizev's gaze was fixed on the small wooden figure hanging in the sky. Understood, he barked. If we destroy this totem, I can pull the demon out of Giselle's body. He roared at his warriors, all of you. They unleashed a wave of demonic power that surged forward, but Giselle was ready. O Earth, she commanded, invoking another spell. A pillar of stone and soil shot upward, but it was only a distraction. All right, Sim exclaimed as Mirror's F broke through the chaos. The demon lord was approaching, his fist about to smash the soaring totem statue, and the possessed Giselle just watched with a terrifying smile. But just as Murzev's attack was about to hit, the totem arrow shot sideways with impossible speed. Before he could react, ethereal shackles burst from the doll, binding his hand and stopping his movement. Immediately, a second earth spell erupted from the ground, much more powerful than the first. Oh, earthly fury. The explosion scattered Murazev's subordinates, tossing them like leaves in a storm. Sim's eyes widened with understanding. This was a Tropa curse that strikes physical attackers and a reaction sending. The demon's laughter echoed across the clearing. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? It was mocking. I knew you would go for this talisman to save both of us. Murazev growled in pain. The curse tightened around him even more. The demon shifted his entire gaze to Sima. So do you like it? Do you want to become my minion? I thought so. Far from the battle, the family of Giselle raced through the forest in pursuit. Dad thundered aloud, where on earth are you wandering? You are the hunter's son, and how pathetic. Mother could not find a place for herself. The others from the search team returned home. They were troubled by longing for their native lands. We stayed alone, but we cannot just leave Giselle-chan alone, right? Complaining about the father's side. To be honest, what happened to both of them, both the son and the daughter, that they came to such a distant place? Suddenly the earth trembled from the explosion in the distance. Vit, what was that? They looked toward where the sound came from. They squeezed through the trees and came out onto the ridge. Before them lay a complete devastation, a cratered wasteland where a forest once stood. Murzif lay prostrate and groaned in agony. The demon pressed on his advantage. His poisonous whisper echoed in Sim's head. All right, what will you choose? Will you allow this person doomed to die like this? Wait, Sim. Then the demon's voice changed. It became plaintive when he looked at the distant Abel. Why don't you praise me? A strange internal conflict began to unfold. I even managed to master the actions responses of Totem, something my older brother couldn't do. I did everything I could with the magic my dear brother loved so much, and still. But the voice was not Giselle. Inside the crystal, Maya's consciousness surfaced. Why don't you even want to look at me? Suddenly my body twitched in convulsions with a fierce jerk as if in chains. The demon who possessed Gazelle was suddenly struck with numbness. A thick, dull awareness and the feeling stopped. We need this girl, don't touch her. The demon was losing control. His perfect host rebelled from within. And no, you misunderstood everything. It's not me, the girl in this body. At that moment of internal chaos, the binding spell Murasef cracked. Freed, the demon lord wasted no time and immediately unleashed a devastating wave of power directly at the distracted Jisel. This is our chance, Sim shouted and seized the moment. He pushed the cursed puppeteering forward. Demon, get out of that body. A flash of the magic circle enveloped the gazelle, and the demon howled fiercely when her connection was severed and the possession was torn away, the crystal prison shattered, and Mia fell. Her father caught her so she was unharmed. Giselle collapsed to the ground unconscious. A memorial thread of dark energy, the demon himself was already trying to escape, but Sim was there. If it's hell, then I won't allow it, he said calmly and moved toward the frightened spirit. Demon, rest in peace. There is so much I want to ask you. Wait there a bit. A whirlwind of magic spun around the gloomy wire of the demon lying on the ground. With the last command, seal it. The book clicked sharply and closed, holding the essence captive within its pages. The danger past, Sim rushed to the fallen Giselle. Are you okay? He asked quietly, gently shaking her to wake her up. Her eyelids twitched and she opened her eyes, confused. Brother, what just happened? She began to explain something in a quiet voice. I was sure the older brother would come home immediately, so I didn't think about anything and immediately regretted it. I was afraid something might have happened to my brother, so when Sim-san asked me to lend him my power, Sim looked at the sealed book, his face became stern. I know it's not your fault. It's the demon that uses vulnerable hearts. Gazelle looked at her brother and bitter regret flashed in her eyes. I will no longer pressure you to marry me, she whispered, so let's go together. Abel's expression softened a little, but the answer was not at all what she expected. Sorry, you see, even without the marriage story, I don't think I can go back. Gazelle froze, not understanding. Wow. He tried to explain it lightly. And I seem to have gotten involved in a story that looks more dangerous than a demon. It's really interesting, I couldn't just brush it off. Of course, I plan to return to the village as soon as everything is settled, but I'm not quite sure when that will be. Gazelle's blow became even deeper. A crisis that could destroy the entire country. I don't know when I can return. For Giselle, these words became the last crack in her fragile psyche. Not at all, she screamed, widening her eyes in horror. A dark thought engulfed her. My dear brother is now trapped. He is being thrown off course by people from outside. My poor dear brother, I had to save him. She pushed Abel aside, her gaze fixed on a new source of strength. She jumped over the broken ground in pursuit, ignoring the cries of others. Her hands fell on the sealed grimoire. A dark magical circle flared around her. I call the one who is here. And from the book began to pour an unclean aura towards her. Yes, the true master of the demon watched this, not believing his own eyes. Gazelle's voice pierced with a terrifying intent as she addressed the power living in the book. Give up your power. I will show that I can handle this better than you. So Sim could only watch horrified. A cruel stream of dark energy burst out and devoured her while she screamed from pain, and at the same time in excitement. Abel screamed in fear, the voice vanished in the whirl. Giselle. A blinding stream of dark energy bursts out and covers Gazelle, while Abel shouts her name in horror. He freezes, not believing his own eyes, thoughts go wild. The seal was broken, he underestimated the true power of the demon, and now the consequences unfold right before him. From the chaotic mist emerged a new figure radiating an aura of pure malice. Giselle hung in the air, her body twisted, and her eyes flashed with an unholy glow. She was no longer the girl he knew, but a vessel for something ancient and terrible. From a distance, Murasef watched, and his face hardened as everything became clear. My dear brother, he is being deceived, he barked, recognizing the signs of a conspiracy hidden even deeper. Overgrown Giselle paid them no attention. Before her hand, a complex magical circle flared up, appearing with the power of the night and shimmering with a terrifying glow. Without a word, she released a focused beam of pure destruction straight at the demon lord. Murzef's sister gasped in terror, eyes wide with fear. The explosion tore through the ground, and the detonation shook everything around with catastrophic force. Abel watched as his strategic mind calculated the attack, feeling a cold fear. Silent magic, he whispered. Could the demon have already fully possessed Gazelle's body? Murzef's soldiers recoiled in fear, their fighting spirit shattered. What the hell kind of monster is this? One of them shouted. Run away, Murzef roared, and he noticed the cold, calculating expression in the gaze of the obsessed girl. Another beam shot downward, but Abel reacted instantly, sharply throwing his hands forward. For a moment, the creature that was once Gazelle stopped, her voice cut through with a distorted whisper. Big brother. The words were mockery, but the attack pattern was a hint. Abel's mind frantically replayed frames in his head and put the puzzle together. He returned to Marishev, and his theory hardened magic that originated from the land of the heavens. It probably fully absorbed the power of the heavenly god. The trap turned out to be more cunning than he had imagined. That cursed demon probably deceitfully lured us, making us lower our guard and then struck with these vile tricks. But suddenly a new inconsistency surfaced. Wait. Sister Murisev sharply shook her head. Giselle would never have done such a thing. It's all because of that evil demonic creature. It's her fault. She came here only because she was worried about me and she was deceived. The morning deer, captured by someone else, let out a heavy sigh of complete disgust, and her voice sounded, rolling with foreign power. How annoying it is, let everyone leave except me and my brother. Ebel knew he had to act. He returned to the Lord of Demons with grim determination. I will drive the demon out of Giselle again and prove her innocence. I need your help. Mirzef nodded to his own pride on the line. Everyone follow me, he commanded, leading a desperate assault while the gazelle universe from the sky gave chase. She unleashed a downpour of energy spears, mercilessly destroying the ground below with a storm. Once again I will snatch the demon from under Giselle, Ebel declared, his plan forming amid the chaos. I will use a brief opening to teleport the world tree totem behind Giselle's back. He watched her movements, waiting for exactly that moment, precisely a nanosecond when the chance would finally appear. With a burst of mana, he shouted the command. Teleport, and the sacred artifact materialized in the air right behind the demon. But her reaction was inhumanly fast. She snatched a beam of energy from her hand and released it even before the idol fully stabilized. Ample could only watch in horror as the beam hit the target. The totem of the world tree, the key to their victory, instantly evaporated. Possessed Giselle clenched her fist, and an evil smile stretched across her face as she crushed the last remnants of the sacred energy of the totems. The echo of its destruction burst back in a shockwave, and Moritz and his retinue fell to the ground. Her voice spread over the ravaged wasteland with triumphant contempt. The soul of that girl was already covered by the power of the heavenly god. Murasif rose, his face a mask of cold fury. The last chance failed. Kill that girl, he ordered Abel. Now that the world tree totem is destroyed, we cannot delay. My power is by no means enough to handle this opponent. But Abel stood firm. No, I will not. Why are you raging like this, Lord of Demons? This is not an opponent you can defeat by holding back. Go all out and you must overcome him. Her sister's voice sounded full of despair. Otherwise, the end awaits us here. Abel's thought calculated the harsh reality. Without the world tree totem, it is almost impossible. The demon cannot be driven out anymore. Stopping her now is only possible with the Abel ball or something equally powerful. What about the totem you created from the ground earlier? Asked one of his companions. Can't we use that? Barely audible, Abel waved it off. You mean Yamasen Nabuo 4? That's just earth magic, carved into a familiar form, except it was made from wood that holds incredible magical power. The totem is useless. The tactical situation worsened. Gazelle is now more powerful than last time, so lifting the curse is even harder. Using the totem to tame the demon is like decoding a complex code with a computer. He had no options left. Even if I wanted to do it right now, I have neither the time nor any idea where to find a suitable tree. Assembling the world tree totem required careful preparation and rare materials, luxuries he no longer had. He needed a replacement. Any. Watching from the forest, Abel's friends could only freeze in fear, looking at this monster of power unfolding before them. A new desperate strategy formed in his mind, and mind was activated. Marisef-san, he screamed, draw her attention while I chant the spell. It's all or nothing, but this is all we have left. The demon lord charged forward again, delivering a devastating counterattack. His sister screamed. Abel focused his while the spell reached its climax. Let it pass. He sharply thrust his hands forward, releasing a wave of magical power, a continuous stream of energy. The energy surged across the battlefield, cutting the very earth to the bone. He directed the flow, a storm of destruction, all under his complete control. The possessed gazelle turned to meet the attack, and for a moment a surprised shadow flashed across her face as the full force of the spell engulfed her. When the light faded, Abel's eyes widened in complete disbelief. She stood completely unharmed, the raging energies parted around her as if she were the eye of the hurricane. An even mightier, deeper, and indescribably oppressive force began to radiate from her body. The very air around her twisted, and bent, a vivid proof of absolute power that far surpassed his own. The demon that possessed Dazel unleashed a catastrophic squall. Each burst of energy, like a meteor, struck the ground around Abel and his companions. The scale of the assault was staggering. Abel almost reached his limit. What kind of spell was that just now? Sylphan shouted in fear, shielding his eyes from the dazzling explosions. If this continues, they will all be killed. Fira looked at Abel, and anxiety trembled in her voice while he gritted his teeth in despair. He stretched his hand to the heavens, pouring all his strength without reserve into a desperate plea. Come on, I beg you, hurry, come here. The demon smiled, boldly confident in his victory. And then a shadow fell on the battlefield. The very sky seemed to shudder, and from the thin air, one by one, countless objects materialized. The demon's eyes widened sharply. A whole real army of wooden totems, a swarm so dense it blocked out the sun itself, answered Abel's call. The demon jerked back, his voice trembling with disbelief. The quality may be lacking, but with such a quantity. Abel seized the moment. Just as he pointed directly at his sister, a complex magical circle flared before him. Demon, get out of this body. A wave of pure shock swept across the demon's face. In the perfect unison legion of totems, they synchronously concentrated their collective power into a single point before releasing a colossal beam of purifying energy. A pillar of light descended from the heavens and struck the figure of Gazelle with divine power. The blow rolled through her, and dark miasma was cut off from the body, which burst out with fierce force. As soon as she began to fall headlong from the sky, Abel immediately re-aimed and cast a new spell. Wind, he commanded, raising his voice and shouting his sister's name. A mighty squall rose from beneath the earth, swirling into a protective vortex and softening her fall. He rushed to her side, and the winds gently set her down on the ground. Giselle, do you recognize me? Her eyelids twitched and her eyes snapped open, dizzy, but seeing clearly. A wave of incredible relief washed over Abel, and she quietly, barely audibly whispered, "Dear brother." Meanwhile, the bodiless demon began to dissolve, his last thoughts echoing in the ether. No, this is not it. I thought I was possessing just a human. But it turned out I was the one deceived. But that girl, she was not possession. She forcibly drew power from my very being and wielded it as her own. These brothers and sisters are too dangerous. The essence completely dissolved. Her last thought, cold proof of the true power of sisterhood. When the immediate threat vanished, the dark presence fled into the distance, disappearing beyond the horizon. Sylphan froze, looking at the now empty sky, then at the battlefield strewn with wooden figures. Yet he asked the stricken, where did such a huge number of wooden dolls come from? Abel, swallowing his breath, simply answered, from the place of my family. He allowed himself a barely noticeable, all-knowing smile, but whether he will solve this is a matter of chance. Here is my master for you. The true depth of his plan was a master-stroke logistics and magical theory. He had long calculated this very emergency and laid the foundation for it. It was necessary to summon practiced totems from his native village, but they lacked the magical energy for such a distant teleportation. Then he devised a clever bypass maneuver. He sent a specific pattern of air fluctuations, a coded message to the animal repellent device he had previously installed in the village fields. The peasants heard a strange rhythmic noise and moved forward to investigate. The sound led them straight to the chief's house, to the place where Abel's totems mysteriously gathered. The leader was confused. His entire garden plot turned out to be filled with wooden dolls. One of the totems passed on the previously recorded message from Abel with a request to establish a teleportation circle at their end. The chief was struck as if by lightning. A message from Abel. He wants me to help him transfer these totems to the edge of the country. Really? Sensing the urgency in his student's plea, he executed the order without hesitation, unfolding the necessary magic circle. Hubble used the basic principle of teleportation magic. A one-way call requires colossal power that increases with distance. But if a magic circle is placed both at the destination and at the starting point, the costs become negligible. It creates a stable flow, a bridge through space. And when the leader on his side opened the gate, Abel was able to receive the entire totem army with minimal effort, and the battle unfolded with one brilliant move. This plan became possible only thanks to his past innovations. Once he explained the idea of his sound device to the chief, describing how simple signal peaks could transmit encoded message, a primitive form of long-distance communication. The old man was amazed, although he did not fully understand the consequences. Glancing at the mountains, the leader briefly cleared up. He realized that the boy's genius was too great to fit within the boundaries of a single village. Return to the present ended without succeeding. The rumble of thunder brought the local lord here with his knights. Abel sighed, first a demon, now politics. He grabbed his head, completely exhausted. How do we clean this up? I am completely burned out, as if I even hear my father's voice. It was not a hallucination. His father, together with Faraz, arrived with the chieftain and shouted his name across the cratered terrain. The lord was completely baffled by what he saw. A crowd of peasants, hundreds of totems, and a battlefield that looked as if it had been shelled by titans. Lord Abel, what the hell is going on here? But Silphon cut through the noise. His face turned to stone. We have no time. When the scoundrel heavenly god is defeated, the real threat becomes even more urgent. Immediately proceed to World Tree Grove. The Lord turned pale, the country in danger. Were able to return to their family. His face was resolute. I must stop the resurrection of that other god. Casting one last glance, he turned to leave. I cannot return to the village until all this is over. Forgive me. The peasants, seeing the impossible, could only watch in awe. Gazelle, however, remains silent and slowly gains a deep understanding. I fully realized this after the battle. She thought that her heart was breaking from pain. I cannot defeat my dear brother no matter how hard I try. I cannot stop him. A desperate thought caught up. He will leave me and go somewhere far away. The burden of this truth turned out to be too heavy, and she broke into tears. It was then that Elena, the librarian, stepped forward. You studied magic and chased after him all the way here to reunite again, right? Then she turned to Abel. Will everything be all right if she goes with you? Giselle is almost as skilled in magic as you are, she whispered. She will be useful on the journey ahead. A spark of hope flashed in Giselle's eyes. I will go, she said quietly. Her voice grew louder, filled with new purpose. I will go, but only with you, dear brother. Abel looked at his father, and he met his gaze with a stern expression. Before bitterly giving up, you probably won't listen to me anyway, so just come back when it's all over. Overflowing with joy, Giselle grabbed Abel's hand. Brother, I will help, whatever it takes, even to defeat the god. He gathered himself again, focused his gaze, and nodded toward their goal. But no matter what, our main priority task is to stop the evil god. Let's go. And the brother and sister rushed forward together, ready to face the fate of their world.